Hello everybody and welcome along to the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit at round number 3 of the 2024 British GT Championship. It's the big one, the Silverstone 500, the blue-ribboned event in every season of British GT competition. And we've got a massive grid of cars across both GT3 and GT4 doing battle in the hopes of winning one of the most famous prizes in British motorsport. It's a wet and soggy day, but the track conditions are not going to dampen our spirits ahead of what is set to be a phenomenal 3 hours of racing full of strategy calls, driver changes, and hopefully another thrilling finish. Before we dive into some of the live on-track action, let's familiarise ourselves with some of the big stories pre-race.
The Silverstone 500, 43 entries in total, 24 of them GT3s and 19 GT4s. Reigning Silverstone 500 winner Darren Leung, he's back for a one-off outing with Century. He's moved on to FIA WEC, won at Imola last weekend of course, and he's got BMW factory driver Dries Van Thor alongside him.
Of course, it's been a while since I've been in Silverstone, since the last endurance round of Blockbear back then. Well, I mean, I got an Instagram text from Darren asking if I was free this weekend, if I was keen to do the British GT round with him, because he's only doing one round anyway, because it's a quite busy race at the moment himself. And for sure I was keen to do the race. I mean, knowing that they won it last year was for sure was motivated to try and get that again. Who knows what it brings after this race? You never know. But I know in England they have quite some cool tracks which I've never been before, so maybe that's something which I can still do. But at the moment it's only planned to do this.
Right, we've arrived at RJN with none other than Jan Mardenborough, who hasn't raced in British GT since 2012.
I've raced abroad in many different countries, in Europe. I lived in Japan over there, raced 500 for 4 years. I've had a movie come out about my life, played myself as a stuntman, and now back in combustion engine cars, GT cars, which I love. So we've had some testing here over the last few weeks. We were testing here last week as well, in the wet and the dry. But we have work to do, but aspirations to win.
Beechdene AMR, another team, didn't see the best of them at Alton Park. Andrew Howard and of course Jess Hawkins, they're just getting all set to go out for testing.
You know, I think it was a bit of a baptism of fire in Alton Park. Obviously great to be there, mixed conditions, a lot of carnage, but good to get that one under my belt, and I feel a lot more relaxed for this weekend. It's also my home race, which is fantastic, and I just love Silverstone. I've obviously been associated with Aston Martin in some capacity, especially with the Formula One team for 4 years now. This is my 4th season with them, so it's great to finally be racing one in the form of a GT3. GT racing is new to me. It's not something that I haven't raced GT4 or anything like that, so this is a big step. You know, it's different and it's a lot to learn. But so far it's going well. I've got fantastic behind me in Beechdene Motorsport, and I'm very happy with the progress that we've shown so far, and I think we'll only get stronger and stronger throughout the year.
We're on to paddock. Of course, they've got the mix of McLaren GT3s and GT4s, and they've got the Mercedes in the middle. You might remember this car didn't actually race at Alton Park because of a transmission issue in qualifying that they just could not fix in time for the race. So therefore, Matt Cowley, reigning champion, hasn't scored a point yet alongside Ed McDermott.
It's good to be here. Obviously, disappointment at Alton. It's good to be back on track. Hopefully, get out for the race this weekend and get some points on the board and start the championship fight again. It's a really good car. Settled in really well to it. It's really easy to drive. It's great for Ed as well. So yeah, loving the Mercedes. It's nice to drive and we're quick in it, so we can't complain. Got the full season planned. Me and Ed will be doing the full season with Paddock in the Mercedes. Beyond that, unsure of plans at the moment. It was kind of looking like we weren't going to be out racing this year, and unfortunately Ed came along and we managed to get a deal together that could work for us. So yeah, really grateful to Ed for giving me the opportunity to be out with him.
And it really is great to hear the thoughts of the drivers, and Tom Hornsby doing a wonderful job as he always does. The regular viewers will know, if you watch the YouTube channel, that he always does a nice pit walk ahead of each round. Well, here we are on the grid anyway. I say we, it's myself, Bryn Lucas and Joe Osborne alongside. We've been talking track for a while, haven't we, about the conditions. And it's been a big talking point over qualifying yesterday and testing beforehand, and a lot of the drivers have been scratching their heads about what it's going to do today.
Yeah, mixed is the word I'd use to describe. Super wet this morning. We've We've actually had races cancelled this morning due to the standing water. The rain has abated for the last hour or so, but there's showers in the area. It's 6 degrees, it feels like 3. It's very, very cold, which stops the track drying quickly. There is some wind and it blows from right to left here. The problem is where some of the buildings are, the track dries in different stages. I expect the track at the far end, club corner, the last corner on the new pitch straight, to dry slowly. And then it's when can we get to slicks? If we can get to slicks.
If we can get to slicks. And with no pit windows, it really does come down to strategy. And it's a real good mix-up, isn't it? Because there'll be undercuts happening and things. We won't really know what's going to happen or who's leading until the last pit stop happens, though.
Exactly. So those 3 pit stops are 3 lives to get the right tyre on the car or the wrong tyre. And the importance is why wets or why slicks? Slicks in the right conditions, 12 seconds a lap faster around here at Silverstone. So if you're on the right tyre, you could lap your opponent within 11 laps if you're on slicks and they're on wets. But then it flips the other way. If it were to rain and you're on slicks, it's the other way and possibly worse, and you're going to go and say hello to the barrier.
Particularly if you just started the lap and it starts to hoon it down, which you saw earlier on. I mean, it was absolutely pouring, wasn't it? So that's going to play a very big part in this Silverstone 500, which pretty much always delivers a safety car. Well, it could happen. Here's what happened last year.
It's the Silverstone 500, for many the biggest race of the year. 3 hours of action around a circuit that was made for GT competition. As they head towards turn 1, Neary will have the lead. Here is the battle for second in GT4. Jinked from the outside to the inside.
Just touching behind the front wheel. That forces the McLaren light on the rear. Then look at the opposite lock. Big impact there. Team Brit 570 McLaren.
Trips out wide, Harper goes up the inside. Dan Harper makes it stick. Darren Leung and Dan Harper win the 2023 British GT Championship round at Silverstone. In GT4, Jack Brown and Charles Clark and Optimum Motorsports celebrate the win, and the RAC trophy going their way to Darren Leung and Dan Harper, winners of the Silverstone 500 in 2023. Well, the 2023 edition of this great race was just that, a great race that boiled right down to the final few moments. It was quite the journey to get there, and I suspect we're in for much the same sort of journey here this afternoon, during which, as they were chatting about on the grid just now, pit stops and pit strategy could prove to make the difference between winning and losing, and that is going to be a big factor as we go racing later on. We'll get into all of that and more as we go through the course of the 3 hours. For now, though, back down to the grid and Bryn Lucas.
Thanks very much, Andy. Yeah, the man whose name is over the door, Stefan Rattel, SRO. It's great to have you here, Stefan. It's great to see another Silverstone 500 happening, and such a big grid as well.
A big grid and a reasonable public size, and I really want to start by thanking the spectators for, despite the weather, for braving the weather and for being here with us today. Another great grid, another record grid. 43 cars entered. We've made a fantastic picture on Friday here with all the cars, the diversity both in GT3 and in GT4, many different manufacturers, a level of drivers which is raising and raising, with more drivers coming from that are also racing in WEG, that are racing in GT World Challenge. So it's it's going well.
It is very much going well, and you mentioned the spectators here. We've got a lot of people on the grid, which is always great to see. And in the grandstands as well, so many people that are dealing with the weather, the hardy bunch that have come out to look at British GT in its finest. And you mentioned the grid, though, and the quality. That's something we've been seeing over the last few years, though. This quality is building and building. How far can this go?
I think, we haven't started yesterday. We've been running the championship for many, many years, but one thing is sure, it's getting more and more popular, more and more competitive. The grid is growing and the level of competition as well.
Thanks very much, Stefan. Always a pleasure. We've just heard the alarms. The cars are going to make their way onto the grid in just a few moments. Before we speak to any of the drivers, though, back to Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Bryn, and I echo the thoughts of Stefan Rattel there. The British GT Championship really going from strength to strength, as other grids perhaps are shrinking over the years. It seems that this one gets bigger and bigger and better better. It is a fantastic time to be involved in the British GT Championship, and this should be a fantastic 3 hours of racing to come later on this afternoon. Now, as I started to say, pit stops, pit strategy, that is pivotal over the course of the afternoon. We'll be talking about it throughout the 3 hours, but say you've got a rough idea of what we're talking about. Let's hear, whoops, there's a spin for one of the Century BMWs on the way to the grid, and that is just going to show, I think, how tricky the conditions are out on circuit. Thankfully, the 22 car gets going. Won't hopefully need to head for the pits for repairs, but pit stops, Joe Osborne, is going to be a huge talking point all day.
So, Silverstone 500, every car has got to do a mandatory 3 pit stops. 43 cars, 129 pit stops. Let's see what goes on during that pit stop. Chaz, give me a fast pit stop, please, mate. Car will come in, it will stop. The driver will be loosening his belts, undoing the window net. The door will then come up. Fran helping Andrew Gilbert out here. You can see really tight space. I'm to help out. Door now needs to be closed. Both of these two drivers will get across the white line. We've then got the fueler getting on. You can see the dead man will pull the handle down. Fuel hose on. We've got the counter here. Ben watching that number count down. 30 seconds still left. This main pipe is the fuel going in. This secondary is the breather, so you can't overfill the car. Once this process is finished, the car will go up in the air. You can see the air lance here is going to go straight on. The air jacks lift the car up. Then we'll be changing all 4 tyres. So I think we're going to be doing that in about 10 seconds. Drivers watching. As soon as that fuel hose comes off, they can go. Fran, the driver on the left, will be getting in. The McLaren a little bit quirky with its dihedral doors, sometimes making it a little bit more difficult. So here we go. Door handle up. Driver getting in. Andrew will help him with his radio, the drink system, the cool suit. Tyres going on at the same time. Let's follow Joe here on the gun. He's going to flash it off. Pull it off. Ben putting the new one in. Joe's now going to run round, get behind the line. Same time, door is closed. Car will go down on the jacks. Now back to Chaz, just finishing off, cleaning the windscreen. Chaz will be in super communication mode now. Looking at his stopwatch. How long we got, Chazzy?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So be telling driver, change your ID, check your traction control, your ABS. Chaz now looking down the pit lane, making sure it's clear. Engine now firing up. You can see him nice and forceful with his lollipop. I like it, Chazza. And then he's going to swing that board up. Fran would then release and be on his merry way. So we've just seen a perfect pit stop from the Optimum Motorsport guys, but that was in a sterile environment. When it comes to the race, everything is more hype, more tension. They also need to do that twice more during the race. Easy to lose time in the pits, but hard to gain it back on track. Let's see how it goes for 3 hours around Silverstone.
Well, I hope you're all taking notes, because that is definitely going to be the key talking point, really, I think, along with the weather. Pit stops absolutely vital. And to add extra complication to that pit stop recipe, we have our compensation times, because we've already had 2 races this year at Alton Park. The podium finishing cars from both GT3 and GT4 in the second race at Alton Park on Easter Monday have to spend a little bit of extra time in the pit lane on their final pit stop. So the third and final pit stop, they will have to spend extra time in there. The class winners spend 20 seconds extra stationary, 15 extra seconds for the second place finishers, and 10 extra seconds for the third place finishers. There's also then an additional 12 seconds for all of the GT4 Silver Cup cars, and those 12 seconds have to be served at each and every one of those 3 pit stops. It means that the running order will change pretty frequently every time the cars dive for the pit lane. Right then, that was how things work in the pit stops. For now, though, back down onto the grid. The cars are starting to make their way there, and already, I believe, Bryn Lucas catching up with some of the drivers.
Yeah, I am indeed. You know what? Yesterday we discovered it was Mark Lemon's birthday, the boss at Barwell, but it was also this man, Sam Neary's birthday yesterday, 22 years old yesterday. I was saying you're one of the oldest looking 22-year-olds we've ever seen. Qualifying didn't go all that well, more for Richard than for you, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there was just a few issues with the tyre warm-up for Rich, which really just knocked his confidence. And you know, it's rare to see Rich that far behind me. So yeah, but I think we've got, you know, 3 hours to go, and it's a long race. So, and it's damp to start. It's really our conditions. So hopefully we'll be moving up the grid quite quickly.
And with the fact that there's no pit stop windows, you can do a fair bit of strategy here to get yourselves up the order as well.
Yes, absolutely. We have all the strategies planned now, but as soon as the green lights go out, it all changes. So it's going to be an interesting race. You know, some people will pit straight away, some people won't, and you know, I think it's really going to be waiting for the slicks to come in because it does dry quickly, this track, and I think in 20-30 minutes it will be slicks. So,
well, let's hope that you can get to enjoy your birthday at the end of this one. Wish you all the best, Sam. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Back to you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Brim. Birthday boy Sam Neary then. And that's interesting to hear what he said about the track conditions, that he thinks it will be ready for slick tyres within the first half hour of the race. But that adds so many complications then to pit strategy, because along with having to make those 3 pit stops, there is also a maximum driver time. No individual driver can spend more than 100 of the 180 minutes at the wheel of the car. But if you're ready to pit them, after 30 minutes, and that's perhaps 20 odd minutes before you were expecting to pit them because the track conditions have changed and it's now ready for slicks, then that can really send that driver time strategy haywire. So that's just another thing to give the team managers and the team strategists a little bit of a headache. The BRDC clubhouse has been very busy today. Most of the hospitality guests who were in there throughout the day have now headed out onto the grid to get up close and personal with all of the cars, all of the drivers, and really soak in the atmosphere for what is the biggest race of the year in the British GT calendar. And always great to have a big grid of cars and a big crowd of spectators here to soak up all of the atmosphere. While doing just that down on the grid, catching up with some more drivers, let's head back down to Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, it's very sociable down here, Andy, at the moment. I've just caught up, or found Max Guts. This is Kevin Say's teammate, and they're going to be starting alongside to my right, to your left as you're looking here. It's the ideal place to start, and we've discovered that it's going to be a safety car start here as well, so it's less frantic off the line.
Yeah, for sure. It's a bit more safer for everybody, but I think now the condition changed compared to this morning when we did the decision. We had a meeting all together and we decided to do a safety car start. It's better for safety and for all, but now actually it's less rain. It's not a real water patches out there. It's just not a dry line, but it's less water. So it could be that a normal start could work as well. But yeah, I think we take it how it is now.
Well, look, Kevin's just arrived into position, so I'll let you go and talk to him. But as always, we wish you all the best and see what happens over the next 3 hours. Thanks, Max. Back to you, Andy.
Well, qualifying definitely had a Mercedes and 2C's Motorsport flavour to it yesterday. That's why they ended up on pole position. But remember, that car right behind them on the grid, well, that is the car that won this race a year ago. Darren Leung, the reigning champion, is back, not alongside Dan Harper, his co-driver last year, but instead with the very experienced factory driver Dries van Tor. And so far, Joe Osborne, Darren's quest to get back-to-back Silverstone 500 victories going pretty well.
Yes, exactly. So, Darren, we're on a wave, aren't we? Let's think back. 12 months, you won this race. Brilliant. You win the championship. Amazing. A week ago, you win your first World Endurance Championship race at Imola. You're back to Silverstone. It's wet, it's grim, it's horrible, sorry. How are you feeling right now?
I'm absolutely loving it, to be honest. Yeah, the great thing with these races is that there's never a dull moment. There's a lot that's going on, and I think it makes for exciting racing, to be honest, which is why I'm here. It's not about the results, it's about getting some enjoyment.
And we've had a little bit of controversy. We're playing it up, obviously, on TV. You're not sharing your data with the 2 sister cars. Your car is a lot further forward on the grid. What have you done to make this car faster? Is it the high speed, the slow speed? Tell me all the secrets, I want to know.
So I think it's a combination of quite a few things. We've been here, we've done a bit of testing. You know, we've had the same crew with the car for over a year now, and they've had a hell of a lot of time. So it's really about just making sure that all the little things aren't tripping you up and kind of building up to a big compound effect, to be honest. You know, those guys do know what they're doing. I think the reality is that, you know, I'm in and out of the car a lot, Dries is too. You know, there's probably a lot of factors. You know, if I was smart enough to be able to give you a single answer, I would have said to them. But I don't think the answer's really in the data, to be honest. These cars are pretty easy to set up.
Nice and diplomatic. I'll give you a question where you can't be. You can only choose one. You're only allowed to say one word. Who are you having driving alongside you, Dries or Dan Harper?
Come on. No, I think they're both brilliant, mate.
Rubbish. I'm not asking a nice question again. Right, let's see. Hey, mate, you okay? Let's walk a little bit further back. I want to try and get either Phil Keane or Ian Loggy, former champion, and Phil is one of the most winningest drivers in British GT. We're going to get kicked off the grid relatively. Phil, talk to me, brother. How's it looking out there? How slippy, how wet compared to maybe warm-up this morning?
Ian's saying it's pretty slippery out there, a lot less standing water, so yeah, we'll see. A few adjustments and we'll see what happens.
Okay, you've done a mega job, I think, already with Ian, getting him back up to speed when he won the championship. Do you think you can win the championship this year?
Oh, hopefully, that's the aim, so we'll go for this race first and see how we get on.
And how long into the race are we going to get on slicks?
I think halfway. It's meant to rain in 25 minutes, so I would have thought, if it doesn't rain, I should think, 50 minutes, it'll probably be dry, won't it? So.
I believe you, Phil. Obviously, a local boy, we know when it dries quickly. Normally the rain comes in at Stowe. So, Phil, this is Phil buzzing, by the way. He's just very metronomic and calm. We've been teammates in the past. I love this guy. I think these guys are going to win today, actually. So there's my prediction, and I'll see you on the podium later. Back to you, Andy.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Joe. The curse of the commentator not going to be on my shoulders for this race, but I do agree. I think they've got a good shot. We know what a strong driver lineup that is. And as I said, the Mercedes AMGs, they really do seem to be working well in all conditions, really, here at Silverstone. They were quick in qualifying in the dry, but they were quick this morning as well in the wet. And in fact, Phil Keane, who we just heard from, set the fastest lap time in that very wet warm-up session earlier on in the morning. Now, that is GT3, but further down the order, there's a whole other story developing, and that surrounds GT4, where it's McLaren on pole position, and catching up with the pole-sitting team is Brim.
Thanks once again, Andy. Yeah, I'm here with Jack Brown. Now, you're sitting fourth in the championship. I don't want to cast your mind back too much to what happened last season, but you came so close, didn't you, to walking away with overall. And it's these sort of races that you've got to make count, Jack.
Yeah, for sure. I think last year we definitely got robbed of a championship, but it is what it is. We learned a lot last year. We won here last year. We got lucky with the safety car, got a lap in front, and I think that's what it comes down to here. Being lucky, coming at the right time. Just I'm relying on Adam, the engineer, to make the right calls and just stay out of trouble here. And I think you'll come away with decent points. So.
But the fact you have the experience of taking a win at the Silverstone 500 puts you in a rather unique position as well, coming to back-to-back potential wins. It's very hard for you as a silver though, because two silver drivers, you get that extra 12 seconds per pit stop that you have to sit in the car.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, firstly, it'd be great to win another one. That would be amazing. That's obviously our goal. Secondly, as to the 12 seconds we lose in the pit stops is going to be a challenge, but I think we can make it up against the AMs. Especially if it's like this, mixed conditions, I think we'll do okay. So.
Well, we wish you all the best. It's going to be a safety car start as well, so we've been told we have to move off the grid in a second. We wish you all the best and good luck with the start too.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yes, thank you very much, Bryn. So that is the GT4 pole-sitting car, but GT4 was actually an even tighter qualifying session than GT3, where the CMR Ginetta was within, I think, 1/10.5 of a second of snatching pole position. So GT4 definitely worth focusing on. There is the car that will start up on the second place on the grid. Alex Martin aboard the number 78 Lamborghini that he will share with Sandy Mitchell, who came so close to winning this race last year. It was that late duel between himself and Dan Harper that decided the race, eventually in the favour of the Century Motorsport BMW. But it would be kind of fitting, wouldn't it, if those two cars both ended up fighting for the victory again today and they start second and third on the grid. So every chance that that could well happen. Well, the grid is being cleared, which means that Joe Osborne has made his way off the grid, up into the commentary box, his home and mine for the next 3 hours as we talk through what's going to be a fascinating race. And, well, I think two drivers were asked about tyres and track conditions on the grid just now, Joe, and they both gave very different answers. One said it'll be dry in 20 minutes, the other said it's going to rain again. What do you think?
One of them's going to be right, that would be my guess. My feeling is it's going to go slicks about an hour into the race. But it will rain again at some point. But I don't think it'll be heavy enough to go back to wets. It'll be who can survive on slicks if you're on slicks when that rain comes. Silverstone, obviously an old RAF base from World War II. We're on top of a large hill in Northampton for their terms, but it does blow in quickly, but it also blows out quickly. And it does come from the other end of the track, Stowe. So as they leave Hanger Straight and get into Stowe, that's normally where the weather comes first. So we'll keep an eye out for that. But this is a hard one to call. I think if I was brave, I think if there was a safety car 10 minutes before when you'd go to slicks, I would box and get my slicks on, knowing that the safety car would be around 10 minutes, so it would be the right time to have those tyres on. I think it's going to be difficult. I think these AMs are going to have to go long. You're going to have to wait until a safety car comes out. The Lamborghini can do about 65 minutes on its fuel. The Mercedes more like 70 to 75. The McLaren about 65 as well. The BMW 70. So those cars, the Mercedes and the BMW particularly, just have that longer window to stay out for that safety car, to stay out for it to go slicks. But as we see this epic drone shot, you can see the track starting to dry. Those slightly darker shades are the drier parts. And actually the curbing on the pit straight was dry. I stood there, I couldn't believe that would already dried. The wind is really strong today. I think that's going to dry it quicker than maybe some people expect.
Interesting, lots of unknowns. That's kind of the way we like it, really. And it sets us up for a fascinating 3 hours of racing, which has now begun. The cars leaving the grid, not on a formation lap, but actually on the first lap of the race. The race, as we've heard, will be starting behind the safety car, just because what we don't really want is a big pile-up into the first corner that wipes out half the field. So we're going to make sure that that doesn't happen, in theory, by starting the race behind the safety car, giving the drivers a couple of laps just to gauge the conditions, see where the standing water is or isn't, then we'll go racing. And when we do go racing, it'll be Kevin Say who starts from the front in the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes alongside Alex Martin in the 78 Barwell Lamborghini. Last year's winner and eventual champion Darren Leung starts the third, ahead of Sean Balfour McLaren. Mark Radcliffe, another McLaren, is fifth, ahead of Ian Logie. 2Cs number 6 Mercedes. Rob Collard, former winner of this race, starts from 7th alongside Morgan Tilbrook, looking for points after a bit of a disaster at Alton Park. Giacomo Petrobelli survived a spin in warm-up earlier on today to start 9th, ahead of John Ferguson. Sasha Kakad in the Audi will start 11th, the lone GT3 Audi, alongside Andrew Howard, former champ. Simon Orange and Mark Smith, meanwhile, have a pair of McLarens starting from the 7th row. Richard Neary's team ABBA Racing Mercedes starts 15th alongside Lucky Carer. Then it's Chris Buncombe and Andrew Gilbert together on row number 9. And at the back of the top 20, Matt Topham for Blackthorn in the Aston Martin and the Greystone GT Mercedes of Mike Price. A pair of Century Motorsport cars are next. Carl Cavers has already had a spin. He starts 21st ahead of Michael Johnston. Then in GT4, Zach Meakin on pole for Optimum Motorsport with the CMR Ginetta of Stuart Middleton alongside. Second row of that GT4 grid sees Aston Martin battle McLaren, Jamie Day alongside Blake Anglis, and row 3 for GT4, Kavi Jundu in the Toyota and Seb Morris in the Team Parker Racing Mercedes. Mark Warren, former Ginetta racer, Colin White, current Ginetta racer, they share the next row of the GT4 grid ahead of Sai Sanjay's McLaren, and Ravi Ramid, another former Ginetta star for Century Motorsport. Stephen Lake in the first of the Lotus is next, alongside Will Moore in the 62 Academy Mustang, hopefully with its issue from warm-up sorted. Harry George and Ian Duggan are next, ahead of Marco Signoretti, the second of the Mustangs, and Ian Goff in another Century Beamer. Ed McDermott is next for Paddock Motorsport in their Mercedes, that's still taking some getting used to, alongside Tim Docker's Audi, and 41st and last, Carl Garnett, another former Ginetta star, will bring up the rear of the grid. It took us nearly a full lap behind the safety car to get through the entirety of that grid, which is a nice problem to have, really. A huge grid, and not just big, but stacked with talent, stacked with potential race winners. And I cannot wait to see who comes out on top at the end of this 3-hour third round of the championships. The safety car is going to do, I think, 2 or 3 laps here before we actually release the cars at full speed. But from what we're seeing from the drone shot, at least, I know this is a low-speed part of the track, but not too much spray, even at high speed down the pit straight, Joe. That looks reasonably manageable.
Yeah, definitely from a spray perspective. So, interesting call. I said the BMW Merc could go long on fuel. Normally this would be a problem, but they are getting one of these pit stops out of the way. With it being wetter, they're going to use less fuel as well. So actually, those conservative figures of how long they could go. So this really is becoming a split strategy already. And I'm surprised only 2Cs and Century have done it, to be honest. So they're going to be able to get back onto the back of the field without losing a lap. They will have all the GT4 cars to contend with, and with 20 GT4 cars, it's probably going to cost them probably 10 to 15 seconds getting through them over the first 5 or 6 laps. But if there's another safety car, they then get track position. So this is effectively a very aggressive undercut. And you can see Dries Van Tor getting in there, actually completely other end of the pit lane. So there will be a bit of a race in pit lane, but it's only really track position between them, not super important. But like you said about the spray, I think Peter Daly has an obligation when the track temperature is under 10 degrees, which is quite common in the UK, that they have to do 2 laps. Obviously under safety car, they're just going to do that probably there rather than 2 formation laps. But I think there's a chance safety car will come in at the end of this lap. If they extinguish the lights coming down the Wellington straight, we know we're good to go.
if there's one car I'm surprised didn't just pit, it's this one, because Barwell Motorsport have done this before. If there's been an incident on lap 1, an early safety car, very often Mark Lemmer brings their cars in, gets that stop out of the way early, and yes, they lose the track position, but as you've just said, that can benefit them later on. But I think starting on the front row means they maybe want to keep that track position.
Yeah, exactly. The strategist, we see this so often in F1, don't we? The numbers, these are the right numbers, do the numbers. But it doesn't account for the fleshy part in the car, the driver. Like I said, they've got to overtake these GT4 cars. The risk of damage goes through the roof now for Vantor taking over from Luang, and then also now Keen from Loggy. So the stats might say it's the right thing to do, but if you get hit or you hit someone, then it doesn't matter. And I think that's why there's more conservative strategies on play at the moment.
Interesting, very, very interesting indeed. So yes, as Joe quite rightly makes the point, both of those cars that have pitted, they will have done a driver change, which means the pro driver is in those cars, so they should be able to come charging through the field nice and early. Tell you what then, Joe, let's find out if we were right in our guesswork there, because down at 2C's Motorsport, with some answers hopefully, is Bryn Lucas along with Ian Loggy.
I'm not sure if I'm going to get the answers. I'll ask the questions. Ian, was that a predetermined pit stop?
Yeah, we thought if that happened, then it was a good thing to do, get one of the pit stops out of the way right away. Bit of an anticlimax for me, because it's all, you're always waiting for that start. But yeah, I think we were the only one that did it. Maybe the BMW as well, but I think it's the thing to do. So let's wait and see if it plays out for us.
So do we take it that it's likely that Phil's stint is going to be quite a long stint then?
Yeah, so basically we would have had maybe 35 litres of fuel there, so we've taken a full tank, so Phil will go along now, and we'll see what happens. We're waiting in the rain coming in now in 15 minutes. He's on wet, so let's see.
Decent stint, a lot of fuel. Good luck, Ian. Thanks very much. There you go, Andy. Some answers.
Thank you, Bryn. Well, I've got more questions now because a lap later and everyone else seems to be cottoning on. We've got both of the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis in. They're not the only ones. We've got a whole host of GT3 cars, about 6 or 7 of them, I think, coming into the pit lane a lap later than we perhaps expected them to. Now, there are benefits to that, Joe, in that they've eaten a little bit more of their driver time, but the safety car, we believe, is coming in this time.
Yeah, exactly. Just seen Peter Daly announce that. So this gives the pro more time. 3 minutes the safety car just costs them. But I don't think the cars that have stopped this latest lap are going to catch the back of the safety car. I think on the lap before, when I was watching the tracker where 2Cs and Century were, they were only on the new pit straight, so probably 45 seconds away. So I don't think this strategy is correct. I think they've lost too much time. I think that 3 minutes extra for your pro, which is only a lap and a half, maximum that's going to be worth 5 or 6 seconds. You've just lost 40. You see the Barwell cars stacked up there. Obviously the first car in will leave first, so Rob Collard handing over to Ricky Collard. They won't be compromised, but yeah, I think that's a poor call. Let's see. Still got 2 hours 52 minutes to be proved right or wrong, so hopefully if I'm wrong everyone forgets my prediction there. But yeah, so Sean Balfe now leads the race. Was on the second row, so was up there already, but I think that's just the, sorry, Kevin Say's still there of course, but I think this is the conservative one. I think 2Cs with Loggy and Leung, when they pitted, I think that's the right strategy.
To be fair, there have been other times in this race where 10 minutes in we were convinced Barwell had got it wrong and then they ended up winning the race. So let's not count them out just yet. It's going to be fascinating to watch their progress. GT4, meanwhile, we haven't had that same influx of cars into the pit lane, so it is still going to be the number 90 car of Zach Meakin that leads in GT4 when we go racing proper at the end of this lap, which is just a few seconds away. The lights are out on the Lotus safety car, and Kevin Say now has the duty of executing, he hopes, a perfect safety car restart and getting things going properly in the 2024 Silverstone 500. We're going to be about 9 minutes into the 3 hours of racing, and as Joe predicted, those cars that have now just left the pit lane are about half a lap behind the rest of the pack. So is that going to be the right strategy? We'll have to wait and see. Kevin Say waiting, not yet accelerating and getting the race underway. Now he goes, pulls immediately a few car lengths over the McLaren behind of Sean Balfe. That was a very good restart from Kevin Say, and I think as we get this race underway properly now, the real battle is going to be the one for second place. Across the line they go. Kevin Say leads here at Silverstone, as at long last we have GT cars racing at full pelt into Copse Corner. Already a move being attempted there further back by the number 9 McLaren. That was Mark Smith for Paddock Motorsports, and way wide over the curb goes Simon Orange in the number 67 McLaren. The first lap at speed, Joe. So much to learn and no time to learn it.
really not. These drivers obviously had safety car laps, but they're nearly a minute a lap slower, 30% slower than they would be. As we see Petrobelli down the inside of Tilbrook there. Can he get it stopped? Trying to get the cut back there in the orange McLaren. They've actually swapped chassis from Alton Park, Clutton and Tilbrook, so they'll be hoping for better fortune. You can see, got a good drive out. Can Petrobelli close the door down the long hanger straight? We actually see a lot of drivers still helmeted up because they could box at any point again, technically, to get rid of another pit stop. So the permutations of the strategy is stratospheric, so I'm not going to actually go into it too much, but relatively clean start for the GT3s. You can see the GT4s coming into shot. Middleton still leading from Brown.
Indeed so, down the hill they go, and towards the left-hander at the club chicane. Around the outside goes Simon Orange there. Was that a lead change then in GT4? Because I think you said the Ginetta was in front. Of course, it was the McLaren, wasn't it, that started at the head of the pack. We'll look in the background, see what's going to happen, who appears first. Yes, it is the Ginetta in front. So we've had a lead change in GT4, but this battle towards the front of the GT3 field looks electric, and Giacomo Petrobelli up for the fight.
Definitely, and at the moment, Sean Bell's struggling, isn't he? Look at the gap that Kevin Say has built. That's got to be 2.5, 3 seconds already. They're all ganging up behind Balfe. We know how quick Balfe can be, but tends to like to just warm up to it 2 or 3 laps maybe just to get his eye in. Look at that concertina effect, everyone being sensible. Smith into the back of the Audi, something falling off the back of the Audi. I think it's probably the legality panel covering the rear left tyre, so it shouldn't be too performance hurting for him for the rest of the race. Petrobelli flashing his headlights. This looks like it's going to get spicy.
I think that bodywork actually came from the back of the 77 McLaren, the Audi, into the back of the Morgan Tilbrook car, which is down to 4th place at the moment. The fight for second, though, is side by side at Luffield, and to the outside, in theory, the grippier line goes the Aston Martin, and Giacomo Petrobelli is, I think, about to emerge from the corner in second place. Look at the extra traction and momentum he had from the outside line, making this look easy, but look at the gap now that he's got to try and bridge to the race leader. Kevin Say is 3.3 seconds up the road, but Giacomo Petrobelli, the raciest of all of them right now, and I think in clean air could have the pace to close in.
Yeah, this next lap's going to be interesting to see if Kevin Say's the legend in his own field here, or can Petrobelli at least match him and then start to claw down that huge gap after one lap. The onboard of Balfe was brilliant there. Like you said, you could see the outside line giving more traction. Balfe was so tensive, I couldn't even hear the traction control. Maybe his pro small, he needs to be on the radio. Right, Sean, let's crank the TC up, make it more intrusive, give you the comfort blanket to attack the throttle. If you're tensive with the throttle and you're 2 or 3 K slower out the corner, you carry that all the way down the straight as a loss. As we see the Audi and the other 2Cs McLaren, unfortunately lost the sister car in a testing crash, but great that RGN has still got that one out. Balfe does look like he's starting to pick up the pace. Petrobelli hasn't pulled away that much, but still looks tricky out there.
Yeah, Balfe in trying to defend that 3rd place from Morgan Tilbrook, ran a bit wide up at Stowe Corner. The lead gap, by the way, came down by 9/10 of a second in Sector 1 alone. Giacomo Petrobelli is flying and definitely eating into the advantage held by the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes. Speaking of Mercedes, there's the Team ABBA Racing example. That is Richard Neary, and he's up to 8, so he's benefited, of course, from some people pitting, but we know if anyone's going to be feisty in the early stages, it's probably going to be Richard Neary, and he's living up to that reputation, picking up places.
Yeah, just looking down the field actually to see where Vantor was. He was 30 seconds behind on the restart, and the guys that stopped the lap later were over a minute. Sandy Mitchell was a minute behind, so this strategy is definitely split. I think I actually might say this is the best strategy now, the guys who have not stopped. But if they're all down the inside, Orange bounces off the inside of Smith. Smith should get the drive on the slightly wetter line. What is a wet racing line? Well, in the dry, the line is very fine, 1 car width right. This is the right, this is the wrong. In the wet, there's a plethora of options. You want to stay off the dry line because the dry line is naturally slippier. It gets worn out, all the oils and everything go on it. So that's why you see the drivers going out wide, looking to V corners off, make straight lines out of round bits is the name of the game here. Look at Tilbrook's drive there. Is he going to get a run on Balfe teammates? But like we know, the AMs especially don't listen to team orders. They do what they want.
Giacomo Petrobelli on that lap, the first lap in clean air, about 1.4 seconds quicker than Kevin Say. So the lead gap is under 2 seconds now, and of course he's continuing to get the rest of the field behind. 2.3 seconds then back to Balfe in 3rd, 4th Tilbrook, 5th Andrew Howard having a good run, with Chris Buncombe up into 6th position, Richard Neary 7th, Mark Smith is 8th. It's Sasha Kakad who's slipping backwards, 3 places lost on that last lap, and down into 9th position. The Audi driver struggling for pace, and in fact I think has now lost another place. Yes, Simon Orange has gone past him, so the Audi did have that little knock with Morgan Tilbrook Tilbrook earlier on. You wouldn't imagine that was hard enough to damage the car, but you never know. He certainly seems to be struggling for pace a little bit right now. But a five-way fight for third place, Joe. This is exactly what we were hoping to see when we went racing. 3 McLarens, an Aston Martin and a Mercedes, and nothing to choose between them.
Yeah, it's been hard and fair so far. I see Carl Cavers trying to get down the inside of that Audi. He said it's definitely struggling, isn't it, for pace. Can't see any obvious signs of damage, though. I think you're right, the bodywork must have been off Tilbrook's car, not even his, so maybe just trying to get his eye in. Another factor, so the guys that have stopped and got the pros in these tricky conditions, these are the trickiest conditions we're going to see in 3 hours, because Mitchell is 5 seconds a lap quicker than the AM, so the pros are making a bigger difference as we go to Vantor there. They're making 5 seconds a lap up on the AMs, whereas in the dry, in qualifying, we see the gap more like 2.2 seconds. So are these guys that are having their pro in the tricky conditions going to really reap the benefit later on? And that's with overtaking GT4 cars. Oh, big slide there for the Paddock GT4 car. You can see how slippery the exit curbs are. So there's so many variables in play here. Phil Keane is in a nice position here. He can kind of let Vantor be the bottle opener to the cork of these GT4 cars. He's just going to follow him through. They're nearly through. You can see Middleton there. Jack Brown has dropped a few places, hasn't he? What's that, down to 5th place from first on the grid?
Zach Meakin, isn't it, in that car? Yes, down to 4th position then. So Middleton leads in GT4 ahead of Jamie Day in the Aston Martin and Blake Anglis in the McLaren in 3rd position. That's the red and white Paddock Motorsport machine. There are the top 2 in GT4, and the Ginetta, which has gone well in the wet in the past when it was the G50 and the G55 that raced with us here at British GT. Always a handy car in the wet. The Aston Martin going after them, and then these 2 GT3 cars, essentially the first 2 GT3 cars to have made one of their 3 mandatory driver changes, but they are losing time in traffic. They are perhaps gaining time over the AMs now, but will that come back to bite them later? Richard Neary, meanwhile, with a spin at Copps Corner, and Richard Neary from 6th position, unfortunately, with a moment, Joe.
Yeah, see, it doesn't look like he's going to get hit from behind. Goes down the inside, just real lazy spin. I'd imagine he's trying to trail the brake in, so he's braking while turning into the corner to help the front get in, but then the rear goes light and it just rotated round on him and he couldn't get the opposite lock on. He had probably only lost about 10 to 12 seconds, so he's still in the fight, but it's the fight behind. He was in this group, wasn't he? He's just shifted back to the group behind as we see Chris Buncombe now down the inside of Tilbrook. I'm surprised when Buncombe didn't quite get the qualifying he wanted, he told me, and I think they will be coming through, especially in conditions like this. Super experienced driver, Chris Buncombe. So I think these conditions are really going to help him in this opening stint.
Yeah, going well. He's found a way past Tilbrook. Now we'll set off after Balfe. Always interesting as well. We've got these 3 McLarens together. It's going to be interesting now to see whether there is a pace difference between the 3 of them, because Sean Balfe seems to be warming to the task now, doesn't he? He's got away from the group of cars behind him slightly, and might he now be able to settle into a bit more of a rhythm? They've got Andrew Howard's Aston Martin in behind them as well. But what's that, 5 McLarens inside the top 8 at the moment. There are plenty of them, and they do all seem to be working pretty well in these slippery conditions. Speaking of McLarens, these are the GT4 examples, and this is the battle for 3rd place in class. Blake Anglis in the number 11 car, just ahead of Zach Meek in the car that started from pole position. Now, we haven't seen a lot of him, and so I can't really tell you why he's lost all of those positions, but looking at the body language of that pole-sitting car, we'll try and figure out why maybe the pace has gone. There's damage, though, down at the club chicane. That is the number 17 Mercedes, that is Harry George, and that is a very badly damaged car that's stuck in the gravel.
Yeah, there's going to be some contact here, isn't there? There's a lot of bodywork. That's hard, isn't it? The BMW just comes across on him. You tend to brake where the BMW was there, in terms of you brake off the dry line and then move back across. I just don't think he actually saw the Mercedes there and just kind of cut across the front and left the Mercedes nowhere to go. In the gravel trap, you just can't get out of, even with the might of those amazing marshals. I think this is going to be a full course yellow. I can't see it not being a full course yellow, basically. Who does that help? I think that helps everyone that hasn't stopped. I think we'll then see a dive to the pit lane. Full course yellow, not as beneficial to get rid of a pit stop as a safety car, but a lot better than pitting under green.
And also, of course, unlike a normal safety car, doesn't really benefit those who have already stopped, because they won't catch back up to the tail end of the group in the same way that they would under full safety car conditions. So this is going to be interesting. Leaders getting closer together. We've also had another swap now between these 2 McLarens for 4th position. Morgan Tilbrook back now ahead of Buncombe, and not sure where he did that. They were very close going onto the Hanger Straight, but Tilbrook has now moved back back into P4 as they head through Stowe and down towards that yellow flag zone. There you can see the amount of debris on the road as well. If nothing else, they'll want to get that out of the way, as well as the car that's stuck in the gravel, because if you start running over those bits of carbon fibre, that can do all sorts of damage to the Pirelli tyres, and that's not going to be good at all. So at the moment, no full course yellow, but I do agree with you. I suspect one's on its way.
Yeah, next 20 seconds would be my guess. I'm going to tell you to look for something you can't see. There's no spray.
Yes.
And when there's no spray, that's when you should be thinking about slicks. Is it too early? I think it is. Is it too early in 10 minutes? That's the turning point, I think. So these guys that haven't pitted are going to put pros in. Do I think a pro could survive on slicks? Yes. Do I think they'd be quicker than the wets? No. But I think they would be quicker within their stint. So is the pain going to be worth the gain? I don't know, and I don't have to decide, but I think it's very marginal, and I think it's very close. It's just the spray is gone. What? We've been racing green flag for 13, 14 minutes. It's, yeah, like I said, I think 40 minutes into this race, slicks is definitely going to be the tyre. There's so many calls to go. Other people have already stopped. Are they going to think about going for it? Full course yellow, you can see Balfour slowing down to 80 kilometres an hour. All of the cars have an automatic limiter to make sure they don't exceed that 80 k's.
Yes, indeed. Of course, what you don't want to do, as in comes the leader, Kevin Say. Did Petrobelli follow him in? I'm not sure just yet. No, he didn't. Petrobelli stayed out. That's interesting. So split strategy between the top two, but everybody else is piling in, because what you don't want, Joe, is to sort of force yourself into making an unscheduled pit stop later on. It messes up your strategy, messes up the driver time, and I think this is absolutely the right call, and we have to assume they're coming in now to change to slick tyres, or are they? Well, there is the 2Cs Mercedes. Can't see any tyres ready there yet. Of course, they will get refueling done first, presumably, but what do you think? Will we see some tyre changes?
I think not. I think it is still too early, especially for these guys who feel like they could win the race. If you've got nothing to lose, you're outside the top 10, then maybe Andrew Howard probably just on the cusp of that. The Nearies would probably be my guess with who would go first. Very punchy, both Richard and his son, Sam. I think Petrobelli could actually still pit the next lap under full course yellow. I think it'll be out long enough there, so then they would use up a bit more of their AM driver time. Topham, his teammate there, just pulling in. So you can see a bit of confusion there. Looked like Clutton or Tilbrook ran back out to their car. I hope they don't get a penalty for that, but I can hear some tyres being changed, but are they fresh wets or slicks?
Ginetta from the lead of GT4 is in as well, so that's a first driver change there. Stuart Middleton getting out of the car. Right, and we are now getting tyres, I think, changed on the number 77 McLaren as well. So we'll try and piece this all together if we can. For now, though, more news from Bryn.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's always a frantic time in the pit lane when you get a full course yellow, and Ravi's just stepped out of the BMW. You just see setting off behind us here. Ravi, a bit of damage to your car. What was it? What happened from your point of view? I'm pretty sure it was quite clear from the cameras. But
well, no, I was coming into the Vale complex and didn't do anything differently. And next thing I know, the Merc is shot up the inside of me. He's taken the rear corner and he gave me a puncture. So that was it. It just happened like that. But it was just we were having a good scrap, and then all of a sudden he was just there. So that was it, really.
But then you have to roll with it. You have to roll with the punches for strategy, and does change what you guys are going to do. But then a full course yellow comes out, so you can afford to get a pit stop in there.
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, this is a long race is new to me. So I mean, I've come from sprint racing, so it's going to be interesting to see how it plans out. Lots of cars coming in the pit lane now, so I think it's all changing out there.
Yeah, it certainly looks like a lot of people are going for a similar idea: get in, get changed, and get back out. Good luck for the rest of it, Rami. Thanks.
Lovely. Thanks very much.
Yeah, Ravi Ramid coming out of the Ginetta racing ranks. Quite a few drivers, as I mentioned on the run through the grid, who have moved from Ginettas into British GT, not always in Ginettas. And Ravi is an example of that at the wheel of the BMW. Unsurprisingly, really, that incident between cars 17 and 71 under investigation. We'll await further news as to whether there's a penalty there. There's a rush of cars heading out of the pit lane. What tyres they're on, we'll have to wait and see. And a bit of a near miss with regards to an unsafe release there for the 22 BMW. That car had a spin on the way to the grid in the hands of Carl Cavers, but they have now made the driver change. Lewis Plato jumping on board. So what does all of that mean? Well, it means Giacomo Petrobelli leads the race but hasn't yet made a pit stop, and in GT4 we've had a handful of them in, haven't we? I know certainly, in fact, quite a lot of the front runners, about the top 7 or 8 GT4s made their way into the pit lane. The race meanwhile gets underway, but one of the Lotus in GT4 does not go and is crawling down the Hanger Straight, unable perhaps to get back out of full course yellow mode, and that nearly proved absolutely catastrophic as the GT3s behind immediately launched back up to race pace. There is the number 18 car then, no longer Kevin Say at the wheel. That is now Maximilian Gertz, and he has found one of the Barwell Lamborghinis even to have a battle with.
Yeah, I think that 20 car of Ian Duggan, I think that will just be the button stuck or something, because the drivers has told over the radio a countdown. Ian, a really experienced driver, but maybe that button's just sticking. It's not like when someone's at a traffic light, it goes green, you're like, what are you waiting for? And you're on the horn. He would have been frantically trying to get that off. It does look like on the sector times he's got going up to normal speed, but that was some good avoiding driving by everyone involved there. But this track is drying so quickly, isn't it? I think we're going to start to see drivers actually coming offline down the straights to start to cool these wets. If you start to get them too hot, they start to what we would say chunk, so the actual blocks of rubber just tear off from the carcass and it feels like you're driving on jelly on top of ice. It's horrible. So see Gamble looking down the inside. Is he going to get the move done nice and late on the brakes? Is he going to help Götz out? But the problem is Götz is actually on the grippier part of the track, and that's why he can keep his minimum speed up and live to fight another day. Should stop the car, stop the run, but Gamble slides it down the inside. Is he going to get the same again, the drive out of it? It looks like it's going to be a pretty quick drive out as we go to the leader, the only GT3 car that has not stopped. So this is now on its own strategy. Yeah, what we've been going 26 minutes. We've already had a full course yellow, so they will
Team manager car 29 to race control, please. Team manager car 29.
Yeah, just seeing all the debris still left there. I'm surprised by that. That's going to be harder for the drivers to overtake into there. They will be scared of running over that carbon fibre to pick up a puncture. So, yeah, these guys basically need a safety car or another full course yellow in the next 35 to 40 minutes for this strategy to play off, I think.
Interesting choice. I mean, I know you said that you thought they'd have time a lap later to pit, but actually the marshals got that car out of the way very quickly down at the club chicane, and that means that the race is back up to full speed again, perhaps a bit sooner than anticipated. But hey, they've made their bet now. They've sort of got to lie in it and just hope for the best, with still over 2.5 hours of the race to go. Giacomo Petrobelli then, as a result of being one of only a couple of GT3 cars not to have pitted, is also one of only a couple of the AM drivers out on track. So you'd anticipate he would lose a fair chunk of time now to some of the pros, but it's always the fascination of this race for me. You lose time now, but you're almost banking that time for later in the race when inevitably that sort of situation reverses itself.
Yeah, exactly, and they're just keeping their window to go to the slicks more open as well. That's the other thing. And the minimum pit stop time is at 115 seconds, which is less than the laps. You don't go a lap down. So if they were to hand over to Johnny Adam now, put him on some slicks, he wouldn't lose the lap and he would be on the right tyre. So there's a couple of things that Blackthorn will be hoping for there. Either a safety car, which will keep it simple but keep them on the same strategy, or it to get dry enough sooner than the others want to go back for another driver change. It's so complex, isn't it, to see where this is going. So sometimes you just need to look at lap times. And this boy here, Vantor, is pulling away from Phil Keane. So we know this BMW's got pace. Darren Long, when he gets back in for his effective second stint, which would be his second lap as well, he will be fast charging as well. So these guys, nothing to lose because they're not in it for the championship, but in it to win the RAC 500 Silverstone race.
Yeah, just like that, they've almost made up all of the time they lost by pitting early and not quite catching up to the pack before the safety car came in. They're into third place now, Dries Vantor, the black and pink McLaren, which also hasn't yet stopped. That's still Mark Smith at the wheel. That's the car in second position, so that's the next target for Dries Vantor, who is within 10 seconds now of the lead of the race, in amongst the GT4 traffic as well. But yeah, an interesting point that you made there. He's gapping Phil Keane. That's not an easy thing to do. So not only is he the first of the pros on the track, he is the quickest right now. This, I would venture, probably not the quickest car out on track right now. It is Adam Smalley at the wheel of car 59, but his visibility is suboptimal, Joe.
Yeah, you can see he's tried to clear it with the wiper. That's why it's so smeared. But look at the amount of mud on the right-hand side. The problem is drivers cut the corner on the exit of this next right. So watch where I think it's the BMW Robertson GT4 on the left here, they just cut it and the mud gets flicked up. There's no washer system on these cars as standard. Some teams do fit them for that very reason. It's not slowing him down, is it? He's got a run on Clutton, his teammate, going to the inside. Clutton not defending by looks of it, but tentative on the brakes. So I've been in this position before, and you're pleading with the team, like, can we do something? We obviously can't come to the pitch, you lose too much time, but has anyone got a super soaker? Can we get a bottle of water off the pit wall just to lob at the windscreen to try and help me see? Because you're so limited, and when it starts to dry...
Car 9 is being shown a black and white flag. That's your final track limit warning in this hour. Car 9, final warning.
So Smith already within 30 minutes of racing, using up his lives on track limits, running too wide. But as it starts to dry, the vision's even more important because you're looking for the drier patches, and that's going to really start to hurt him. And I'd even say that's why he's lost so much time to Clutton in this middle part of the lap. See Clutton now starting to look quite racy, isn't he, on Harper? It just doesn't look like that. McLaren's got great traction at the moment, and that could be getting even worse as you see a big old slide touching the curb.
Black and white flag car 67, your final track limit warning in this hour.
Car 67 receiving the same warning from Peter Daly about track limits. It's early within the hour to be picking up that final warning, that is for sure. Right, the battle's on track, pretty intense. We daren't take our eyes off them, but let's hear at least from Bryn Lucas down in pit lane.
Yeah, thanks Andy. While you keep your eye on what's going on, I'm just going to give you a quick update on what happened with car 20 at Nahiki Racing. I think the question was, did they have a button stuck on and couldn't get into full racing mode after the full course yellow? I went down and spoke to the team, and they looked at me like I was making something up entirely. They said to me, no, there's no problem at all. Very perplexed faces when I asked the question. So as far as they're concerned, car 20, the Lotus Emira in the GT4 at Mahiki Racing had absolutely no problems at all. And on another matter, very quickly, I think you caught it on the pictures, when the nearest they started their pit lane, after their pit stop, sorry, they came incredibly close to having a collision in the pit lane.
Car
so I suspect something's going to happen
drive-through penalty.
as a consequence.
Car
We'll have to wait and see on that
29 was in front of car 61 during the safety car procedure, out of position.
Thank you very much, Bryn. The news there from Peter Daly is that car 29, that's the Century Motorsport BMW, is getting a penalty, a drive-through penalty for essentially overtaking before the safety car restart, which is a big no-no. So that's going to put them out of contention, well, not out of contention, but at least out of the running order in a moment or two. Big moment for the 25 Mercedes as the pair of GT3 battlers come through. This battle's been going for a number of laps now, but still Marcus Clutton cannot find a way past Dan Harper. Flashback 12 months ago, Dan Harper was the one on the attack in the closing stages, but now having to defend from the McLaren, and so far doing so successfully. Another interesting thing I spotted there, Joe, heading down that Sir Lewis Hamilton straight past the international pits, drivers starting to weave off the drier racing line, and that tells its own story about tyres, doesn't it?
Really does. You can see Fran Rueda there in this orange grenade car trying to cool his tyres. He's going to hopefully pull the pin, I guess, and get past Jan Mardewa in that RJN run car. Great to have Jan back on the grid and Fran. Hopefully we see more Jan for Fran. It's definitely a one-off entry, so he can really go guns to it and really sort of have his elbows out and do some big lunges, run by Optimum Super Team, so they know how to do it. And as a one-off, I think they're going to be a good one to watch towards the end. Clutton's still struggling, as you said. We're so used to Harper being the hot knife through butter, but at the moment he's the butter, and he's starting to work out how he's going to keep Clutton behind him. And Clutton's thinking, how dare he get in my way like this? He's really starting to hold me up, but he can't do anything about it. Look at the power of that BMW, the drive. Still a hard car to get round, that's for sure.
Lotus leads in GT4, by the way. They've got both of their cars in the top 4 right now, courtesy of not having pitted, but still nice to have a Lotus back out in front in that class. But this battle is certainly an entertaining one, outside of the top 10 overall, yes, but still pretty close quarters stuff. There goes the 97 Aston Martin. It's still car 87 that leads the way, but now by only 7.5 seconds, and now over Dries Vanthoor, not Mark Smith. So there, Giacomo Petrobelli continuing to be reeled in, but in fairness, Joe, his lap times aren't terrible. Low to mid 217 seems to be the average. He's on a personal best lap as we speak, so he is doing everything right, really, isn't he? And just needs to stay out in front as long as he can, knowing that his pro driver still has their first stint to come.
Yeah, exactly, and it's so hard to keep the AM motivated now, because he will see Vanthoor catching him, and the last lap was 3.5 seconds difference, so that's quite demoralising as he dives over to the inside to try and just cool it down. There's Vanthoor. See the energy of that car. You can just see the difference sometimes, the confidence the pro has to go. Then Keane, the gap looks like it's stabilised. Doesn't look like he's dropped so much more down there, but there is literally no spray to be had. These wets will be starting to hurt in the next 15 to 20 minutes, and they'll be keeping an eye on their pressures. Some of the teams might have had lower starting pressures, allowing for this, and that will let the driver go. So maybe Vantor had higher pressures, and that's why Keane couldn't stay with him. And is that now going to help Keane as the tyres go away? So many variables to go through there, but Petrobelli probably can hold on to the lead for another 2 or 3 laps would be my guess, and then he needs to stick with Vantor as long as possible. They need a safety car, they really do, and that needs to be in the next half an hour.
Dries Vantor with a 2:14.4 takes another nearly 2 seconds out of the race lead, so give him another couple of laps and he'll be on the tail, I think, of Giacomo Petrobelli. Keane, as we saw, is up into 3rd position. There goes the number 7 Aston Martin. That was up there within GT4 before the pit stops. Those top 4 GT4s you can see on the left-hand side of your screen at the bottom of the timing tower, well actually 3 of them now, yet to have made a pit stop. We have to look back to, I think, Tomlinson, don't you, in the Ginetta, the first of the GT4s to have made a pit stop. Now, though, 8 seconds up on Mikey Porter in the number 7 Aston Martin, so that gap has grown quite rapidly, and that is certainly going to be advantage Ginetta once all is said and done with this round of pit stops. Out onto the back straight, though, goes Sandy Mitchell, and as always, Joe, a very rapid Sandy Mitchell.
Yeah, fastest lap of the race so far, 2 minutes 13.5. So what's that, 16 and a bit, 17 seconds slower than his pole time yesterday. Of course, that was low fuel new tyres, so it's a very extreme angle of it, but he's looking pretty confident. He's actually back to the dry line there at Stowe Corner. Barwell actually do have a washer system in the car. Sandy actually forgot he had it at Alton Park and had to be politely reminded when he was moaning that he couldn't see. But yeah, they're now migrating from a wet line to a dry line because that is no
Car
longer
97,
greasy.
3-second stop-go penalty, short pit stop. 97, 3-second stop-go.
So yeah, we're starting to get the penalties coming in. 3 seconds, so they were obviously 3 seconds under that 115-second minimum. So the Beach Dean, Andrew Howard, Hawkins pairing there. Surprised that Beach Dean, normally super sharp, run by ProDrive, probably one of the best teams in the business. So I wonder if that was driver error. The teams always blame the drivers and the drivers always blame the team, so you can never work out who's wrong. It's politics on wheels, this game. So let's see. I'm just thinking more and more someone needs to get onto slicks, and what happens, someone's always first on slicks, that's quite an obvious statement, but then everyone watches the timing screen like a hawk to see what their sector times are like, as we see a lead change there. I think 69 getting overtaken by one of the Academy cars. Was that Academy car unlapping itself, in fact, isn't it? God, they've had a rough start to the race to already be a lap down.
Yes, because actually the Lotus, which leads the class, Stephen Lake at the wheel of car number 69, has a pretty healthy lead in GT4, something like 7 or 8 seconds, I think, up on, well, it was actually in Goff in the number 29 car, but he's just been in to serve that drive-through penalty. So it's a pretty handy lead at the moment for car 69, but they haven't yet made their first of the 3 mandatory pit stops, and you can see the pace difference there between them and car number 62. That, of course, now with Matt Nicol-Jones at the wheel, so they've done a driver change and are quite clearly quicker, but the Lotus having its moment, not in the sun, but in the spotlight maybe, and actually both of them within the top 3 for the time being. Now, significant bit of information on our timing screen, Joe. A team manager being summoned to race control usually means a penalty is incoming, and this time it could have a big effect on GT4.
Yeah, it's for the Tomlinson, Middleton, Ginetta. We saw it pit early, and I saw the team pushing it back, and there was no reason because there wasn't a car in the way. I did also think it looked like the fuel was connected. So that would be my guess, and I'm spreading rumours without any fact whatsoever, just my small brain and my poor eyesight. But yeah, it's never positive. It's never Peter Daly going, "Hi, how are you? Nice to see you." It's, "I'm giving you a penalty. This is why I'm giving you the penalty. Go away." in that sort of language. As we see Ian Goff and Tom Wrigley in the Century BMW sliding around in a good bit of space though, aren't they? And that is the race leader catching them. You can see that gap has diminished a little bit. Petrobelli trying to get past that BMW without losing too much time. BMW doing a good job there at staying out of the way and not hurting their pace too much.
I'll tell you what though, I'm impressed with Giacomo Petrobelli here. He is holding his own right now, isn't he? Meanwhile, Marcus Clutton has finally breached the defences of the number 14 BMW. Dan Harper loses the place and then tries to get it straight back at Abbey. Not usually an overtaking opportunity, especially from that far back, But this is Dan Harper after all. He didn't want to let Clutton get into his rhythm there, but it just didn't quite work. So Clutton starts to pull a bit of a margin, and now another car will close in behind whilst there is drama for the Toyota, and that is a tyre off the rim, possible damage steering, maybe just the puncture, but that car is going to have to limp back to the pit lane. The number 44 car in big, big trouble.
Yeah, big damage. It needs to go slower because that's ripping. You can hear the tyre flames go back on board with Smalley nearly in front. He'll actually be trying to get a bit of the spray, I reckon, to try and
car
clean
56.
the windscreen.
Drive-through penalty, car 56. Full course yellow, speed infringement.
Yeah. So I was wrong, but they did get a penalty basically. But yeah, drive-through penalty, nearly 30 seconds here at Silverstone, really painful. But yeah, Harper was racing with that. Almost looked like he sneezed and he lurched to the inside to try and get back at Clutton. He knew that was his only chance. Look at that gap, it's stretched out. They just can't get that BMW performing at the moment how they finished last year. We saw Harper so often doing that move and it working, but didn't quite have the straight line performance to make it stick there. But it's kind of lucky for Smalley that there isn't really a regulation that you have X amount of vision to be able to see, because really it is pretty dangerous, but there's nothing they can do about that. As we see GT3 and GT4 starting to mix, this is when it gets really fun, doesn't it? The speed difference is less in the corner in the wet because of obviously you're not able to use a wider slick tyre the GT3 is afforded, but I think we're going to be getting there soon, and I think that's going to get even spicier.
Now what could also be coming soon is that switch to slick tyres that we've been teasing for a little while. The inside line looks the number 90 McLaren, can't quite make the move down at Stowe Corner, but the switch to slick tyres, that is going to be the key here, perhaps the biggest decision that the teams will have to make all afternoon long, and that is coming very shortly. I think the lead meanwhile has just changed. Dries van Tor has now found a way past Giacomo Petrobelli, and so the BMW that won this race a year ago is back out in front once again. Yes, it was a matter of time. Yes, it's a pro driver against an AM, but still Dries van Tor gets back to the front of the field and becomes about the third or fourth different leader of the race so far. So all cars still on wet tyres for the moment, but Bryn Lucas down in the pit lane, how soon do you think we can expect to start seeing cars heading back in for that tyre change?
Just a bit of an update for you from Johnny Adam, actually. I just went over and spoke to him about these tyres as we are talking about when they're going to move over to slicks, Andy, and he said there's about a 3-second window at the moment of variance before they do switch over. It'll be quite clear. They say when cars are going around at sort of 209, 210, something like that, that gives them the proper indication that it's now a slick tyre condition. So they're keeping an eye out on that, but he's not expecting it to happen in the next few minutes. It will happen at some point if it carries on like this though, but look out for 209, 210, something like that.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that then. Meanwhile, at the inside goes the number 63 Barwell Lamborghini. That is Ricky Collard battling away with the 27 there of Gamble. That's actually trying to defend its position. Gamble is on the attack here, and Tom is alongside, has his nose ahead, has the inside line for Beckett. Surely Ricky's not going to try and stand his ground on the outside. He does, but the McLaren has the grip and manages to slip through. The next car behind them, meanwhile, Maximilian Gertz in the number 18 Mercedes. Remember, that car led early on. It pitted later than the cars around it, and the result, Joe, is that it now has lost that track position.
Yeah, it's really difficult now to get back from that. I disagree with Johnny Adam. I don't think it's 209s. I think it's 211s, and I think that because we're in race mode, we're full of fuel, the setup isn't quite as where it would be in practice. So I think Johnny's trying to throw a curveball there to you, Brent. It's nothing personal, but he is lying to you. Mitchell in the other Lamborghini has just done another fastest lap of the race in the 13s. So yeah, I think we're going to be there soon, and it's going to be a huge switch. You're going to go from 211, 212 straight to 205, so 6-7 seconds a lap quicker straight away, and it's going to be who does it first, who's brave. And I still think that's where Petrobelli being out is the positive. He's the only guy in GT3 that's going to hand over to a pro. All the other cars have their pro in, have to hand back to the AM. There has to be a driver change when they pit if they want it to be one of the Mantries. Neary there, just easing Harper onto the wet curb, which lost some traction. So that gives Smalley a chance. Maybe he can't actually see where Harper is, but he's very close to him. Harper getting the car back in. Neary's pace looks good through there, doesn't he? You can see the rotation from Harper, the onboard, even though we're only looking forwards, the rear of the car still stepping out. It's looking hard work. But Smalley, who looked on the front foot to Clutton early on in this, is now dropped a long way behind Clutton. Clutton's really got his head down, just going out of shot there in front of the Ginetta. I can only explain this vision is only better than what Smalley is actually seeing as well. The camera always cuts through that sort of stuff so much better, but it's only going to get worse for the rest of his stint, basically.
Exactly, he'll be really, really glad when he gets a chance to visit the pit lane, get that cleaned up and send the car back on its way. But right now he's got a face full of BMW as Dan Harper, Joe is absolutely right, really is struggling in this stint. Way, way wide goes Smalley, cuts back to the late apex, carries an extra few mile an hour, he hopes, through Woodcote Corner, and maybe looks to try and make his challenge into Copse. There is less than a car length in it, he's closing all the time, but it's a brave man who'll go to the inside at Copse Corner. Adam Smalley obviously is a brave man, peaks to the inside, but in the end decides that that was a bit of a low percentage move and drops back in behind. At the head of the field, Dries Vanthoor leads by 4.1 seconds. Giacomo Petrobelli still second, still potentially in the best strategic position of all of the leaders, with Phil Keane in third position. And those three have gapped the rest of the field by a country mile. Petrobelli by staying out, and Vanthoor and Keane by jumping into the car a little bit sooner than everybody else. The advantage is something like 15 seconds.
Yeah, exactly that. And I have to say, I overlooked Smith in fourth. Another Am still out. I thought Petrobelli was the only one, but Smith is still there. Actually been really under the radar. It was quick at the start of the race. We could see him being very punchy against Orange in the other McLaren. But yeah, Smith is there. What is he? 12 seconds behind Petrobelli, so not to be discounted, but there is a big advantage at the moment to Petrobelli. Just looking to see the GT4s, how they're getting on. They're starting to spread out a little bit. Lake still 16 seconds clear. And then from Duggan in the other Lotus, so they haven't stopped, from Colin White. So the first three in GT4 haven't stopped. So similar to Petrobelli and Smith in GT3, but then everyone behind has. So Goff in that BMW that we saw earlier is the first GT4 car that has stopped. And we've still got 2 more pit stops to go, so let's not get caught up on the pit stop, shall we?
I hope everyone at home is following along with us. Maybe make a flow chart or something to help to piece together the story of this race. That's what I love about this race, though. I like this about any sort of endurance racing or longer distance racing, but this one in particular, because of the freedom, relative freedom anyway, of strategy, and now also the changing conditions, it means that at the end of the race, every single car that reaches the checkered flag will have a story to tell as to how it ended up where it did, and it will either be a story with a happy ending or a not so happy ending. But it is always fascinating at the end of the race to track back how the eventual winner put themselves in that position. Decisions made now could be so pivotal towards what the eventual running order is. Right, Sandy Mitchell, we've mentioned, fastest man on track most laps. He holds the fastest lap of the race at the moment, and he is closing up on Mark Smith, whilst it's side by side for second place. And Giacomo Petrobelli is showing Phil Keane no respect at all, chops the nose off the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes, which still down into the club chicane cannot find a way through.
Very similarly matched, weren't they, through Stowe Corner. Phil Keane trying to get the cutback onto club here, onto the new pit straight. It's very difficult when there's that sort of one slightly drier line now. We've gone from a wet line to a sort of damp line where there is a favoured one, and it's pretty much where the dry line is. That Aston Martin's got great straight line performance, just gaps Phil Keane a little bit there. I'm actually starting to look at everyone's windscreen, because we obviously know Smalley's is bad because we've got an onboard camera. Harper's is okay, but I don't think Smalley would be the only one struggling there.
No!
So big moment. That's going to be a spin.
Car 32, drive-through penalty, full course yellow procedure, speeding.
Luckily got the clutch in, or the anti-stall kicked in on that Aston Martin, but similar to Neary's spin earlier at Copse, just trailed the brake in too much, lifted the rear up and went round. Phil Keane will be very happy that they just got past him without losing too much time.
And both of those cars, the Mercedes and the Aston Martin front engine, all of the weight over the front axle makes that a lot easier to do. That looked as though Forseti Motorsport was sticking some slick tyres on that car. Now, yes, it's a GT4 car, but they have blinked first, and with, well, what are we, about 47, 48 minutes into this race, the first slick tyres going onto a car. It's going to be fascinating now to see how that goes and how soon others respond to that.
Yeah, first one in it. That's Jordan Albert handing over to Tim Docker, the AM, so that's as hard as it's going to get, an AM in a GT4.
Drive-through penalty, car 8, full course yellow, speeding.
So a lot of infringement for full course yellow. There's GPS trackers on all the cars, so Peter Daly has got the facts, so none of the teams can argue it. Basically, it is right in front of them, so a few of them may be just too late telling the driver, or the driver not reacting quick enough to get that one in. But yeah, I think just going back to Smalley, I think that's got to be why he's not performing. I remember at Alton Park, I had it in a McLaren as well, where I just couldn't see. And afterwards, the team's like, well, it doesn't look too bad on the camera, but the camera's fixed. And that's why it's worse for the driver, because you're moving up and down. So your eye line is going up and down through that mud, so it makes it even harder to look through that dirty windscreen. So I think it's actually starting to hurt performance-wise for Small. It'd be amazing to actually see what Garage 59 is saying. Is he reporting it as a major issue back to the team as we see the Lotus going through a full service pit stop?
Yes, indeed. Stephen Lake handing over to former Mini Challenge frontrunner Nathan Harrison, the Lotus Samira, one of two that were running first and second within GT4, but neither of them having made their first stop. Well, the number 69 car is now doing just that, which means that presumably the number 20 machine of Ian Duggan is now going to move through and inherit the GT4 class lead temporarily. And of course, we've also got this potential penalty, haven't we, for the Ginetta? So it's all going to really change around, I think, perhaps into the favour of the number 7 Aston Martin within GT4. There goes the GT3 Audi. That's a drive-through penalty served for car number 32. The other car being given a penalty is the green Mercedes at the top of your shot. That is the Sam Neary-driven Team ABBA Racing Mercedes. That's also been given that full-course yellow procedure drive-through, and that will take it out of contention for the time being anyway, for a spot inside the top 10, because it's still on the tail end of this group of cars, which now has Raffaele Marcello in 10th, Jan Mardenborough 11th, Marcus Clutton in 12th, and Sam Neary from 13th will drop down the order. Just ahead of them, though, Maxi Götz on the tail of Ricky Collard. This the fight for 7th position. These two have been quite close together for a while now, seemingly pretty evenly matched. Two very different cars generating their lap time in different ways, but the Lamborghini for now hanging on to the place. Is Götz going to try and have a go into Brooklands? I don't think he's quite close enough, and no, for now, Ricky Collard hangs on to the place. Bryn, what have you got?
Well, I just popped down to have a chat to Kavi Jundu and to Dan Vaughan to find out what happened. They say a car went across them, and that caused them to have a puncture on their front left, but it's also caused them damage to their suspension. The inside of the wing was ripped out, including the air vent as well, the air duct for the brakes, so they've got to repair all that, and essentially they said it's now a testing session for them, so that's not great news. And what else is quite interesting, I think, is that as I stand here, I'm feeling rain splash me on the face, so rain is now started to fall once again here at Silverstone.
Which, in fairness, I think Phil Keane has predicted almost to the minute. He said 50 minutes in it would be dry, but that's when it's going to rain. And yes, it does now appear to be getting a bit wetter again out there. So anyone who has blinked and come in on slick and put slick tyres on perhaps might now live to regret that. Sam Neary in to serve the drive-through penalty in car number 8. That will take him, as I said, out of 13th place. Dan Harper then will reclaim that 13th spot. That's a shame for a car that at times has looked like it had some good pace, despite that spin from Richard a little bit earlier on. Dries van Tor then leads by 8 seconds. Phil Keane second position, but another twist in the story with this rain arriving, Joe.
Yeah, do you know what will be happy to see more rain? Smalley's windscreen. This is his only chance that he'll get to clean it out on track. But yeah, a couple of the cameras you can see are picking up a bit of water on the lenses.
Car 17, drive-through penalty, full course yellow procedure, speeding.
Who is 17?
That is Ram Racing's GT4 Mercedes.
Okay, so a lot of people getting caught out today. I wonder why. We had it at Alton Park, full course yellow. I don't think we attracted any penalties at all. So procedurally, some of the teams just haven't called it right. Maybe they weren't expecting it to be called when it was. As we see Smith still out there doing a good job. The pro in the other McLaren, Gamble, is going to get round him probably in the next couple of corners. Smith could then try and sit on the back of him and see what he can get. Is he going to defend it? It is for position, but wisely he doesn't. He doesn't need to hold himself up. It's been a great run by Smith here. Gamble to the inside, should just be able to break a little bit later. And Martin Plowman, Smith's teammate in that paddock, the black and pink car, I really like the livery on that car, I have to say, will be just telling Smith, just chill, he's the pro, just look where he's going, see if you can milk a bit more lap time out of it. He probably does need to turn his windscreen wiper off. The motor can overheat if it's just on a dry windscreen like that one, unless he's thinking if I keep it running it stops the mud from sticking and smearing. It's a bit of a hard one to call at the moment, how dirty the track is in places, but he's had a good exit at the last corner. He hasn't lost too much to Gamble, who really is on the front foot. I think after Mitchell, he's probably been the pro that's made the most move up. Obviously, Vantor's super fast, but was already at the front of his pack.
Indeed so. Sandy Mitchell, by the way, if it is getting wetter out there, he's not realising that because he's just gone and set a new fastest lap, a 2:13.1, which is still about 5 seconds or so away from lap record pace. Lap record, by the way, is a 1:58.3 set by Marvin Kirchhoffer a couple of years ago in a McLaren 720S. Sandy Mitchell's Lamborghini at the moment, not quite as quick as that, but the fastest car consistently out on the track. The 29 BMW heads towards us. They've already had to serve a penalty, so too in fact as the number 8 Mercedes as well, so quite a few of them finding themselves out of position, having attracted the wrong sort of attention from race control. Within GT4 it is still second place actually for Ian Goff, in that, in fact, still second place for the number 29 car. And they have made a pit stop, remember. In fact, they'll have been in the pit lane twice, I'd imagine. Once for a pit stop, and no, they're only showing us one visit to the pit lane, which would have been the penalty, wouldn't it? So,
yeah, I thought they were doing better than they were, yes, unfortunately, because of that one pit stop. And like you said, it's a drive-through. And Ian's driving really well, actually doing a bit of work with Ian on his charity front, the Lions Barber Collective. Really, really great charity here at British GT, offer free haircuts all in aid of suicide prevention, obviously one of the biggest killers in young males. So great charity, really give it a quick Google and check it out, as we see Colin White pitting for their first pit stop of the race. So they've gone relatively long, haven't they? 55 minutes as the CWS guys service that car, fuel in, and then once they're done, car up in the air. And are they going to change to slick? So the Pirelli wet has no markings on the tyre wall. You can see little bits of writing, but the slick has Pirelli and P0 written in yellow. So that's how I can tell from the side if it's the wet or the slick tyre. So let's keep an eye out on that.
There's something quite interesting going on in GT4 actually as well. It's not for the lead yet, but it will be very shortly. Mikey Porter, I mentioned in the number 7 car, is the highest placed of the GT4s to have made their first mandatory pit stop, but he's being caught now by Jack Brown, who, remember, was quickest in qualifying in GT4. That gap was something like 7 seconds last time I checked. It's down to 3.2 now, so cars 7 and 90 getting themselves together, and once everybody else ahead makes a pit stop, they will inherit positions 1 and 2. So it's all coming back now slightly to the number 90 McLaren. That's a little battle bubbling away in GT4. This is a little battle bubbling away in GT3. Mark Smith being caught by Ricky Collard and Maximilian Gertz, who still won't leave each other alone, but quite clearly are quicker than the McLaren ahead, because this maybe become Maximilian's best opportunity to have a go at Collard.
Yeah, he's just been following him, hasn't he, for an eternity, it feels like, but Collard getting on the flashers already to Smith. It's an interesting tactic, flashing. It feels very good as a driver doing it, but if you're the driver getting flashed, it's quite infuriating. It sometimes can rally you a bit. I think I'd rather someone talk badly about my mother, not just because I don't like her, but it just really motivates you to really push harder. And I'm going to show you, you can't just flash some bulbs at me and make me get out of your way. So yeah, I always used to use the flasher personally as a warning. I'm flashing because I'm about to overtake. If you turn in, I'm going to hit you, and I can at least say, well, I flashed you, so it's your fault, mate, so stop shouting at me. But you can see Smith moving over. It's not defending it. It's just trying to cool it down. You could just see the set of 11s he was leading, not from rolling burnout mode in that McLaren, but purely just driving in the water back over there. So the Audi GT4 that I said with Docker that went on slicks, I've been keeping an eye on him as Collard tries to get to the inside, but Smith just starting to defend there, so he's thinking, actually, I think you're going to hold me up too much there. And you're rightly saying, look at Gotts, he's going to look for the cut back here. Can he get down the inside? I think yes. Has Collard seen him? Yes, also, move done. Great call there 30 seconds ago, Andy. You're a genius.
Sometimes I get it right, only sometimes. Now, can Gertz find a way past the McLaren himself, or is the same thing going to happen to the car that started on pole position? He's looking up the inside, but yeah, definitely Mark Smith is getting his elbows out a bit more now than he was earlier on, and maybe realises he's coming towards the end of his stint. We're nearly an hour into this race now, and he wants to hand the car over in the best position possible. Gertz has the inside line. Where is the grip at this stage of the race, though? It's a guessing game, isn't it? Mark Smith guessed right, found the grip, found the traction, got the momentum on the outside line, and Maximilian Gertz still cannot find a way through. Down towards Copse Corner, does that present an opportunity? The answer for now is no. So Mark Smith, for some reason now, getting punchier towards the end of his stint, and that is the last thing that Maximilian Gertz wants.
Yeah, I think Gamble was so far, so there's no point defending from him. But every second he holds these guys up, when he hands over to Plowman, it's a second or two that he doesn't have to find back against their respective AMs in Kevin Say and Rob Collard. from Ricky in that Lamborghini. The Mustang just slightly in the way. Is that going to give Gotts a chance to get a run? Smith just blocks him off. He is super close. This is the best I've seen from Mark Smith. He's been towards the bottom end of the top 10, but this sort of pace, he's in the top sort of 3 or 4 of the AMs, I would say, with his driving. Paddock really getting on top of that McLaren Evo, it seems. And look, Collard now round the outside. Is there enough grip to get that move down on Gotts? Going for the cutback, which then gives him the outside, though, for the next brake zone. Another GT4 car in the way. The Mercedes sticking to its line. Smith is clear of it. Is Gotts going to be clear of it? Yes, Collard too. Does hold him up, though, doesn't it? Smith, for a lap now, we picked this up almost a direct lap ago, is holding his own.
Yeah, really impressed actually with Mark Smith. Maximilian Gertz perhaps less so, but we're enjoying the battle anyway. And as they make their way down past the international pit lane now, the fight continues to rage on. I think that's Fran Rueda as well catching them now too in the
car
orange and white 84
black and
car.
white flag, final track limit warning in this hour, car 3-1.
Car 31 then, final track limits warning. That's the Team Parker Mercedes in GT4, but yeah, Mark Smith is not going to make this easy for Gertz, who takes the wide line into the loop. Smith parks it on the apex and then runs out across the nose of the Mercedes, which tries to get the switchback. There just isn't the space. Mark Smith is now, I think, starting to really frustrate Maximilian Gertz, who is sideways over the curb and might now lose a place to Collard.
This is amazing from Smith. This is brilliant. I love it. So what? We've got 2 hours, 1 minute left of racing as Collard gets back down the inside. Gotts hasn't got an answer for this, and this is one of the best pros in the world, a Mercedes factory driver struggling to get past an AM, and that's why we should never use AM in a derogatory fashion. AM is amateurs because they're proper humans that have a job. They're not a real pro driver that doesn't really understand life. They have to compromise their talent by raising the funds to go racing, and that's exactly what Mark Smith is doing right now, and doing it really, really well. Yes, Fran Rueda is catching, so he is holding them up a little bit, but it's not night and day. I don't think it is that much different. I think a second and a half. Let's see. Fran Rueda, I think, will be on the scene by the end of this lap. Has he got an answer as Maxi Gotts goes for it again? Him and Collard don't really seem to be working together in terms of, I'll sit behind one. Collard gives Smith a little nudge there, unsettles him, which then give Maxi Gotts a chance to get through. That was actually poor driving from Collard, in my opinion. He's looking too much at Maxi Gotts. Racing with him, I was just saying they weren't working together, and then he hits Mark Smith. I feel sorry for Mark Smith. He was doing a mega job, and now he's ruined my day.
Here comes Collard back up the inside, the frustration boiling over. Maybe he goes through. I think Rueda will follow him, or tries to anyway, in the orange McLaren. Has he got that move made? No, Mark Smith still pulling no punches. He's going to try and hang on to that place as long as he can, succeeds in doing so into the club chicane. But finally, Maximilian Gertz and Ricky Collard find a way through. But yeah, as Joe said, there was a little bit of paint traded in the middle of all of that. Mark Smith, though, still very impressed with what he managed to achieve. So Gertz then is free, but what's his
Car
guts to
44
gamble?
will have a drive-through penalty. Pit stop infringement, mechanic carrying 2 wheels.
Okay, 44 I think I heard was the number there maybe, so that would be the Kavi Jundu Dan Vaughan Toyota, which of course came in with that puncture earlier on.
Does it count as 2 wheels if one of them was missing the inside that Brent talks about? Is that 1.5 wheels? Actually, that's a new rule for me. I'm used to seeing the mechanics carrying 2 if they're strong enough. Collard, Rob, Dad, still helmeted up as well. So let's go for a replay here. What do we see? So Mitchell takes over 3rd place from the long-suffering Petrobelli. He's been out there from the start, don't you forget. 62 minutes coming up for now. What fuel does that Aston got in? I would say it's definitely not going to stay out for another 8 minutes. I think it's going to be in before the 1 hour 50 minute to go period.
Okay, so if they pit now, I don't think it's raining anymore. The track is continuing to get dry again. Do you put them on slicks or do you keep them on wets? It's such a gamble. That pit stop that they waited and waited and waited and waited for actually couldn't really have come at a worse time, because we're just slap bang in the middle of decision-making territory, aren't we? Do you want the wets? Do you want the slicks? They're going to have to make a choice because, as you said, they'll run out of fuel if they stay out too much longer. But this is going to be a big call and potentially a race-winning call if they get it right, because they are still within half a minute of the race lead, but they have done 1 less pit stop. New tyres going on to the 24. Yeah, new wets, Joe.
Yeah, so they're still not going... They're wrong, I'm telling you, it's slicks. John Adam gets out there on slick tyres. His first flying lap without traffic will be sub 2 minute 10. It's got to be faster. There is not an ounce of spray out there. Yes, you have to overtake GT4 cars, move off that dry line, but these tyres are coming out the oven at 100 degrees. They're going to be in their operating temperature. It's got to be a gamble. The GT4 Audi we saw go to slicks is doing the same pace, and that's with an AM in a GT4 car. That's all the information they need. So I think slicks are ready. It's just they're trying to wait for a safety car to get a free pit stop. That is why they're going as long as they can possibly go.
Or they think it might rain again. I mean, this drizzle is actually, as I said, that coming down a bit heavier now than it was, what, 30 seconds or so ago. So maybe that's what they're expecting. Maybe they know something. They've seen something on the weather radar that we haven't, and that might be the cause of them staying out. Right, down towards us comes what will become the battle for the GT4 lead. The number 7 Aston Martin, the number 90 McLaren, just turning into Brooklands behind the Barwell machine of Sandy Mitchell, and they are now within a second or so of each other. So they are the highest two-place GT4 cars that have yet to stop, and that is going to become a really interesting battle within the next lap or so, I think. Mikey Porter being reeled in pretty quickly by Jack Brown, and a gap that was 1.8 seconds at the start of the lap is now underneath a second, I'd say, as they head back towards Copse Corner.
Yeah, the McLaren working really hard there. Brown taking over from Meakin, who I thought struggled a bit at the start, to be honest, and dropped back from that pole position. But Brown is really on the front foot. He's, as you said, catching Porter hand over fist. It looks like it could be even this lap he can strike. We haven't seen these two cars up against each other, so I don't know the strengths and the weaknesses at the moment, the balance of performance. The Aston had been slightly better top-end speed, but the McLaren better in the mid-corner and braking. So let's see if that stays true as the GT3, big brother of the Aston, comes through. That should blast past quite easily on the hanger straight. Petrobelli won't lose too much time. Look at Gamble reeling him in as well now. Is the McLaren gaining there as we finally see that last car of Ian Duggan, the number 20 Mahiki car, coming in, actually leaving the tyres on the car there. They look like they're just doing a tyre pressure adjustment. So Gordy Much getting in there, probably just saying, you know what, the tyres are worn down a bit. I don't want fresh wets because the tyre block is bigger, which then gets hotter as we see an Optimum GT3 car nicely coming down. Now, will Gamble try and help Jack Brown in that yellow GT4 car? Sister cars, can he open the gap up on Porter and just let him slide through? I think not. I think the gap's a little bit too big, and I think Gamble's just going to blast past. But I do like trying to cool the nasty politics of motorsport. But you see Porter there just trying to get a bit of a slipstream. You can tell kids who have raced Ginetta Junior, it's all slipstream. As soon as they can get one, they're hungry for it, like a dog with a bone. But yeah, Brown is just reeling them in ever so slightly, but overtaking is another matter, of course.
It's not yet the battle for the lead of the class, because Ian Goff has yet to make his first mandatory stop, having been into a drive-through, hasn't yet actually handed over that car at any point to his co-driver Tom Wrigley. So this at the moment is the fight for second in GT4, but it is for the lead of the GT4 Silver Cup. So the top two cars within the Silver Cup element of GT4. Remember, these cars have to serve an extra 12 seconds in the pit lane at every single pit stop, because they've got two silver graded drivers in the car, as opposed to a Pro and an AM. Almost a chance up the inside for Jack Brown into Brooklands, but he was just a touch too far back. But it does seem to have a sense of inevitability about it, this, doesn't it? The Aston Martin moving around a lot more than the McLaren, which looks to the inside line through Luffield Corner. Nowhere to go for now, but could this slower Ginetta, as we saw earlier on with the GT3 cars, maybe be the thing that causes the position to change?
Yeah, definitely, and it's struggling, that Ginetta, isn't it? They've caught that by a couple of seconds a lap. Holland there, we know he's only been in the car. Wipers are on flat out, but it's not for the rain, it's to keep it clean, or clean it, I think. So the rain still hasn't come back. You're right, it's in the air, but it's not falling hard yet. Here, Brown looking to the inside there. He got a good traction, didn't he? Just driven past him. Wow. That was one of the easiest and bizarre overtaking moves I've ever seen at Silverstone, because it's not a break into the first left of Maggis and Beckett's, but the traction was so superior. As we go on board with Porter, let's see what it looks like on board. It looked like Brown was already gapping him out of the corner, so that Aston Martin is struggling. It looks like on corner exit. Brown now on the light flasher, sorry. Quite a passive-aggressive one on the McLaren GT4. It wasn't too fast, as we see the McLaren swapping there. Is that Clutton on Mardeber? I think, yeah, that was for 11th position. Clutton has been a man on the move a bit, hasn't he? Disappointing Alton Park by his own admission. There's the mud I was talking about. He just flicked a load in Jan's face for good measure. A bit Dick Dastardly of him, but I think all fair in love and war. Marcello now in front. That BMW just still isn't firing, is it? We saw Harper struggling. Now Marcello, someone we're so used to being on the front foot, just having to kind of manage it at the moment, hoping maybe for some drier conditions. But even in the dry qualifying yesterday, Harper and Marcello were outside the top 10 in their respective sessions. So, whoa, big lock on the rear. Just touched the curb under braking and locked the rear. Yes, there's ABS, but it can't defy physics. If you're touching a slippery surface, then it will always cause you to pitch. Good old drift there from Marcus, sending it in backwards. Looked cool, but lost a bit of time.
We've seen some great car control from Marcus over the years, and another example of it there as he tries to keep the number 23 McLaren at bay for the time being. This is for 12th place, Clutton versus Mardenborough. Here's the replay, and yeah, it was all right until he got onto that black and white painted curb, which is like ice in these conditions, and didn't really have a lot of time to gather that together. The gravel trap was coming up fast.
Yeah, really, really. Do you want to know a fun fact about Silverstone curbs? Why are they black and white? Because you only have to paint the white bit, save half the money on paint. And it's a true story as well. Really, really true. When part of the BRDC, who own the circuit, I got involved in it and I heard about it. What genius idea. Yeah. And when you've got to try and save some money, no better way. So as we see, sorry, go back to it. Porter down the inside of Holland, big old slide. Look at that Ginetta. One thing I would say about the Ginetta, it's a brilliant car. I love driving it. Look how high it is. And why is it high? Because it's so fast. The balance performance, they have to lift the ride height up to make it slower. Some shots, this one especially, will make it look like a bit of a tractor. There's so much there. But it does still absolutely go, and that Evo Ginetta is a real good car, and it's good to have it back in British GT and it being competitive. I love that little car.
Yes, the 56 example still the better placed of the Ginettas right now, 6th place in the race, or within GT4 anyway, with Tomlinson at the wheel. They again have served a drive-through penalty earlier on. The number 10 Blackthorn Aston Martin is in. Driver change then, Matt Topham and Josh Rowledge sharing this car, and that is not the Blackthorn car that perhaps we were expecting to see. We're still waiting for car 87, but there, look, on our camera down in the pit lane, you can see the odd drop of rain still falling, and that is what's creating the head scratcher now for the teams that are expecting a pit stop imminently. They're going to be forced into making a decision on tyres a little bit before they want to.
I think that was still wet as well, and you got a glimpse of it as it pulled away, but yeah, still no one in GT3 blinking. The GT4 Audi, the only car on slicks, I believe, is just in the mix. It's not faster, it's not slower, so yeah, it's at a crossover point, but who's going to go to see Smith batting away this time with some GT4s, go on board with Seb Morris and the Mercedes. Windscreen not too bad. We can see how the windscreen wipers just smear it, but I do think it stops any more mud sticking to it for too long. As we go to Harper, is that going to be the orange car? Tom Roach just looking to try and catch and get on Harper. I feel sorry for Harper from being reigning champion, and I thought Johnston was going to be a revelation in GT3. He was quick in GT4, but just can't seem to get that car working for them at the moment. It's a long championship. I'm being doom and gloom. Maybe they can turn the tide, but at the moment that is looking all one-way traffic as they get on that Audi, which I believe is on slicks. I'm just trying to look at it and see what it can do. It's not really looking any different, so it's hard to call there, but look how dirty the side of the Harper BMW is. Roach got a run on him down the inside into slow 2, as we call it. Drivers catch back, going to get him. Can he unwind the lock? It's going to be even. Roach going to brave around the outside? No. Is he going to cut to the inside? Potentially. He's got the run on him. So used to that BMW steaming away down the straights, but the McLaren mega run. 2 Mercedes as well fighting in the background. There's lots of little sub-genre fights going on, isn't there?
There absolutely are, but this one, for the time being at least, is settled in the favour of the McLaren, which does manage to gain the place. Right then, Blackthorn, oh, hang on, Harper's coming back at him now, the inside through Luffield corner, all over the curb, sideways. I think Roach should have it on exit, which he does, and will now try and get his head down and pull away. Right, Blackthorn, we've seen her pitted one of their cars. Just Rowledge got out of that car and was almost immediately greeted by Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, greeted by me, accosted I think is a better word, Andy. Josh, it's great to chat to you. What is it like out there conditions-wise? Because it looked like it was drying, then a bit of rain started again, but it's dry again now.
Yeah, so it was drying whilst I was out there, and the track was constantly improving, so I was adapting as a driver. But unfortunately, the rain started coming again, which, you know, wasn't ideal because we were hoping to go out on slicks then. So we're hoping for my final stint in about 45 minutes to be on slick tyres.
What's the clue? What is it you're looking for that makes that decision? Is there something that we can see from the outside apart from a dry line, which sometimes doesn't give us the indication that you guys need?
No, for us there's 2 factors, maybe 3. You know, the team can see on the track, but also, you know, we got feedback from Matt whilst he's out on track, but also an indicator on the, you know, on the lap times. If we're around the 2:10, that's sort of the crossover point for us to go slick tyres.
Go and rest up for 45 minutes then. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Bryn. Interesting stuff there from Josh down in the pit lane. We are nearly an hour and a quarter into this race, nearly 75 minutes in to the 2024 Silverstone 500. We are still waiting for two of our GT3 cars to pit, Giacomo Petrobelli and Mark Smith, and we must now be getting towards the end of the pit fuel window. Before they get the chance to come in, though, Sandy Mitchell is in the 78 Lamborghini from third position, Joe. This could be big.
Yeah, I can only assume it's because they think they are ready for slicks. He wouldn't have had to pit on fuel. That was just a dummy tyre teasing us there. That's where they stand the other tyres. So it could be that they're going to slicks because we can't see them. Why can't we see them? Because they're still in the tyre oven. They want to leave them in that lovely little incubator, getting them warm, getting them ready to be destroyed by the next driver as they rip out the pit lane. So fuel will take about 35 seconds, as that lovely man earlier in the programme told us what happens in the pit stops. Just looking, Martin's going to be getting inside this car. Oh, still no driver. It's much nicer the inside of that race car when there's not a driver in there, isn't there? As we go back out, the car will go up in the air, and let's see what tyres they throw on it, because it's going to be really close. But I think people have gone longer. First 10 minutes was safety car, used half the fuel roughly under safety car. We had a short full course yellow, probably another lap saved on fuel, and then the wet, you generally save like 5 to 10%. So that's maybe why we're extending the pit lane. We see another Mercedes pitting. We're sat here with cars going up in the air, can hear tyres coming off. What tyres are going on?
Well, we can't tell from this view. What we can see is Alex Martin getting back into the car. Front right tyre is on. That's another wet, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, that would be my guess. I said, you can just see the grooves on it. So, and a brand new set. I'm surprised at that. I think normally one Maverick team outside the top 10 go for it, but no one's done it yet today. The tyres coming off, you can see they're really starting to roll the edges. The rubber just rolls up the edge, car's going to drop down. They're going straight away. Is that not going to be one of their mandatory pit stops? It felt like they did that really quick, but I don't get the strategy on that. So we're going to see what pit time as we go 3 wide coming out of Stowe. Harper getting round Morris and Porter there. It's getting lively, but just to me, we're so used to the cars waiting at the end of the pit stop to not go under their minimum time. I wonder what that last pit time was. I'll have a look on TSL to see if I can find the data on that one.
That was a change, by the way, for second in GT4 Pro-Am. That was Seb Morris getting up ahead of Jamie Orton, so 31 ahead of 47, but Orton now trying to come back at him as they head down towards Will Orton, excuse me, not Jamie, Will Orton in the 47, and can't quite retaliate against Seb Morris for the time being. The 58 car just ahead of them is actually a lap behind, just to further confuse matters. That's the CWS liveried Ginetta, which makes its way into the loop. We've had a tangle down at Club though. Now, could this be the safety car that some people are waiting for? It's the 17 car again, down at the same part of the circuit it struggled earlier on, and that was one of the McLarens, but the Mercedes is slightly into the gravel trap. Probably won't be a full safety car, but a full course yellow, that could still change things.
Yeah, I think it will be. I don't think he's getting out of there. Petrobelli somewhere in sector 1, so he has the most amount of time to wait for this full course yellow. Peter Daly, is he going to make a decision in the next 2 minutes? He could really make or break their race unintentionally. We're just watching to see if we can see anything being called, but at the moment it's looking like Smith has pitted, so it is just Petrobelli now left. That's really unfortunate timing for Smith. If he could have had another 3 or 4 minutes of fuel, he could have really lucked in there.
14 is in as well. Dan Harper in the number 14 car from 15th place. Absolutely nothing to lose. I'd be amazed if they don't go on to slick tyres now. Meanwhile, side by side, this is not, remember, for position. This is just Will Orton trying to put another lap on the Ginetta ahead of him as they head down towards Maggots and Beckett's once again. But that is all just allowing Seb Morris now to get away. Second place, as I said, in GT4 Pro-Am for them, as they head through Maggots and Beckett's down onto the Hangar Straight, and very shortly they'll be into what is still a yellow flag zone down at Club.
Yeah, the Mercedes is still sat there. I can see on the GPS tracker. Petrobelli coming into the final sector now. He's about 38 seconds away from pit entry. The team will have already warned him, pit in on short notice, so he will be primed if he's got enough fuel to stay out anyway. But he is either going to get make or break those marshals there, trying to push it. I just don't think it's the right thing to do in these conditions. We need to go to full course yellow for safety. I always say it, sound like a boring old man, but these conditions as a driver are so treacherous. We saw Clotton just touch a white line as we go back for what happened. Mercedes clearly in front and is actually exactly the same as what Cotton did, just touched it, locked the rear, and the Mercedes fully innocent, and the McLaren might live to fight another day because of the Mercedes knocking off some of his speed.
Yeah, so unfortunately the number 17 car then stuck in the gravel trap. The timing screen is telling us and the drivers to prepare for a full course yellow, which comes out now, and just as that happens, into the pit lane comes the number 63 Lamborghini of Ricky Collard to hand over to Rob Collard. So again, let's try and get the cameras down to Barwell. We want to know what tyres are going onto that car. This could be the perfect time to do it, but it is raining again. Out of the commentary box window, there is rain falling once again, but a decision is going to have to be made. Certainly you'd expect Petrobelli in this time around. Except no, Joe, I think he went across the line, didn't he?
Yeah, he was only just too late by about 4 seconds. I wonder if he's going to get back round in time before the full course yellow comes in. I think Barwell yet again called it right, getting this car in. They hedged their bets. They actually pitted under green, but by the time they came to slow down for the pit line right in front of our comms box, the full course yellow came out. You play the numbers, and the numbers were full course yellow was going to happen.
Yes, now let's see, more cars in. Academy are in as well. Wet tyres going on to the Ford Mustang then. 62 I think that is in the pit lane. Had a few more GT3s in too. Marcus Klutner's in, Jan Mardenborough, Marciello. That is the view in inverted commas from the number 59 McLaren. Adam Smalley about to make way. We've got the 67 in, Tom Roach handing over once again to Simon Orange, but so far I don't see anybody making that gamble to slick tyres for the time being.
Yeah, that windscreen's amazing. I want to see how they clean it. A lot of damage on the rear of that car, but amazing that windscreen just keep getting worse and worse. I think it's the dirtiest thing I've ever seen in my life, which is saying quite a lot to me. It does remind me I need to speak to my ex. But Seb Morris now coming in. I'm still amazed no one's gone to slicks. And I'm amazed I've said it 25 times now and everyone's bored of it. But someone's got to take a gamble. Still on wets. Everyone's boring me now. I don't get it. We're in the window. Someone can win this race leaving on wets. This is so bizarre. They must be looking at a forecast that they think they're going to get. Oh, this is nice. Oh, look at that tear off. That was real sweet, wasn't it? It's like, do you remember waking up with conjunctivitis as a kid and you try and blink and you can't see, pushing back the car in front to get them out as well. But yeah, full tear off done by the garage. They're expensive, man. They're like 300 quid, so you've got to make sure it's worth it. I think that one was, but still, everyone on wets. The teams must be fearing more rain.
It is raining at the moment. 17 back on its way, by the way. Damage to the front and the back of that car now after it's 2 tangles down at the same part of the circuit. But it is still drizzle. It's not rain, but there is water coming down onto the track. It's not getting any drier right now. I think we're so close to that turning point between wets and slicks, but the weather just won't let us get there. In comes the race leader, by the way, Dries van Tor. So Darren Leung is about to get back on board the number 1 BMW. I wonder whether Phil Keane will follow him into the pit lane in the number 6 Mercedes that was running in second place, quite some way behind on the track, but was running in P2. Right down to the end of the pit lane, there you go. Keane is in from second position, so if nothing else, they're making the most of the FCY to get a cheap pit stop. Even if they're not really willing to make the big tyre gamble, they are at least going to benefit from pitting when they are.
Petrobelli's still about probably a minute away, minute and a half even, under full course yellow speed. As we go back to green, Petrobelli's missed that full course yellow. Blackthorn needed to play the numbers game, like Barwell, like everyone was seeing in pit lane did. This has really hurt. They've been out since the start of the race, an hour and 20 minutes on 1 tank of fuel. Just trying to see the Blackthorn guys there. The camera is picking up more water, isn't it? You can see Phil Keane there in the Mercedes, the silver one. Ian Loggey slightly closer, fuel about to finish. I think they'd be pretty happy with their position so far and pace. But what have we got? Has Petrobelli pitted yet? He has not. He's still in the last corner, so is he in now? Yes, he is.
He's just about to appear, I think, on the right hand of shot. There he goes, the number 87 car then in. So what are they going to do? Having missed the boat on the full course yellow, is it maybe worth taking that extra gamble, stick the slick tyres on? I think I probably already know the answer to that because no one else has done it, but having lost time now, essentially, on a couple of occasions actually, maybe it's worth trying to do something a little bit different. But anyway, Petrobelli is in. There goes the 17 car back on its way to the garage to have that bodywork patched up. Other end of the pit lane, meanwhile, Darren Leung is back into car number 1 and is about to head on his way. back into the race with just over half of the race still to go. We packed an awful lot into the first hour and a half, and we still have to do it all over again in the second half of the race, as definitely now that rain is getting heavier.
Yeah, it really isn't it? It's just on the weather radar, short showers. I wonder how long it will last for, but it definitely just...
Team manager of car 95 to race control, please.
It just delays that chance there of getting back to it. The BMW leaving, looking a little tentative at the moment, Darren Lung, trying to get back into it. Obviously not done a huge amount of laps so far in this race, and it'll be interesting to see where he can get pace-wise. So Vantor's back in it now, isn't he? See where he can get pace-wise, because he was so strong versus Keane.
Was it not Vantor in the last?
Yeah, sorry, I think the driver ID's not changed, right? Because it's still showing Vantor on the screen. So that's why I said Dan Lung, and then I read and confused myself. So I think our timing screens need to be updated. The drivers have to manually change their driver ID, and that can easily get forgotten. So they can switch it on the fly, so I think that will update on the next lap.
Okay, good. That did just give us a momentary little bit of confusion. Doesn't take a lot. There is Ian Loggy then, back out into the fray as well. We didn't see a pit stop from car 27, though. That was the third place car. That's Tom Gamble, so he stayed aboard number 27. So we really do have a great variety of driver strategies. Forget tyre strategies. The driver strategies are all over the place at the moment as well, with car number 27 now inheriting the race lead, but owing us 2 more pit stops, whereas cars 1 and 6 have actually made 2 of their 3 mandatory stops. There goes the number 23 car now with Chris Buncombe back aboard the McLaren, dropping downhill towards Club, and was that Johnny Adam behind him maybe in the 87 machine? I think it might have been. So Johnny Adam finally, nearly halfway into the race now, getting a chance to jump on board car number 87 and to see what he can do. I guess the one advantage they have now is they've got their pro in when a lot of the other teams don't.
Yeah, interesting as well that the maximum drive time is 100 minutes. How long left of the race do we have? 96 minutes. So he can't even do his maximum drive time now. Petrobelli went so long. So they have a really weird strategy, I think, when Adam will now go as long as he can to pray for a safety car. Then he will box when he runs out of fuel. Petrobelli will get in and probably go out straight in, because Johnny Adam will want to get back in and do as much driving as possible. So that's the longest stint I've ever seen in British GT, and I think it will be the longest by a good distance as well, because of the safety car, full course yellow, and the wet weather that we alluded to. But yeah, that was a mega job by Petrobelli. It'd be interesting to see if he was fatigued at all, because that is a long old stint in a GT3 car.
So Optimum Motorsport now lead then. Tom Gamble in car number 27 is your new race leader, and we'll get at the end of the lap a look at what his advantage is over Maximilian Gertz, who's into second place, also having only made 1 stop. Optimum are getting ready though to pit this car this time around, Joe.
Yeah, that was Mark Radcliffe, Tom Gamble's teammate, so it looked like they're going to pit. Why didn't they pit under full course yellow, I wonder? That was so soon ago. Were they like Petrobelli? Did they just manage to miss coming in? But that's going to really hurt when the average speed around here is 170 kilometers an hour, and you could have pitted under 80. That shows you how much time. I reckon it's got to be worth 40 seconds of extra time. Look how still wet it is. Be interesting to see if we ever do get to slicks. Coming into the pit lane is going to be difficult, because that is still very, very wet. Gamble gets it slowed down to 50 kilometers an hour. Optimum just before where our camera is based here, so we should get a good view of it swinging in. Remember, the car will stop, driver out across the line, start fueling, then the tyres, a new driver in. Car stopping lovely on the board, driver coming out, Mark Ratcliffe being very accommodating, helping young Tom out. Close the door and off we go. Darren Loewen now starting to feel the grip. Still shows Vantor on the timing screens, but we do know it is...
Car 95, stop go penalty causing a collision. Car 95.
Not the most shocking bit of news we'll hear today, I don't think, Joe.
No, I agree with that, and it wasn't intentional, but it still lost that poor Ram Mercedes a lot of time, who was the innocent bystander there. So correct decision. I don't think there'll be much fighting from the Race Lab team on that one. Be interesting to see if there's much damage on the front of that 95 car, actually, because it was a big old whack, wasn't it? We saw the rear damage as the Ram car came back in. It was like the mechanics were seemingly ignoring the damage, but they've got to finish their mandatory pit stop element, and then they would address it. In that way, I would have thought just yanking it off as hard as they could.
Gamble is in then, as we said, so now Maximilian Gertz will go back to the front, or at least his car will. Gertz hasn't actually led this race yet, but now gets a turn out in front, but has made 1 fewer pit stop than the car of Dries Vanthor, who is what, 53, 54 seconds behind him on the road. So that is the car you're watching now. So of those who have made 2 stops, this is the car that is the highest placed of those. And remember, right back to the end of basically the first lap of the race, when we saw a couple of cars dive for the pit lane. It was this one, and it was the number 6 car of Ian Loggy and Phil Keane. And those are the 2 cars now, like magic, that at nearly half race distance have positioned themselves perhaps the best to be on top come the end of the race. There goes Gertz out of Aintree, where it's definitely looking a little bit murkier again now, a bit more spray maybe being kicked up behind the cars, a bit more water on the camera lens, and the windscreen wipers on almost all of the cars are now switched back on.
Yeah, it's definitely the wettest it's been during the race now. The rain really starting to fall quite hard in places, and what's that going to do to people's lap times again? We saw Gotts doing a 12.2 as we see the paddock car coming to a halt, lights off, and is never a good sign. I think the black wheel is intentionally the wrong colour. I don't think that's anything to do with the problem. What have we got here? The wipers going out of sync. That was weird. That was like, you know, when someone gets tired and their eyes lose their tracking. That was a bit odd. The marshal walking over to that. That's in a pretty fast place on the exit of Maggots and Beckett's. Yeah, if that car doesn't get going, that's got to be a full course yellow yet again. Yellow flag's being waved very early, and so no one can overtake, which in a GT3 car feels painful when you're stuck behind a GT4, but we've got to get the cars slowed down to see if we can get that car safely out the way.
Very little damage on the front of the McLaren, to answer your question from earlier on. That looked like the paddock Mercedes, having done a Control-Alt-Delete, was getting going again. Perhaps crisis averted there. No need for a safety car for now. As here, Maximilian Gertz comes up to put a lap, would you believe, on Johnny Adam. Up the inside line he will go. Both of these cars have made the same number of pit stops. 1 pit stop for the Mercedes, 1 pit stop for the Aston Martin, and a full lap between them, as Gertz does now get up alongside the Aston, heading towards club.
Johnny needs to fight like his life depends on it. He's just got nothing to react. As Gotts has gone, they're a lap down, that's day done. Safety car comes out, you are finished. So that strategy for Blackthorn didn't pay out. Not pitting under full course yellow was the nail in the coffin, and the lead boots to go swimming in. That's really, it's a shame to see, because they went real left field with the strategy, but it's gone downhill.
Yep, that is a shame. So Johnny Adam perhaps not going to be lifting the trophy at the end of the race this time around. Aston, for whatever reason, really struggling for pace at this stage of the race, isn't it? With Johnny Adam aboard, you'd expect him to give Maximilian Gertz a run for his money, but not proving to be the case for the time being. Gertz, meanwhile, setting reasonably good lap times, fastest of anybody out there by some way at the moment. And of course, this is now a significant part of the race for him, because he is the pro driver in this car. Leung and Loggy behind him, and Rob Collard and Chris Buncombe, all of the cars behind, they are the AM drivers. So at the moment, he's 57, 58 seconds ahead of Darren Leung. His job, I guess here, Joe, is to extend that margin as much as possible, so that when they do make their second pit stop, perhaps they'll stay in front of, or at least within striking range of those who have already made 2.
Yeah, and he's got the chance. He's put Johnny Adam a lap down. So Johnny's in 13, so that's now just the top 12 on the lead lap. He can keep going for scalps here, which is just going to increase their chance of getting a good finish. Just looking on the timing screen as he crosses the line to see how far he is away from his next victim, which is Alex Martin in the Barwell Lambo. He's still a fair way off him, so I don't think he's going to put any more laps on people, but it's going to be tight to see where he can get to. And then when Kevin Say gets back in, what conditions we've got, where's the car at? It's so many unknowns in this pro versus AM element, but I have to say I'm surprised at Johnny Adams' pace there, because Petrobelli was really quick, so you would assume Johnny would be able to inherit a fast car. If the team tried something different with the tyre pressures, could have even done an adjustment in the pit stop, but yeah, it's really not worked out for that team.
It's about the length of the Hangar straight now between the race leader and at the other end of it, the 2 cars that he's chasing now to put another lap down. 79, meanwhile, back out into the fray. That is the Tim Docker Jordan Albert Stella Motorsport Audi, which heads back out onto the racetrack. Darren Leung, by the way, came through just now, did he? No, he's about to come through to complete another lap. There he goes across the line, 57 seconds back, so actually gained a second that time on Maximilian Gertz. So Gertz, yes, he was stuck behind some traffic in a yellow flag zone, but just losing a bit of time. Every lap has to be a push lap now to try and build that margin as far as he can.
Yeah, at the moment he's pretty much halfway that gap of what he needs to be able to pit and stay in front to get back to the same strategy as the Vanthoor Lung car, but I don't think it's going to happen with the amazing pace of that BMW of Darren Leung. And actually Loggy's matching him as well. Loggy was quicker than Gotts, so you've got 2 AMs there, a second a lap faster than a Mercedes factory driver, ranked one of the best in their squad. So are the tyres going off? Obviously, he's been out much, much longer as we see circuit performance broken into sectors. So BMW sector 1, the fast bit, not surprised. Lamborghini, mixture, not surprised. McLaren, almost the best all-round 2 fast corners into slow 1 and 2. And then the Mercedes. The Mercedes loves the last sector, doesn't it? 4 different manufacturers for 4 different sectors. That's why everyone loves balance and performance. It's always fair.
Well, on the current evidence, you would suggest that's the case, certainly, but the number 18 car heads through that sector in which it has excelled so far, setting the fastest 4th sector time, and comes through now to set, what lap time this time for Maximilian Goertz, I wonder? That's a 2:14.3, that's more like it. We'll wait and see in about a minute's time what that means for the gap to Darren Leung behind. Remember, a GT3 pit stop is 115 seconds, so just under 2 minutes, and he's just under 1 minute ahead at the moment. It's a tall order, this, for Goertz to drag the car that started from pole position back into race-winning contention. Really could do with a safety car, but actually I think the reintroduction of full course yellows into British GT this year does sort of change how this race is working. Normally by this point we'd have had a safety car that would bunch people together and it would create a massive advantage for one car, a massive disadvantage for another, but because the race director has full course yellow at his disposal now, it takes away a lot of the chance, a lot of the likelihood of that happening.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fairer neutralisation of the race, isn't it, than a safety car, which really can hurt you if you were towards the front of that. Balfe, we were looking at there, actually one of the fastest cars on track, 17.9, so he did well, but Maximilian Goertz, now he's in clear air, back down to 14, so pulling away again from Darren Leung. There's a nice battle pack forming here, isn't there, with, what's that, Andrew Howard getting involved, but I think, is he a lap down? He's nowhere near me on my timing screens.
No, what we have had is Balfe moving ahead of Buncombe, so that was a change for 5th position on this lap. But yeah, the Aston Martin not a part of the fight. The 77 McLaren in the background, though, very much is. That is Morgan Tilbrook. Always pretty handy in the wet, actually, is Morgan. And he's closing in on this lot as diving to the inside goes the 97 machine. And that was job done fairly easily for Andrew Howard there. Shame that he is a lap down because he's clearly looking a bit quicker than this group of cars for the time being. But does now manage to at least unlap himself from one of them. There is Tilbrook out of Luffield corner and actually already onto the tail of Buncombe, so Tilbrook is arriving with pace.
Yeah, Buncombe's struggling here again. The RGN car is fast in certain conditions, but not all. Tilbrook trying to go around the outside of Woodcote, that's brave. Now into Copse corner, what can he do? Can he brake later? Yes, he can. Can he get clear? Yes, he can. Can he stay on the track? Yes, he can. That was a hat-trick of yes, he cans. Howard looking aggressive. Yes, he's a lap down, but I guess he thinks he can maybe get his lap back and make a bit of luck for himself. But Balfe's pace really good there. Look how much he's pulled away from this group in the last lap alone. What's Tilbrook got? We saw glimpses of pace from Clutton. Definitely was able to pull away from Balfe's teammate Smalley. Can now Tilbrook do the same on Balfe, or has Balfe got the leading edge over Tilbrook? So many dynamics coming into play at the moment.
Seem to be seeing these 3 McLarens quite close to each other all race, don't we? I seem to remember this being a battle in the first half an hour of the race, and as we now move into the second half of it,
Car 67 is a drive-through penalty, a full course yellow speeding infringement.
Simon Orange then, number 67, the latest to be on the naughty step and picking up a drive-through penalty for that speeding infringement, so that will take him out of, where is he, 9th place at the moment, the last of that group of 5 McLarens that are all running through the middle and back end of the top 10. This is Tom Wrigley, meanwhile, so he is now on board car number 29. Remember, this car is showing as having made 2 pit stops, but actually only one of those a mandatory stop. His lead over Nathan Harrison is a significant one. Harrison also has only made 1 pit stop. In fact, the top 3 in GT4, Wrigley, Harrison and Gordy Much in the other Lotus, all with 1 stop made. It is then Zach Meakin, now 2.5 seconds ahead of Jamie Day, so both cars 90 and 7 have made a driver change since last we saw them, and it is the McLaren now back in front. That car, remember, started on pole, slipped back at the start, then managed to fight back in stint 2, and now in stint 3 they find themselves ahead. But actually, Joe, that gap coming down because Jamie Day just did a personal best, 2 personal best laps in a row, and is only a second behind the McLaren.
Yeah, and what makes that more impressive is he's the only guy at the moment improving. Everyone else is kind of a little bit slower than their ultimate best. Is that due to conditions, because of tyre, fuel load? Doesn't matter. Jamie Day is the only boy on the move at the moment. He's going to start closing that gap down to Meakin. It's going to be under a second, I would have thought, when we look at it. The 2 Lotuses running pretty close together as well. Again, they're on a bit of a left field strategy. Basically, those two Lotuses need some safety cars to get rid of some stops. You can see the damage on the McLaren, the bonnet starting to lift. The bonnet pins will be hanging on for their lives after Christmas when you're a bit fat, your belt's bulging. That's basically what that is doing, but at 180 miles an hour, not sat on your sofa. But luckily, it looks like the front is still pinned in and the air will naturally push it down a bit, but lucky not to damage any radiators there, that 95 car.
Yes, he was. You can really see the rain coming down as well up at that end of the circuit from where Joe said the rain always seems to arrive. At the top of shot, though, we might see it on the next shot, is that battle between Meakin and Day. They were nose to tail as they went through Stowe Corner, and if you look in the background, we might see them in a moment even closer together. Again, it is not yet for the lead. In fact, at no point really in the last hour has it been for the race lead, but I think those are the two cars that are going to be battling for the win come the end of the race. All things being equal, they're the next two cars behind the number 95, which slides and slithers its way into view. Here they are, Zach Meakin being caught by the Aston Martin once again.
A black and white flag for car 77, your third and final track limit warning in this hour. 77, a black and white.
Morgan Tilbrook being warned about track limits, but yeah, it does seem that Zach Meakin, unfortunately, every time he's got into the car, it's been wet, really wet, and he does seem to struggle a bit more than Jack Brown in the wet conditions, whereas Jamie Day seems to be thriving.
Yeah, he's having a great day, isn't he, Jamie? And it's getting quicker for him, and it's hard for Meakin because his teammate Jack is super fast anyway, but was in the car last year. Meakin coming into Optimum Motorsport, knows the McLaren a little bit, but probably not as well as Jack Brown, so it's difficult for him, but it does seem to have steadied the ship in this part of the lap. Did Day just lose a bit too much time? Wheels spinning out of the complex there. Car looking really well balanced though, let's see as he picks the throttle up. Really nice, using all the track. Still able to use the curbs. Yes, it's raining, but the curbs still look usable, don't they? And is this going to be the last bit of rain we've got? The forecast and the sky is starting to brighten up a little bit, isn't it? So it'll sweep in from Stowe, and then it'll finish at Luffield, and then it's good. That car's still moving around, so he's on the limit. He's definitely pushing. It's not an easy lap time to extract, it seems, out of that Forseti Aston Martin GT4.
Definitely not. No, sorry, Joe. It appears to have stopped raining over at our end of the circuit, so maybe that means it's all passed through for the time being. So there is the number 8 car that's had a penalty, and it's had a spin, and it's had a bit of contact at one point or another. A typical race really for the Nearies. They always seem to be at the centre of the drama.
Car 1515 driving through penalty, full course yellow procedure, speeding.
That was, wasn't it? So that is the BMW. Raffaele Marcello not having a great time in British GT of late. Doesn't ever seem to be on the right side of the good fortune mark. Through there went Maximilian Goetz, then the overall race leader, and there Alex Martin a lap down now, so he has lapped Alex Martin. Richard Neary would be the next car to go a lap down, and he is not that far ahead, I don't think, of car number 18, so more cars being knocked a lap down, and significant cars as well. That 78 car that I think both of us really thought would be in the conversation for the race win.
Yeah, and it's just how it falls, isn't it, when you've got your AM or your Pro in, so it's looking very... Oh, stop car there on the Mustang cars, that's...
62 again, isn't it?
Yeah, we saw it in warm-up, didn't we, with its lights off, turning off, and it didn't get going again in warm-up. Just trying to work out where that is, just looking at my live tracker. It's in sector 3. I think it's in quite a safe spot. I think it's like on the entry to the fast part through the loop, but well out of the way, so could possibly recover it on local yellows, which is the opposite of what Goetz and Say want. They need something to slow these guys down, as we see a Race Lab GT3 McLaren of you and Hanky Lucky Carer, Unlucky Carer getting pushed into the garage. That's day done. There's no way the car goes into the garage and comes out and wins a race, so that's why I say it is day done. But yeah, cars starting to look like there's less spray again. Yeah, moving offline, trying to cool those tyres, just seeing what we can do. Martin there, look at the spray. So I love that shot of the diffuser. So we're just basically in front of the rear tyre. The diffuser sucking the water out of the track, trying to dry it out. You see it just beading off the end there, under braking. May see the Academy car just parked here on the left. Still quite a lot of water on the screens there, but I think it has stopped raining yet again. Looks like that Mustang is clear, so maybe we'll stay green.
Well, the 63 Lamborghini running well. The 78 has dropped off the lead lap, unfortunately. The 78 car that we can see on our screen. But yeah, number 63 going well in 4th place. Rob Collard, former champion, former winner here at Silverstone, is in the car. And his son and co-driver Ricky is in the pit lane with Bryn.
He certainly is. He keeps glancing over nervously at the TSL timing screens off to our right-hand side to the left as you're looking just there, Andy. And Ricky, you got to come in the absolute perfect time. You couldn't have timed it any better with that full course yellow.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was a BMW that had stopped going into Club and Vale. Saw it was in the gravel, so it was, like you say, we preempted something like that could happen, and as soon as it come in, saw that happen, we had to pit.
Condition-wise, something we've been looking out the window a fair bit, or out these garages a fair bit here. Every time these lap times seem to come down somewhere near potentially moving to slicks, a bit of rain falls.
Yeah, exactly. It's great British weather. It's a great Silverstone 500. It's you know, you're throwing all the bits into the mix, and you know, it's producing a fantastic race. And I'm just still watching my dad. He's just trying to catch Ian. But it's crazy. You've got Darren, who's current Silverstone 500 champion. My dad has won the Silverstone 500. We're not sure, we're talking off there if Ian's won it as well, but you've got 3 drivers there that could win it, that are all fighting to become potentially a double champion.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the lineup as well, Darren isn't, of course, in the championship hunt because he's in this one-off race, but there's a lot of you already at the sharp end of the championship that look like you've got your eyes firmly on that trophy.
Absolutely. I spoke with Darren last night. He's a really good lad, and he said to me... Oh. Hang on. Sorry.
Radio working?
Yeah. Sorry, he said to me that he's got nothing to lose and he's going to go out there and fight. And, you know, he is an aggressive driver, a fast driver, and, you know, massive credit to him and the Century team because they're doing a fantastic job. But we started 7th, we're up to 4th. You know, in layman's terms, we're 3rd. And, yeah, we're just going to keep pushing and see how we get on.
OK, well, we shall keep an eye on it and go back to the screens. Well done. Cheers, Ricky.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, thanks very much, Bryn. Great to hear there from Ricky Collard down in the pit lane, watching as his dad Rob holds on to 4th position at the moment and tries actually to chase down Ian Loggy. He's only about 2.5 seconds behind Loggy at the moment, and looking to try and gain a position before the end of this particular stint of the race. Here comes the 78 car though down towards us, moving up the inside of the number 12 Mercedes, which remember stopped at the side of the track earlier on. Now, Joe Osborne, you've just nipped outside to get a quick weather report from us. What's happening?
Yeah, I actually had to go to the toilet because my bladder's small. The rest of it, the anatomy's big, but it's only the bladder. But it is pouring down. It is really bucketing down. So you're going to start to see the cars starting to get more and more spray. And who's on old wets? That's going to be starting to be a negative. Maxi Gotts, for sure, is going to probably be on the tiredest wet tyres in the GT3 field. Then looking probably at the Lotuses in GT4. And the problem will be the rain that's coming down. This will actually be getting aquaplaning, I think, in the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes if it stays at this rate. It's odd because the cloud base is actually quite high and it's quite bright. It's almost like a cell has just broken over the top of us because it is torrential on the pit straight where we are currently.
It's a good job no one listened to us and went on slicks, really, isn't it? Because we were absolutely convinced that was the right way to go. No, I was with you all the way. But obviously, the teams have a lot more information than we do. Looking out of a fairly limited view from our commentary box window, they have all of the radars and they'll have people monitoring that constantly to figure out what the right thing to do was. And the right thing to do was to stay on wet tyres. So absolutely the correct call was made. Down through the club chicane, meanwhile, comes the fight for 8th position. This is Mark Radcliffe, number 27, Richard Neary, number 8. They both had their dramas in this race, very different strategies for the pair of them, but they find themselves nose to tail now as they head down towards Abbey Corner on what is, for them, lap number 43.
Yeah, and it's going to slow the pace down a little bit more, isn't it? It's going to help the fuel usage drop so stints can be extended. It's now who's got the most pro time remaining. Johnny Adam obviously has the most. He can't go over it, but they have been summoned, interestingly, to race control. So I can't think I've seen anything they've done wrong. As we see a car in the wall, is he going to be able to reverse out of it? Looks like it. Very soft touch there, amazingly so, to be able to drop it and hit a concrete wall and drive away. Really shows the strength of that Audi, and it actually looks fine, doesn't it? If we hadn't picked it up, I don't think the team would have known, and he wouldn't have been dobbed in. But yeah, I think that's Docker there, isn't it? He's had a couple of races at Alton Park as well. I think Audi, Stella run it, and it's a car that's well known, but not in British GT. So I think they're probably just looking to try and find a wet setup, which they probably will just in time for British summertime.
Where it'll still probably be wet anyway. I think that's probably not a bad thing. This then the fight for 3rd position, Ian Loggy versus Rob Collard, and look at that, the visibility getting worse by the second, isn't it? Not by the lap, as the rain really starts to come down now. More and more spray being kicked up up on the run down the Hanger Straight, and Rob Collard is probably coming into his element. Always was known as a good wet weather driver in touring cars, and I think he's transferred that really into his GT racing career now. Ian Loggy no slouch either, whilst Maximilian Gertz is in, so this is from the lead of the race. The last time I checked, Joe, he was about a minute and 14 seconds ahead of Darren Leung, so actually didn't gain a huge amount of time in that stint.
Yeah, exactly. So when Kevin Say drives out and finishes his first fire, we'll see. I expect that gap to be 40 seconds-ish with my mental arithmetic skills being low there. But they're still in the fight, but hasn't quite gone for them having to do this pit stop under green. That's what effectively has hurt them. I actually think the performance from Say and Gotts has been strong today, as we see Collard all over the back of Loggy. Two fiery characters. Collard's got a slight overlap there, but is on the painted surface. You can see the car squirrel, couldn't get the power down. Loggy a little narrow in there. Can Collard get a cutback? One GT4 car, sorry. That Century BMW struggling to actually get traction on its sister car there. That's why I thought it was a GT4. Going to get clear of this one down the back straight there. Then Johnston in that purple BMW as a purple Mercedes is about to leave. Car controller happy it is clear, so let's see where that rejoins. I think even let's start the pit lane, so they've got 22 seconds most probably to get back onto track even when they are released. I can hear it leaving just now.
Yep, down the pit lane it goes. This might be quite close actually, because these two are coming out of Luffield and corner and through Woodcote down towards the timing line. They will go through, I think, but by a huge amount, so Loggy and Collard about to potentially gain a place each, but this is a fascinating scrap between the two of them. Again, they're on different strategies. They both made the same number of pit stops, but at very different times in the race, and so come the end of the race, who knows which one that's going to benefit. Down through Maggots and Beckett's they go. Are they ahead of car 18? Yes, they are. On the tracker, 18 hasn't yet got to Maggots and Beckett's. There it is in the background, but not that far behind you.
No, a lot closer. Like you said, I think the gap was about a minute 13, and the stationary time is 115 seconds, so it's a minute and 55. So that's why I thought it'd be 40 seconds. That was my workings out.
Minute and 13 to the number 1 car, in fairness. They were a bit further ahead of these two.
Yeah. So that's where the time went. So I had the right strategy, but the wrong workings out.
We knew what you meant. Yeah, so they are not that far behind a podium place at the very least, and have now at least made their second pit stops. All of the front-running GT3 cars now, top 8 of them, all having made 2 stops, but some of them made their second pit stop a long time ago, nearly an hour ago, and some of them only just making them now. But Ian Loggy here hanging on to what is now second place from Rob Collard. But yeah, the point I was making is these two cars both having made the same number of pit stops, but they will make their third and final stop at quite different times, and that is significant because they're both going to be putting their, in theory, quicker pro driver in, but at very different times. Whoever has that pro in for the longest amount of time should come out on top.
Yeah, and again, with the conditions getting worse, the more pro time you've got left now is actually going to almost be worth twofold, I think. But just remember, Phil Keane did pit at the same time as Lung and Vantor, but they've really driven away, haven't they now? They're nearly 35 seconds ahead of this car. So down the inside of Johnson there, gets clean, gets gone. A couple of more GT4 cars, the Lotuses, or Loti, I guess, and then the Toyota in the middle of that. So some real battling going on here. Collard, is he going to get it stopped now? He's definitely got the pass done, and he gets it stopped really well, parks it up, and job done, I think, there.
Yeah, Loggy was delayed, I think, by the 14 car coming out of Aintree. Had to tighten his line a bit, and Rob Collard carried that momentum all the way down the Wellington Straight, and in the end made it look easy. So Rob Collard into second position now as they cross the timing line in a moment. We'll give you the gap to the race leader, Darren Leung, who has long since already gone across the line. The gap officially is 37 seconds then, Leung to Rob Collard, but Darren's lap times have been a little bit better than Rob's, of late anyway, so we'll see whether that trend continues. In amongst the GT4 cars, goes past the Toyota that had that tyre come off the rim a little bit earlier on. Loggy not getting the best of luck in the traffic, actually. We'll have to sit behind that Lotus for a corner or two, and that's just going to allow Rob Collard to break ever further away. Kevin Say, by the way, 4.4 seconds behind these two at the start of the lap, but you can see there he's already halved that gap, I think, now to his 2C's teammate Ian Loggy, so that's going to be an interesting battle over the next couple of moments. Towards us, meanwhile, comes Gordy Much. Gordy Much, second place in GT4 at the moment in the Lotus. Again, those top 3 in GT4, all with one fewer pit stop completed than the cars behind. So Zach Meakin in 4th position in GT4, the net race leader, but nice to see the Lotuses both running well, actually. Yes, they're first and second because of strategy and owing a pit stop, but still the cars, touch wood, running faultlessly, looking good and getting quicker with every race.
Yeah, we haven't seen them for a few years, but when we did last year, it won the championship, so it's a very quick car that they turn out from Hethel. Gavin Kershaw, a friend of mine, known him for a long time, does a mega job of developing that car. And now they've got a team like Mahiki, which seems to have good budget and good drivers. They're really able to get some performance out of that car, but look at the rain still falling. It has slowed and abated slightly, but it is still there. So I think that calls the day on us ever getting to slicks in this 3-hour race. You can actually see the corner speed, that Lotus compared to the BMW GT3 car is the same, if not slightly better. The BMW actually struggling to catch it, and I know there's a concertina effect, but that Lotus got a mega chassis there.
Darren Leung is in the pit lane, Joe, by the way, so from the race lead, Darren Leung is in. This is pit stop number 3, so the final time that we will see this car in, and they've timed that perfectly, haven't we? Because we know that under green flag conditions, an hour and 5, hour and 10 minutes, that's about how much you'll get from a full tank of fuel. So this is it now. Then they will stick Dries Van Tor in the car for the final part of the race. Rob Collard, if he stays out, which he does, will inherit the race lead, but this is a pivotal pit stop now then for car number 1 as they come in for the final time in this race.
Yeah, looking really strong. The only thing that will go against them now is a full course yellow or safety car, and others could benefit. But at the moment, everyone seems to be driving sensibly. I've said that on purpose to try and spice it up a bit, but Kevin say down the inside of one of the Lotuses there. But yeah, strategy-wise, they've been metronomic, haven't they? They've stuck to their guns. They did that early stop, which only them and 2C's tried, and it'll be interesting now to see if the 2C's car can start to catch up with Phil Keane behind the wheel.
The Academy Mustang, I'm guessing that's 62, back in the pit lane now and heading for the garage. Yes, 61 Marco Signoretti is still circulating. 62 is showing as in the pit lane, so that is unfortunately their day more than likely done. But this is win-win, really, isn't it, for Century's number 1 car, because they've timed the pit stop right. They're getting the Pro in and getting the maximum out of the Pro in the final stint, but without ever having lost that track position earlier on in the race. They actually had a 35-second lead anyway, so it would take an awfully big slice of misfortune now to deny them the race victory. But of course, in these conditions, the chance for cars slipping off the road is heightened. We're getting into the final hour very shortly as well, where maybe a few mechanical dramas might start to strike. So it's not won yet for Century, but certainly they've given themselves the very best chance.
Yeah, it's going to be when Loggy pits. I think he should be pitting now, this lap. He should be mirroring the strategy there, pulls away nice and cleanly. Vantor looks like he's going to slot into a good bit of space as well. There's a few GT4s in this distance, but again, he just got a lap or two where he can settle it. But look how wet it looks around the middle part of the lap. Mercedes still looking good, but just 1.8 seconds behind Collard now, and obviously that move was done 3 or 4 laps ago, so Collard's pace strong, but Loggy maybe would have been asking a bit more of himself, I think, in this one, as we flick to Van Voor, leaving Maggotts Beckett's complex, and you can just see he's able to get that thing going in a nice space, and that's what you want as a driver on your outlap. Not too much traffic and not too much stress behind you. Ferguson in the Ram BMW, the only car you can see in shot. So yeah, Vantor, I believe, his first British GT race, world-class driver, and it's amazing how you can just plug and play these guys. They just get in the car fast, sliding around all day long, and looks odds on to win the race.
You would have to say so, wouldn't you? He heads down through Club. Rob Collard then inherits the race lead officially now on the timing screen. 3.5 seconds clear of Ian Loggy now, so pulling a couple of seconds on that most recent lap. There goes Rob out of Copse and heading down towards the Maggotts and Beckett's sequence of corners, and a place where he's had plenty of success in the past, Rob Collard, across both his touring car and GT racing careers. Maybe going to come up short on a race victory, but still good points scored. And of course, that's the other factor in all of this. We can keep waxing lyrical about what a great job Century Motorsport have done with the number 1 car, but they're not championship contenders. So actually, in a way, whoever finishes second from a points perspective is going to win the race, and that really is the battle that those 2 cars we just saw on screen are very much involved in.
Yeah, it really is. And I just wonder, we said earlier they're not sharing data between the team. Wonder if he's not coming back for the rest of the year, Darren Lewing, is there a chance that they could have a peek at that and see what's different? Because there's no way, especially Harper, someone that is real class, is that far behind like for like, and it just shows you the subtleties that there are in setting these cars up. There's an infinite amount and more, it feels like, in getting the setup right, but yeah, the rest of the BMW's not looking happy, are they, as we go on board with about 4th at the moment. Still super smooth. Sean always has been a teammate to him in the past, and his data's so smooth. You can see him just working the wheel a little bit. Kevin Say behind him, Johnston in front once he gets past the 69 Lotus. But yeah, they've been under the radar, aren't they? Started strong and have been there. I saw Smalley's stint where he lost to Clotton was the only negative that 59 cars really had so far today.
Car 61. 15-second time penalty added to your next pit stop. Speeding in the pit lane. 61. Speeding in the pit lane.
That wasn't the Mustang being pushed, I assume. I don't think they were that quick. I think it was a sister car. So, yeah, again, easily done. So the easy way to get caught speeding is there is normally a marshal with a speed gun. They do move around, but I always liked the team to at least tell me where he was roughly in the pit lane, so I knew if it's pit entry, I would calm it down a bit, but if he was anywhere beyond, then I'd normally come in a little bit too quick and try and find a bit of time there. And I always thought, as soon as you cross the line, it's quite hard for the marshal to actually work out, is it the speed of the front of the car or the rear of the car as it crosses the line? But yeah, easily done. We don't see it too often in British GT these days, but yeah, 15 seconds is quite brutal, so I assume it's actually quite a high speed over the base of 50Ks.
Yes, you would imagine so. 59 then comes through up a position now into third position, Sean Balfe, having got past Kevin Say on that lap. That's interesting. AM driver passing another AM driver. But Balfe leading in the silver AM category, as you can see, by about half a minute now over the Nearies in Team ABBA Racing. So running strongly in third position overall, and Kevin Say, at least initially in this stint, struggling a little bit. But the race leader, or the car that was leading the race, makes its way around the loop down to 13th position then after that most recent pit stop. Whilst we figure out what's going to happen in the final hour of the race, let's head back down to the pit lane and Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Well, I just ran down to Century very quickly to speak to Dries because I looked at the timing screen and Darren Lung's name was still in that car. So I thought, that's strange. They've come in for a pit and they haven't changed driver. So thought we'd find out what's going on. Why are you still standing here and not in the car?
Well, yeah, unfortunately I had a small issue at our pit stop. Not all the fuel went in, so we had to come in again to put all the rest of the fuel in, otherwise we would have stopped on track. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's still 1 hour to go. But yeah, for sure, it makes life a little bit more difficult, but you never know, with a safety car or something, also everything is possible, but it's not going to be easy.
Very, very strong position before that. You guys look very much nailed on almost for the victory here. So a bit of frustration, but what can you do? When are you expecting to get back in the car?
I guess the last like 30 minutes, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure yet, but yeah, I mean, let's see. I think, like I said, it will be very difficult, but we don't give up. But yeah, for sure, we're now P12, I think, quite a long way back, but let's see.
Anything can happen. Hoping for a safety car, though. Thanks very much, Dries. Thanks a lot.
Joe, you've got a look of incredulity on your face. I don't really believe what I'm hearing either.
Yeah, we don't have the stint time, so they pitted, and I was like, that feels like there's a lot of time for Dries still to do. And even when Darren left the pit lane, it looked so racy, I thought it was Dries. So I've called that wrong. And they're saying they've underfueled it. So they obviously did that last pit stop to the mandatory time, even though they didn't do a driver change. So I'm thinking they can put Dries in and do that pit stop as fast as they want now. But I'm sure in the regulation that the driver change is part of the mandatory pit stop. So even though the time was right, I think the driver change is an element of it. But that's a real odd one, that they've basically underfueled it at some point and didn't have enough fuel in that car for Darren to do the minimum time, which would be 80 minutes, which meant Dries didn't do over 100, and that's why Loggy hadn't pitted. And it really threw me off, basically, because the strategy was so odd, and I was just so used to them not making a mistake. The easy winners of today are the big losers, and that's basically how quickly it can turn around.
After we were just saying that really they've got this not in the bag, but you know, it would take a big slice of misfortune. Well, that was, if you want to call it that, a big slice of misfortune, which has taken them back, not completely out of contention, but either way, they will have to come back into the pit lane because the rule is 3 mandatory driver changes. We keep saying 3 pit stops, it's 3 driver changes they have to make. They will have to put Dries van Tor back into that car for a stint at the end of the race. So a very un-Century Motorsport-like mistake to be made, and it now perhaps puts this car in the pound seat because Rob Collard is leading the race. He is getting away from Ian Loggy. We know that these 2 cars will both make their final pit stops at slightly different times, but all of a sudden it has thrown the race wide open and actually could even bring the likes of Kevin Say and Maximilian Goetz back into this.
Yeah, kind of looking at cars that are running close together. This car we're looking now, Collard 6 seconds ahead of Loggy, who's 9 seconds ahead of Balfe, who's 4 seconds ahead of Say, who's who's 2 seconds ahead of Tilbrook. I think those top 5 are all within a shout, depending on the pro pace and where that car goes. So I think it really blows it open. There's Loggy in second. Balfe should be coming into shot as Loggy gets to the end of this straight. So the top 3 for sure are in the shout of winning this race. There's Balfe, the yellow-fronted, Duckham's liveried McLaren, and then we've got Say just behind that, Tilbrook behind that. So I think that's where we can potentially see the winner coming from. Dries is saying the right things. They're out of it. Just turn the car off, save the fuel, go home, mate. But yeah, it's an amazing, huge mistake. I don't think I've seen a bigger mistake as that. I'd love to know the technicalities of why the fuel didn't go in. Was it not in there? Was there an airlock? Was there a problem with the car? Because that's amateur, that really is. I've not seen a mistake that severe in a long time in a championship like British GT.
Something about the Silverstone 500 though, and these late sort of twists of fate. Remember Balfe a few years ago, they had an issue with the door, didn't they? They seem to have things in the bag as well into the final part of the race. It just keeps on keeping us surprised and keeping us on our toes, the Silverstone 500, which is what we love about it, and a great venue for this race. We haven't seen the cars at full pace today because of the conditions, Joe, but perhaps you can talk us around on board here with the 59 car and try and explain to us just how tricky it is.
Yeah, so coming down the hanger straight, we will eventually get to 6th gear. You can see the large number on the dash, flick up to 6. Braking probably just at the start of the gravel trap in the wet on the left, down to 3rd gear, I'm going to guess, in the wet. Rolls it in, yeah, 3rd gear, slightly offline, pick the throttle up. If there's any traction control coming, a little blue light comes on. No, just the rev lights. In braking interval, got Natara to get past GT4. Bit of ABS, see the lights just flashing. Let the driver know which corner is locked up, roll the car in. You can see the GT4s are good in the mid-corner speed. Slightly softer, slightly more mechanical grip than the GT3s. They're very stiff prototype GT cars. We're now in the generation of blasting down Sir Hamilton straight into new turn 1, as everyone calls it. Abbey, get it in, roll the car in, 4th gear, super fast, 140 kilometers an hour. I can see on his dash there, around the long left, just feathering the throttle. Big snap of oversteer there. So even though the downforce was on, car still struggling. Get it into slow number 1, as the drivers affectionately call it. Slow number 2, coax the front end, don't shock it. Very easy to turn the steering wheel too quickly and shock the front axle and break the slip angle. Feather the throttle through the loop, don't touch the green bit, can be super slippy. Good job, Sean. Down the Wellington straight. Wellington, because of the Wellington bombers that were here in World War II. Into Brooklands, early on the brakes, really slowing the car down because we've got a full course yellow. So that is what surprised me. Gets it down to 80 kilometers an hour. Why have we got a full course yellow? I do not know, but Sean did a mega job there at slowing the car down. You see the lights now flashing on the dash. That is holding him at 80. Are we going to see anyone pit? Is anyone in their window? I'd actually be on the radio to Sean here as a team. Get up to 3rd gear, get up to 4th gear, save some fuel, lower the revs, take the boost out of the car, and you can just save. And that might mean that they can fuel a little bit less at the last stop when they get Smalley back in. But yeah, I think that was a really strong lap from Sean, and I think he's a driver that we know well and we know he's fast, but that was a great onboard lap in these sort of conditions. But we might get a chance to see why the full course yellow is out. I'm just looking at my live tracker now. It looks like there's 2 cars stopped out of this next corner on the left-hand side. It'll be interesting to see have they come together or is it coincidental?
One of them is the 78, according to the tracker, which wouldn't be great for Barwell. The other, the 27. So they were actually in the same battle with Martin Plowman, weren't they? So that would perhaps suggest that something's gone wrong on the way out of Cops Corner. We'll get some news on that as and when we can, but that is the reason for the full course yellow, and it sounds like maybe this might be one of those incidents that sort of becomes a full-blown safety car later on. As always though, it's an opportunity for teams to throw the strategy card again, and into the pit lane comes the number 87 Aston Martin, Joe.
Yeah, so they're just so off strategy. I'm a bit lost where they are, but I think they can get Petrobelli in and out. I think Johnny Adam can't go over 100 minutes of drive time, so this is a free pit stop effectively time-wise, and if it is a large accident there, I think they'll get back in and get Johnny back in, and then they're back in the race potentially. Track position not, but strategy yes. So you can see nice and relaxed there as we go to Rob Collard, race leader. When can they pit? Like we said, there's no pit windows, but the driver can't do over 100 minutes, so Rob can't come in too early to hand over to Ricky, his son, and make him go over that time. So the teams will be working out their math. And this was the negative of a short first stint for some of these AMs that did box under that safety car start. So there's just so many factors to play here. You always need to wait until the third and final stop is done by everyone and then see where people are in the food chain.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it really looked like we had a bit of a handle on how this race was going to go about 20 minutes ago. All of a sudden, everything has changed. At the moment, this is the car that sits in second position, Ian Loggy at the wheel. And of course, because they did make that pit stop so early, he has a lot of his driver time to go. And actually, there's not a lot of driver time left for his pro driver, Phil Keane. So don't forget as well, this car would have that extra 5 seconds to serve at the final pit stop. The other two cars in GT3 that had time to be served at the final stop, we believe, are both involved in an incident on the exit of Copse Corner, so that won't become particularly relevant for them, but it could still matter for this car, because it looks, Joe, like this could be a bit of a tight finish. 5 seconds could make a big difference.
Yeah, and we've seen full course yellow go back to green, but after a long full course yellow, we typically see it go back to safety car to build tyre temp. Interesting question for PT Daily. Do we need that in the wet? It's less important, but it still is important. So the normal rule would be a full course yellow really after sort of 5 or 6 minutes would then go to safety car. So let's keep an eye on that strategy as well. And then the interesting bit, in some of the cars, the 80Ks is a bit faster than others, so we might start to see a little bit of grouping there as well. But the rain has stopped again as well, and I don't think we're going to get back to slick, so I'm going to stop going on about it. But the sun's out a bit, the wind's still there, there's still a bit of spray though, isn't there, even at these low speeds, so I think we don't need to cover that one off anymore. But let's just try to work out who is going to get there. So Petrobelli's on his out lap. Let's see how quickly he comes in. Under full course yellow, he's going to do the same lap time as Johnny Adam, funnily enough, so they might just leave him out a little bit later, to give Johnny some headroom on his stint time if needed.
Indeed so. This, by the way, is the car that still leads in GT4. Tom Wrigley has only made one of his mandatory pit stops, or this car has only made one of its mandatory pit stops. So Wrigley leads by 4.1 seconds, but actually Zach Meakin is the leader, essentially, as into the pit lane again comes the walking wounded number 17 car.
Do you think they should have changed their name from Ram Racing? Because that's what's happened to them twice today. If they were called like National Lottery Winner Ticket, they might have had better luck. So they're coming in, and the car is walking wounded, but performance-wise has actually looked all right. So there is an ambulance on track. So I think the teams will be looking at this as a longer strategy, so they can potentially leave the AMs that are out there a little bit longer, just to open up that window, as 2Cs looked like they're going to, I thought he was going to box then. That was interesting. I assume that was just to cool the tyres, unless the team were saying we may box, and he was just giving them the most possible time to make that decision as the rammed car does its final pit stop, fuel going on. Some of the cars you see have two pipes, so the guy nearest to the pits is the fueler, and the guy on the other side is the breather. Both of them would be breathing, but the breather man is letting the air out of the tank. When you're ramming potentially 100 litres of fuel in, the air comes out so quickly, you want to be able to let that escape so it can come out as quickly as possible. You see the drivers there ready to go, but yeah, they have had a war of attrition, haven't they, in this race?
They have. They seem to have been involved in their fair share of incident, don't they? There is the number 1 car. Now, if this were to become a full-blown safety car again, that's sort of their only lifeline, isn't it? Yes, they still have to make another pit stop, so they're still going to be a long way down the order, but if we were to get a safety car, bunch everyone back together, I think I'm right in saying they're still just about hanging on to the lead lap. That could just be the thing that maybe keeps them in contention.
A bit of a weird strategy. I'm saying it out loud as I think it. If it's going to be a long one, are people tempted to get their mandatory stop done, even if the driver time is up, to just get one of the long stops done, and they can do a quick stop at the end? I'm just not expecting such a long stop. It's going to be interesting to see if anyone goes for a bit of a left field strategy. Anyone outside the top 6 should be thinking like that, dynamically outside of the box.
Right then, let's try and find out a bit about what's going on out on track. Barwell Motorsport leading the race, but their other car, we believe, involved in an incident out on track. Alex Martin was at the wheel, which means Sandy Mitchell is in the pit lane, and he perhaps can shed some light on that with Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, of course, the main thing is that everyone's okay, right? That's the most important thing with these sorts of things. Sandy, for you guys in your race, though, it was looking great, and then you came in for that pit stop just moments before it would have been the ideal time to come in for a pit stop.
Yeah, I think fuel-wise we weren't quite able to stop immediately like a couple of the cars did in the first stint, so we left it one more lap to stop, and then yeah, we were looking really good after that. My pace was really good in those kind of drying conditions, pulled up on the cars ahead, and then yeah, we didn't get our stop in under full course yellow like a lot of the others, so we've dropped back, and yeah, looks like a big bit of contact now has put us out of the race. So yeah, hopefully the other driver and everything is okay, but yeah, real shame for us.
It's a real shame given how you were looking, like you say, when you came in for that pit just there. As you say about the other driver being okay, the news from Alex is that he's okay?
Yeah, he said he's fine in the car, just explaining what happened from his point of view, and that the car is not able to continue. So yeah, unfortunate for us, because it would have been nice for me to get in and try and make up some places in that last stint, but yeah, we'll go for it again at the next race.
Yeah, every cloud silver lining. The silver lining is you won't take any compensation penalty time to Donington.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would have been nice just to score, you know, get inside that top 10, score some points here with the 20-second success penalty. That's all you can really expect. But yeah, we'll go full attack in the next one, and yeah, hopefully be back on the podium.
Thanks for talking to us, Sandy. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryn. Okay, so that's good news that Alex Martin is okay as far as we know, but we'll let the marshals and the recovery crews do their job down there. It does look as though we're going to spend a little bit more time under this full course yellow, which possibly does then increase the chances of us going full safety car afterwards. Meanwhile, activity in the pit lane continues, and that is Giacomo Petrobelli in the pit lane. So you did sort of say it'd be interesting to see what that team did, and they're back in the pits.
Yeah, exactly. So Johnny can go to the end now, but what is going to be the end? 47 minutes remaining. So it's full course yellow still, so I think we will go to safety car because it has been such a long one. All of these pro drivers that are outside the top 6 will be praying for at least 25, 30 minutes of green flag racing so they can really get their stamp on it. But we saw Johnny earlier really struggles with the Lotus, was just released in time to not be an unsafe release there. Good car controlling from Mahiki Racing. But yeah, I think Johnny maybe would have been a little bit puzzled with his pace because Petrobelli was quick, Johnny's quick, knows the car. But the conditions are similar to his first stint, so it'll be interesting to see if he can do anything more. As we see some of the cars just starting to group up. Like I said, it is drying out, isn't it, down there? You can see the dry patches on the outside of the track coming into Stowe. Is it going to be a bit of tyre management going on here? If I was the driver getting in, would I want new wets because they're a bit softer but might go off? Or want an older wet that's worn down but maybe doesn't have the mechanical grip? There's a lot of hard things there to be able to decide as a driver. It looks like Academy with its sole remaining 61 car looking to its final pit stop.
Yes, just looking at the timing screen as well, I think we've had the 29 BMW in now, haven't we, as well? Tom Wrigley back on board, so that's 2 pit stops done for them, but I thought he'd been in the car for the previous stint. I may have been wrong with that, but anyway, they have picked a good time to make that extra pit stop that they owed us. That might just keep them in contention for the GT4 class victory. So the pit lane now the focus of most of the attention, with this full course yellow coming at a pivotal moment as far as race strategy is concerned, and down there perhaps to find out a bit more about that is Bryn.
Well, Giacomo, that was possibly the longest stint we've seen. It was an age that you were in that car for, running it until it was just dry of any sort of fluid at all.
It was completely dry in the end, but given that we started on the safety car and with the wets, we could extend the first stint. Time will tell whether it's the right strategy or not, but we'll try.
Was the idea that you were hoping for a safety car that you could then make use of?
So we were hoping for a safety car or for the track to go to dry, and it's still drizzling, so it never goes to dry. Maybe we'll go in the end, but it's. I don't think it doesn't look like the strategy is going to work for us today.
It'll be drier a minute after we finish racing here. But for yourselves, I mean, the strategy, Johnny was saying they've been keeping an eye on the tyre temperatures and the pressures and what's going on with the conditions outside there. But to make you run so long, that meant that he doesn't have the maximum time he can have in the car as well.
Well, it was difficult for me to manage the tyres because by the end of it, the rears were sort of, the pressures had gone higher and higher and higher. And then we had to manage the sort of driver time. So I did a very long stint and then 1 lap, and that's the end of my day.
We'll go and rest up and we'll see how it plays out. But thanks very much.
Thank you, Bryn. In comes the 67 car. In also, significantly, has come car number 90. That was the leader in GT4, Zach Meekin. So Jamie Day, who has not pitted, is going to inherit the class lead. But I'm still trying to get to the bottom of Tom Wrigley, still, according to the timing screen anyway, being on board car 29, because they have made a second pit stop, but it should have been a driver change, really, from Wrigley over to Ian Goff. And that according to the timing screen anyway, hasn't happened. So we'll await further news on that, but that could have big ramifications in GT4 because, like I said, this was a good opportunity for car 29 to get back into contention. But Meakin in. I'm interested that the number 7 car hasn't followed suit, because I was under the impression, Joe, that they were on fairly similar strategies.
Yes, similar, I thought, within a lap or two, for sure. And Day's got another 5 seconds to serve in his final pit stop, which again, under full course yellow, is a lot better. So, and then his teammate as well, which is up there, Mark Warren, is got 15 seconds. So these guys who have inherited success penalties are really locked in here, being able to do it under full course yellow potentially. Charles Dawson, the other one, those 3 cars all running actually nose to tail. Day being a silver pairing, while Dawson and Warren being pro-am. So yeah, this last stop's really going to shake it up, isn't it? But I think it's really handing it to Optimum, the 90 car, Meakin handing back to Brown. We saw it was fast, and that's why it's so high up there. But they look like they're in control out of the cars that have done the most pit stops at the moment.
You would say so, especially with the number 7 having that extra time to serve, as you said. They both have an extra 12 seconds to serve, being Silver Cup entrants. But it looks as though Jack Brown, it will be, won't it, is going to have a little bit of an advantage. Driver change ongoing here for number 31 as well. That's the Team Parker machine, as Ian Loggy winds his way through Brooklands and is showing as 14 seconds at the moment, obviously at low speed. That's a slightly bigger gap than it actually is in reality, but even so, he's some way behind Rob Collard and presumably will have to stay in the car a little bit longer than Rob would, although all of these laps under full course yellow perhaps benefiting them in that regard. So Loggy works his way past the pit. There is Darren Leung. So Darren Leung down in 9th position, but we know we'll have to hand over to Dries van Thor at some point, staying well off the racing line, even at low speed, Joe.
Yeah, anything just to help. There's no negatives in it. Sometimes as well, you're doing 80, but you can go a shorter distance, which is obviously time. So sometimes it's worth not letting the car run out wide to then have to come back. For example, when you've got 2 right-handers or 2 left-handers following each other. Just looking at the speed traps, actually, annoyingly, it's in miles an hour. So 80 k's is 49.71 miles an hour, roughly. There's a lot of cars in the 48s. So some of the teams haven't quite honed in that 80 kilometre an hour limiter, which normally isn't a huge thing because it's only used for 10 minutes maybe, and you might lose a second or 2. But if it's an extended period like this, it's really going to start to hurt some of the drivers. And when I look at the timing screen on TSL, the one that really stands out at being slow is Balfe in the 59 McLaren, who's actually only doing 48 miles an hour, so 1.7 miles an hour down. Doesn't sound like much, all marginal gains. It's 4% under, as we do see that 61 car finally stop from Academy. I like the fuel positioning on the Mustang, quite provocative in the rear, and you see the fuel cans coming in and dumping in, but they're actually not doing any fuel whatsoever there. I haven't missed a stop and go, have I? They literally just stopped there, not doing anything. Was that a penalty they had to, was that the 15 seconds they had earlier for speeding, I can assume? So serving that penalty at the start?
Yes, that does ring a bell, actually. Car 87, by the way, under investigation for a short pit stop. So that is things going from bad to worse, really for Blackthorn. Johnny Adam back in the car. Right, that is the scene down at the entrance to Maggots and Beckett's. It's the 27 car that's taking a bit longer to recover, and more importantly, the driver of the number 27 car that they were taking some extra care of getting out of the car, that being Mark Radcliffe, but he is out of the car, we believe, now. And that car does not look in the best of health, but the good news, he's out of the car, we believe, largely okay. So I think we are going to be able to take a little look deeper at what went on here. But that is a strange place to have an accident, because it's just out of Copse Corner, but not all the way down towards Maggots and Beckett. So something's happened on the straight, hasn't it?
Yeah, with their positioning on the track, I'd assume the Lambo of Martin has lost it. Mark has gone probably to his right to avoid it. Let's see, I don't have to guess anymore. So so Martin's actually behind, so Mark is the car in front. Let's watch what happens there. There's something going on in front. Oh. Yeah, he loses control, then collides. So it's what I thought would happen, but the other way round. And then watch this impact. That is a solid concrete wall. He is, what, 3 or 4 meters away. Luckily for Mark, he hits it square. Luckily he's in a McLaren with a carbon tub. It pops the window out, and I actually spoke to the team. Let's watch this on board. So Mark's 2 cars in front, runs wide, touches that slippery outside bit, then touches it again, it comes across. Martin, fully innocent, unfortunately. No intention from Radcliffe, of course, just an innocent mistake, but there's enough damage to that Lamborghini where it can't continue. But that was a brutal hit for Mark, and I spoke to the team straight away. Sean Goff, the team principal, texted me, it was just being winded, but I'm not surprised, because that is a big impact. Just watch this McLaren again as it comes back to the left. It hits this solid concrete wall, which is filled with earth behind it. That is a big hit, and for the driver it's always awful going in sideways. There's no real crash structure in the car, but look at the angle of some of those wheels, and that right one isn't even the one that hit the wall, that's the one that hit Martin. So that is a big repair job for the Optimum boys, and they've done a lot of chassis this year as well. That's the only positive, is they're used to doing it. They did one at IMSA last weekend with Brendan Arebe in Long Beach. So those poor boys in Garforth, not poor because they're in Yorkshire, poor because they've got a lot of work to do, but yeah, the Marshalls doing a good job. The positive, everyone's okay, which is obviously the first, but 38 minutes remaining. I think we will get half an hour of green flag running, give or take.
Yes, good. That's good news. Double good news, really. But yeah, that's a shame to see those two out. And of course, the 78 car was a contender, perhaps for a top 5 or a podium finish. But that, coupled with this issue for Century Motorsport earlier on, has really thrown this race wide open, hasn't it? Rob Collard leads the way, owes us a pit stop. Ian Loggy in second place, owes us a pit stop. But Adam Smalley is back in car number 59, and they have made all 3 of their stops. Now, they're going to drop out of third place, I suspect, or will they? Maybe not, because they pitted under full course yellow. Where is the 59 car? Looking at the track, it's just heading into Abbey. So yes, it is probably going to drop behind a couple of other lead lap cars, but they have really bought themselves half a chance at getting back into podium contention. Bear in mind, they have done all of their stops, and I think are going to be about the highest placed car to have done so.
Yeah, and it's now, when's the safety car coming out? And the teams will be frantically working out, are we better to wait a bit longer and actually pit under safety car? You lose less time but lose more track position. The safety car is actually on track there. Can you see it? Yeah. Just going out of shot. The lights aren't on yet, but it will be starting safety car procedure soon, I think. The race director, Peter Daly, will say safety car procedure, then everyone takes the 80k limit off and they'll be able to go. The lorry nice and positive with his turn in there across the Ram car. That would be the third unlucky thing for the Ram car, wouldn't it? Getting hit by a 90s Volvo lorry, spewing out a load of rubbish out the back of it as well. It leaks so much oil, that thing. I don't know, we save some money on the paint here at Silverstone, but we don't invest it on the recovery truck, do we? That will take the short national layout. You can see him indicating nicely, actually. So he'll probably be back in the pits in the next 90 seconds. So we should be able to go to safety car, should get 30 minutes of running. Then who's going to pit? It could be a very short safety car. I think it's too risky to wait for the safety car to do this final pit stop. If you can get to the end on your driver time, get it done in the next lap.
Well, yeah, because you're in the pit lane for the best part of 2 minutes, then you've got to catch back up again, and you could end up getting trapped the wrong side of that safety car based on where you are actually on the circuit. The safety car is down at Stowe at the moment, and presumably trying to find the race leader. Here is Adam Smalley then, so he's coming out of Laffield corner. Where is he going to be? I think he's going to be in 4th position at the moment, but surely within 2 minutes of the race leaders. So I think this car is in a brilliant position now, especially with us about to go safety car, because they're still on the lead lap, but have no more stops to make.
Yeah, I love that bookend. We went under full course yellow with Balfe and left it with Balfe. So great job to the directors there. We bookended that full course yellow on board that 59 car. A bit of debris, I think. I don't think that's radiator blanking, sorry, on the front of Clotton. Just gets past a GT4 car to not get them in the way of him and Smalley. So that Century car of Wrigley and Goff now think they've done their final pit stop. They're still showing as Wrigley. I don't know if they've got a driver ID issue, but they've done 4 trips to the pit lane, 1 for a penalty, and hopefully there are 3 mandatories. But that's right, just going very slowly, isn't it still? I don't know if they've got the message to take the limiter off. There's Darren Durang. Are they back in the mix? Yes, they are. P6. But they haven't done their driver change like the 2 McLarens have in front. So I think you're right. I think Garage 59 at the moment seem to be on top of the tree strategy-wise, and that's because they went long at the start of the race with their Rams. As we see that car pulling off to the side, can't see an obvious problem. Obviously just left the pit lane. What's wrong with that 29 GT4 car?
Well, this is now, unfortunately, giving me flashbacks to Alton Park, because we've got the full course yellow incident dealt with, the safety car's out there, and now we've got another car that needs to be recovered, the number 29 machine. So, yeah, that had been leading in GT4. It was running, it's got going again now, another Control-Alt-Delete. Electrical gremlins, always more common in wet weather races. Hopefully that car will keep going at least back to the pit lane, if not to the checkered flag. Jamie Day, by the way, is in as well now, so it's going to be interesting to see where he comes out in relation to Zach Meekin in the number 90 car, but of course this car was a factor in that battle until they had that stoppage down the Hangar Straight, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. So much still to pan out, but also track position-wise, and the GT4s sometimes get unlucky with where the leader is overall in GT3 of when the safety car comes out, who goes a lap down. We need to wait another lap for the timing screens to update, but a few cars still struggling to catch the back of the field. The Toyota seems to be one of them. I think it's picked up a bit of pace now, but you can see the GT3s being frustrated that they're not there. So 95 is the first one that's been put a lap down, but so Collard has a gap to Loggy. Smith is a lap down, so he's actually not in it after a mega stint. And then same with the 10 car, same with Ferguson, same with Cavey, same with that Audi, same with that Audi. Then I think we then should be getting the 59 car and the Clutton car from Garage 59. I think they're next to catch up, and I just can't believe we haven't had more stops for the last time. It shows that first stint really nobbled them by coming in too early.
Well, that's the problem. Loggy would love to come in, Ram would love to bring him in, but they know that Phil Keen's already done one long stint. His second stint was always going to have to be shorter, and we still have 33 minutes left, so they've got to wait. And that's the one big risk that you take, as you said, really, by making that really early pit stop, is you then force yourself into a corner, don't you? You've got no choice at the end of the race but to just wait for the opportunity to make the final pit stop. But Rob Collard in the same boat as well, and yeah, because the 59 and 77 cars are now going to catch up to the back end of this safety car queue, I think realistically we're looking at Smalley, Clutton, and maybe Jan Mardenborough as the three battling essentially for the win, because Jan in the 23 car, they've also made 3 pit stops. So has Ferguson in the 15. So have Team ABBA as well. So those are the cars actually that are likely going to be filling out the top half dozen places at the checkered flag. In what order, we don't know, but that is the battle, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Johnny Adam as well, potentially, if he got his lap back. That was the hard bit, wasn't it, working out whether he got that back, which I don't think he will because of that penalty for a too short a pit stop, which was actually inexcusable for Blackthorn. I don't get why they did that. There's no risk. You're under full course yellow. You can afford to give up a bit more time, but Johnny Adam does look like he is on the lead lap.
Which could be significant, couldn't it? Right then, before we go back to racing, we saw that little drama for the Century Motorsport car, number 29. We already had some questions over which driver was actually in the car. Hopefully able to shed some light on all of the above is Bryn.
Well, I hope by the fact that I just spoke to Ian Goff that the answer is Tom Wrigley. Otherwise, something else is very much going on. But the answer to the question of what's wrong with the 29 car is it's a power issue. So essentially, they had to do a power cycle. So they're losing power. I said to Ian, how long has this been going on for all race? He said since Alton Park with a wry smile. So I think they've been having a bit of a problem with that car, and it's just bitten them one more time.
So Ian Goff is in the pit lane, so Tom Wrigley has been staying on board the car, but unfortunately that stoppage now knocks them right down the order. Zach Meekin then leads in GT4. Jamie Day is in second position, but isn't showing as having completed a lap. So has Zach Meekin somehow managed to buy himself a lap over the rest of the GT4 field? This is what you touched upon just now, Joe. But depending on where the safety car is and essentially where the overall race leader is, it can split that GT4 pack. Be a real shame if that's the case, but that is what the timing screen suggests.
Yeah, it looks like it from where they are sector-wise as well, in terms of Meeking is in a very similar sector today, but has that lap over him. So, like I said, let's give it another lap. The timing screen just needs that lap. As we see Collard finally pit. Loggy didn't. Say didn't. So those two are there. Collard is going to get Ricky in it, but look at where he's going to be. All of these cars, he's got awful track positions. That's their day done. But they can't, there's no way Ricky with his moustache and his mullet can do anything to overpower that Ferguson pitting to get Marcello in. The Garage 59 guys have played the blinder here, definitely. They've lucked in a bit because they did go long. That looked like the wrong thing to start the race all that time ago, 2.5 hours ago, me telling them they were idiots, so now it turns out they were right. But that's what you can't call the Silverstone 500. One too many pit stops. When do you get rid of it? Everyone's keen to get rid of it at the start. Take it. Yeah. But the way it's panned out, that used their pro time up way too early as we go on board with Smalley, which has got to be our race leader at some point.
Yes, certainly the highest placed of the cars to have made 3 pit stops anyway, but not far behind in Marcus Clutton, who's in the same boat. I'd be interested to see how many back markers are between them. Not many, I would imagine, just the one, Joe is saying. So yeah, that is going to be pretty close between the two of them. And then Mardenborough can't be much further back either. So those three McLarens
safety car
all
in this lap.
All pretty close together. So the safety car coming in then, Joe?
Yeah, all late for these guys. And it shows it's so frustrating. They wouldn't be able to pit because they would have gone over their pro driver time, 100 minutes that we keep going on about. These guys are going to be well over a minute behind the pack when it goes back to green. So I don't think there's going to be much there. The only interesting one is Andrew Howard on our timing screen is only about 5 seconds ahead of the safety car. So he must have just got out of pit exit in front of the safety car. So don't forget a long shot out of here. Howard's just going into the next corner at the end of this straight. So he'll be okay, but again, just too far off it. So let's recap. Smalley, Clutton, Mardenborough, Neary, Roach, Johnny Adam. I think they're the only ones that have got a chance. I think Johnny Adam is a bit too far back with too much traffic. We saw how much quicker Clutton was than Smalley earlier in their stints. Is that going to be the deciding factor? Is this a Clutton and Tilbert race?
Well, it could well be, couldn't it? Confusingly for our director, it's the cars that are sort of halfway through the pack that really we want to be focusing on, and let's not focus on all of the overtaking being done by the GT4 Audi there. There they come, so the yellow-fronted McLaren, the orange and black McLaren, they are essentially the cars, we think, battling for the race lead at the moment. There's a white and blue McLaren in there somewhere as well of Jan Mardenborough. What a story that would be if he could win on his return to British GT. A former winner in that super close finish at Brands Hatch all those years ago, and he is well and truly a part of the fight again. There they are at the top of the screen, the yellow McLaren, the orange McLaren. The red BMW is battling with them for position, but of course owes us a pit stop, and then the white and blue McLaren behind them. Meanwhile, it is Ian Loggie's duty to get the race restarted with 27.5 minutes still to go, and it is car number 6 that leads the way, and for them it's just a waiting game now, waiting until that time ticks down and they can finally get Loggie in, get him out of the car, get Keane in the car for the final stint, but it will lose them the best part of a lap, really, when they do so under green flag conditions. Right now, he's got to try and Scarper, and may well end up taking with him the number 9 machine of Martin Plowman. In fact, Martin might actually have the pace to unlap himself here, being a pro driver. Up towards Copse Corner we go, then 27.25 minutes to go, and the battle to watch is the one right in that ball of spray.
We get this horrible GT4, GT3 mix. The GT3s can't overtake before the line under safety car, so you feel like you're tripping over them. You've got to plan your restart. You've got to start from a long way back and use that catapult effect to cross them just after the line, but not just follow them at a slow pace. You need that bit of slingshot to go. You can see Kevin Say still flashing his lights. You can see that get down the inside. The 22 car there of Lewis Plato. It's hard at the moment to actually know who the pro and the AMs are because there's such mixed strategy. That looks like Callum McLeod there in the Greystone GT Mercedes. I haven't seen much of that car. Oh, Clutton on the grass. He was alongside Smalley. Was that Smalley easing him over? It looked like it. That's probably Smalley's best defence because I don't think he had the pace to hold Clutton off earlier. And I think now there's 28 minutes remaining. Teammates really showing true colours.
And here maybe comes Mardenborough. Mardenborough's got past Darren Leung as well. Perhaps not too surprising, but Jan Mardenborough, the white and blue McLaren, trying to buy into this fight as well. So this potentially is for the Silverstone 500 victory. And Adam Smalley in a whole world of GT4 trouble. Clutton's got a gap on the inside, and through he goes. And Marcus Clutton with a brilliant opportunity to move this contact with the back marker though. And here comes Mardenborough on the inside of the pair of them and gets ahead of both. Jan Mardenborough, perfect track position, and he gets ahead of Clutton, who immediately tries to fight back round the outside into Abbey. The Lotus is in the way, the Lotus is turning in. There is almost inevitably going to be some contact, but somehow Mardenborough's still in front.
Incredible. It was like Lewis Hamilton, wasn't it, in F1 when he swept past to take the lead. He's the Lotus going to go left. Is that going to be contact?
Oh!
Clutton locks up, hits Mardenborough. It's going to get hit again. No. Smalley goes back into lead. How similar was that to F1? Hamilton was like Mardenborough there. Jan Mardenborough, I feel so sorry for you, mate. Absolute class act, first time back in a race car in such a long time, and you look like a fully innocent bystander there. So much going on. So I think Smalley is in the lead. Let's try to ignore these cars in the foreground. Clutton, I think you're going to get a penalty. I think that looked like your fault as my first glaze. So aggressive, Marcus, so good, but just too much there. Neary now, is he the man on the move? 22 years old yesterday, young man on old shoulders. Let's see, look at the pace he's got from that drone shot. Smalley is not happy in these conditions, is he? We saw him being super fast, Alton Park, super fast at Paul Ricard for GT World Challenge Endurance. What's Clutton going to do? He's got to compose himself. I'd love to see a replay of that because it just looked like he broke too late, like he did earlier, locked the rears and just pinballed into the back of Jan Mardenborough. I'm still absolutely gutted for that. What a move from him in the club section, but yeah, let's see what happens there.
Wow, wow, wow. So all of a sudden, Sam Neary on the tail of Adam Smalley with a genuine shot at winning this race, and he's right on the tail, but being caught again by Marcus Clutton, whose car cannot be handling well. It's had a few different bits of contact right at the start of the race, remember, had that bit of damage to the rear. It's now had a knock to the front, to the side, and still he's quick.
You could say it's had more hits than ABBA, which is the car in front with Sam Neary, but he looks fine. I just can't see him not getting a penalty was my first reaction, and Peter Daly's been dishing out the penalties quite rightly, I think, a lot today. For what penalty should that be? Well, Jan Mardenborough's P nowhere now, so it needs to be a penalty that puts him back there. It doesn't look like Neary's quite got the pace on Smalley now, does it? So be interesting to see, can Clutton get back past him and take a fight to him and try and fight it in the stewards afterwards, but yeah, got great drive out of there. Let's see if he can get away without hitting someone on this move. Nice and smooth, unwind the lock. Is Neary going to try and get back? I think Neary's probably best bet here is let Clutton go and let him crash into Smalley, take them both out, and then he can just cruise round like the Dancing Queen and take the race win potentially.
Very nice, yes, through Abbey corner, they go, I should say. Sam Neary then letting Clutton go, but this is essentially the battle for the race victory. It's not for the lead at the moment. It's still Ian Loggy who leads the way by about 3.2 seconds at the start of the lap over that blue and purple Mercedes of Kevin Say in second place.
87, stop-go penalty, short pit stop.
87, that one. Oh, that's Johnny Adams.
Second one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for it to happen once is strange. Two, unheard of, really.
Consistency is key.
Car
Exactly
11,
so.
drive-through penalty, full course yellow, speed infringement.
That was car 11, Blake Anglis, 5th place in GT4, then also picking up a penalty. But this, the battle then, perhaps, for the Silverstone 500 victory. McLaren on McLaren. Adam Smalley versus Marcus Clutton, round 2. And Clutton looking to try and take that wider line through Luffield, tries to carry the speed towards Woodcote Corner. We've got 22.5 minutes to go. And not for the first time, the Silverstone 500, a 3-hour mini endurance race, is going to boil down to a 20-minute sprint.
This is really punchy, isn't it? So we've got a replay. What are we looking at here? Look at Jan in the background. He's going to inherit the lead in the next 30 metres. Clutton does great down there, but has to overslow it to not hit the Lotus, then hits the Mercedes. Jan just sweeps through. Amazing vision by Clutton to even see him there, because there's not an overtaking spot. So this is Seb Morris that got the hit from Clutton. We're going to see going through, sweeping. Smalley's probably going to go past on our right soon as well. Then the GT3s all pan out. We then get a Lotus spinning, don't we, somewhere in this pack? Is it the car 2 in front on the left that we just can't see now? It's popping in. Is this the car that then spins? We're going to see then Clutton going down there. There goes the Lotus, and Clutton in the... That was amazing driving by Seb Morris. I think he just clipped him, but I think he got away with that one. But that was action-packed, wasn't it, to say the least? So here's the context. It doesn't look like... I thought maybe Smalley and Clutton hit, and that caused Clutton to go deep, but I think that was all on Clutton. It's hard as a commentator to call it. Marcus is a great guy, wouldn't have been intentional, but it does look like he's made a mistake there. But he's still on the front foot. He can still win the race on the road, I think. It's going to be a really difficult one to see where it goes. Ian Loggy finally able to hand back to Phil Keane, but by the time they get out there, they're literally going to be nowhere, potentially a lap down.
Marcus Clutton in the background still hasn't found a way past Adam Smalley. They've actually nearly caught Kevin Say for what would now actually be the race lead. Say inherits the lead with Loggy pitting, but look, it's the McLarens behind that are dicing for what should be the race victory. Clutton tries to get the switch back. He's got the overlap. He's got the inside line into Aintree, and he goes through into second place at the moment, but the net race lead, and that time it was squeaky clean. A perfectly judged switchback manoeuvre on the exit of the loop, but now can he get away?
Penalty, full course yellow infringement, speeding.
29's not really in the races, we don't need to post, but the Garage 59, Andrew Cacoldi, team boss of Garage 59, those two cars running so close, like Garage 118, they're so close. Clutton's got the pace, we saw it earlier, I thought this would happen. Neary's not really got an answer, has he? He can't stay with those two McLarens, unfortunately. Got the Aston in the background, but that is not in the fight. Another drive-through going there as well, so how's this going to pan out? 20 minutes? I think Clutton needs to get his head down and hope the penalty he gets is smaller than the gap that he's going to have to Smalley in sort of 11 laps time.
The problem was, though, it wasn't Smalley that he hit, it was Mardenborough, and sometimes, because that car's lost so much ground, the penalty has to sort of match that, doesn't it? So we'll wait and see what the decision is. In GT4, things are not quite as close, because Zach Meakin isn't quite a full lap ahead of everybody else, but he very nearly is, because he is 2 minutes and 13 seconds up on second-place man Jamie Day, with Charles Dawson now up into third position as well. That 31 car that I'm sure we just saw involved in the contact with the Lotus up at Farm Corner into a podium place.
It should be Seb Morris in that car. I hope it's the timing screen with the wrong name and they don't owe us a pit stop, but yeah, I couldn't see from the onboard if it was Morris, but it should be Morris. The pace is good, but I mean, to be fair, Dawson's such a fast arm. Kevin Say has lost the lead. This Audi is not part of the battle, but doesn't seem to really mind about getting involved. He is now clear. Marcus no still there. Hugo Cook still fighting with his elbows out. Clutton is clear. What can Smalley do? Neary now catching on the back of it. If Smalley's held up a little bit, Kevin Say defending there. Is that sort of Mercedes honour trying to help him? I'm not sure. Different teams, I wouldn't have thought so. I think that is just aggressive driving from Kevin Say.
Team manager car 77 to race control, please.
Marcus Clutton.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I mean, Smalley's windscreen's bad again, isn't it? I don't know how he attracts all the dirt, but it's getting difficult again. But he is past Say. Say looks down the inside, but backs out of it. Neary there. Is he going to let Neary have a bit of an easier time? No is the direct answer on that one, isn't it? Is he going to hang it around the outside onto the slippery painted bit? Oh my God, it looks so slippery, doesn't it? But he's gone. Now can he chase back down Smalley? What do you think is a fair penalty for Marcus Clutton?
Oh, that's a nasty question.
That's
I mean, where did Mardenborough end up? Mardenborough lost something like 20-odd seconds, didn't he? So, I don't know. I mean, a drive-through penalty would probably drop him back behind the number 23 car, wouldn't it? But thankfully, that's Peter Daly's decision, not mine. We're just here to react to it as and when it happens. In comes Kevin Say then. That is the final pit stop being made for the number 18 car. But if there is a penalty incoming for car 77, then it means that the job now for Sam Neary is simple. Catch and pass this car, and you are the winner of the Silverstone 500, but Adam Smalley ain't going to make that easy.
Really not. Even feel even more sorry for Mardenborough because his pace is good enough to have won this race, as well as we go to a replay of this Ginetta GT4 just getting loaded up by the Breakall one-off entry. That was really quite brutal. And normally the Ginetta good off the corner, so I can only assume the Mercedes there has just sort of misjudged potentially the length of the front of that car. It is a long car, but that was pretty brutal by the 25 car.
It was indeed. In then comes Say, so this is the final driver change, tyre change as well. Max Gertz will get into the car, in fact already is in the car I think, and getting ready to go. Where he comes out in relation to Phil Keane, I guess is the question, isn't it? Should be some way just behind, because of course he's lost a bit of time through slicing and dicing with the McLarens. There is then your race leader, Asterix, Marcus Clutton, for now anyway. He hasn't yet been given a penalty, but as we said earlier on, once the team manager's summoned to race control, it often is a sign that a penalty might be on its way. And in the background, look there, Darren Leung still owes us a pit stop, remember, as well, but still continuing on, and I guess maybe hoping for another safety car?
Yeah, I guess. Or he's just enjoying himself now. Not in the championships, you might as well get some laps enjoying yourself, Darren. Tom Roach, I think that car's
car
been...
77, stop-go penalty for causing a collision with 23.
Totally agree with it. Stop and go slightly harsher, adds another maybe 3 or 4 seconds, but sliding it through there. Marcus will be devastated, livid, angry, all of those emotions into one. I've had it before when I've been in the car and I've made a mistake similar to Marcus, and you somehow trick yourself into, I wasn't guilty, this is unfair, this is unjust, and then in the cold light of day when you watch it back you go, what an idiot, like why am I so thick, and you get angry again, but a different reason. Got 3 laps to serve it. You almost better serve it sooner rather than later to give yourself a chance to maybe get some positions back. But hands it back to Smalley then, Neary second, and Maxi Gotts at the moment on the timing screen third, but potentially Tom Roach, I think, by the time the timing screens work themselves out, could be quite tight.
Indeed so. Sam Neary, by the way, matched Adam Smalley's pace on that lap, so 1.4 seconds is the gap, but it does seem that when Smalley's in clean air, he's a bit quicker than Sam Neary is in clean air, but we'll wait and see whether Sam can maybe find just a little bit of inspiration that he needs to challenge still for the victory. There is Jan Mardenborough. I agree with Joe, I really do feel for him. He drove brilliantly well there, and what a magical story that would have been if he could have won the race. He's still on, though, for a top 5, because he will get back ahead of Clutton, after Clutton serves that penalty, so a top 5 finish on his return, not that bad a result. Ricky Collard moves up a position as well, as there Adam Smalley nips up the inside of the Audi, which, as we've said, Hugo Cook at the wheel of is 1 lap down, which leaves 14 cars now on the lead lap. Smalley just needs to keep his composure here, doesn't he? Not make any mistakes, not get tangled up with the back marker. I think he's got the pace to win this, but with Sam Neary within a couple of seconds, the pressure's on.
Yeah, Neary's not that far away, is he? So I think he's got enough. Looks like he was quite calm behind the wheel there. He'll just be coaxing it home. Engineers, we're talking to him, 14 minutes remaining. Just bring it home, ignore Marcus. We don't need to match him on pace, but his pace is amazing, isn't it? 3.5 seconds already he's pulled to Smalley, but where's he going to slot in? He is, like you said, I think he's going to slot in behind Mardenberg, but in front of Collard, so I think they're going to finish 6th, which at points today they probably would have taken, but then suddenly with that last long full course yellow, the strategy coming to them, they have lost a race win today, and that's going to be a bitter pill for them to swallow.
It is indeed, especially because of the pace they're showing now. I mean, they have this in the bag if there wasn't the penalty to come, but, well, Marcus Clutton and Morgan Tilbrook, decent points on the board. That's what they needed, really, after that non-finish in race 2 at Alton Park last time out. And at least they should now be able to bank some points. But this car that, as Joe said earlier on, is not the car that they raced at Alton Park, has a bit of TLC required after the race. It's fairly battered and bruised. It's taking a tight line out of Luffield and is heading for the pit lane. So Marcus Clutton from the lead of the race, serving a stop-go penalty for that contact with Jan Mardenborough earlier on, which means that Adam Smalley now moves into P1, with Sam Neary, I think, a little bit further back now than he was a lap ago. So as in comes Clutton to serve the stop-go penalty, let's get the thoughts, this should be interesting, of his co-driver Morgan Tilbrook.
Yeah, Andy, Marcus just drove past us there for that stop-go. Morgan, it's very tough for you, isn't it, to watch on and see that sort of thing happen. What's your thoughts, your opinion?
Yeah, at the end of the day, rules are the rules. You know, I feel, you know, it's hard for Peter to make these decisions. You know, he knows that he upsets us when it happens, but the rules are the rules, and unfortunately Marcus, you know, had some contact there that gave us a drive through. It's a bit upsetting. We were here last year, and we were on the podium last year, and then we had a safety car that killed our race, like it has for Ian and some of the other guys. So hasn't been lucky for us the last few years, and third time lucky maybe next year. But you know, Marcus has driven amazingly. You can see that he's left, you know, he's left the pack. And but if you're gonna win races, you've got to take risks, and when it's wet, you're going to outbrake yourself sometimes.
Did you know what he said on the radio that you can repeat live, of course, on this particular broadcast?
Yeah, I've not had the radio one, but I can imagine it's been quite quiet and, yeah, just disappointed. You know, he's driven an amazing race. So, yeah, just very disappointed, and hopefully we'll come back and we'll do better next time. And, you know, great that Garage 59 car, Smalley, hopefully might win if he can keep it going. So there'll be some celebrations in the garage.
You guys bounce back at Donington. Cheers for chatting to us. Thanks, Morgan.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brim. Well, this is really how it all went down. It looked like this was an inspired move by Clutton up the inside of Adam Smalley, then contact with the 31 Mercedes. Mardenborough came through, 3 different leaders in 2 corners. That was brilliant, Joe. Sadly, it all ended in tears.
Just a rush of blood. There was 20 minutes at that point to go. Marcus knew he was fast. He didn't have to get back past either Smalley or Mardenborough at that point, coming into that slow second gear corner, and just locked the brakes and went on. I have to say, fair play Morgan Tilbrook. Yeah. Very, very calm, completely correct with his analysis, not let adrenaline. You've got to remember how much money, time, effort they invest. So for him to go fair play, Peter Daly's made the right decision, and he didn't even throw Marcus under the bus. No. He knew Marcus had been quick, and come in with a driver that... Marcus is a hustler. He gets any car quick. The negative is that you're on the edge, and that's what happened. He was 1% over the edge, and that's why they're not going to win today. And I even think he was being sincere when he was happy for the sister car to win. Whereas whenever I've said that, I've been so sarcastic. I haven't been able to hide it. But yeah, it's now sort of calmed down a little. I wonder if anyone's going to go on slicks.
Well, someone's got to now, haven't they? We were talking about it for nearly 3 hours. Interestingly, Clutton has rejoined the track, and at the end of his outlap is 0.6 of a second behind Jan Mardenborough. So they've found each other again, and they're battling actually still over 4th place. So you made the point, it's still a good point stay this, and it's certainly not a position to be stiffed now. So Clutton's going to be probably almost as aggressive in trying to find a way through still, because it's still for a solid position, and they are only 8.5 seconds behind Tom Roach. So a podium maybe a step too far, but he's going to give it a good go, that's for sure. Down towards the club chicane, though, comes Adam Smalley. That is the margin that he's got over Sam Neary. It's just eking out 10th after 10th after 10th. Sam Neary, try as he might, just can't quite keep pace with the race leader. And he is going to be pretty satisfied, I think, still with second place, though. When did they start, Team ABBA? They were 15th on the grid. The 59 car was up there on 4th on the grid, of course, so perhaps slightly less surprising to see them doing well. But third placed number 67, they started 13th on the grid. The number 23 car that sits 4th started 17th on the grid. So we made all that fuss yesterday afternoon, Joe, about how important qualifying could still prove to be. And actually, what we've learned again is that it doesn't really matter where you start. It's your fortune and your strategy over the 3 hours. With that,
Car
if it all goes right, it can overturn
stop,
anything.
Go penalty, causing a collision.
So that's the brake called Mercedes on the Ginetta, wasn't it? Club.
With car 56.
Thank you. I just did that for you, Peter, but thank you, mate. So yeah, I mean, damage on the front of the orange car as well. I don't remember actually when that happened to me. Was that the first lap when they all bunched up and Tilbrook's car got hit and the Audi was involved? But yeah, it's been really, really punching. Is that Clutton and Marderberg together? Now that is awkward. That is really awkward. Like, is Clutton just going to overtake him and carry on and pretend it never happened? A bit like if you get in a lift and you have a bit of a movement with your bottom half and it gets smelly, you try and pretend it never happened, but everyone knows it just did, really. And yeah, I actually think I'd have enough compassion to go, really sorry, Jan, I'm not going to overtake him. But I don't think Clutton's like that. He's not as nice as me.
Well, he wants to try and finish one place higher if he can. It is still 4th position that they're battling over, and they just went across the timing line, less than a car length apart. So I think Clutton's going to give this a good go. If nothing else, try and force the mistake maybe out of Jan Mardenborough and use that as his opportunity to move through. Down the hanger straight, though, goes Adam Smalley. Just under 3 seconds now, the lead over Sam Neary. A personal best sector as well in Sector 2 on the previous lap for Smalley. So he's giving this a real effort. Really the only driver in GT3 setting anything like personal best sectors right now. The tyres are warm. The track is right in that really awkward stage where it's not really wet, it's not really dry, the tyres aren't really working properly, and yet Adam Smalley going quicker than he has been so far this race.
Do you want a boring fact?
Of course.
The first 3 are silver AM cars. So their driver, their pro, is not a gold. I don't remember that last time happening. Normally, being silver AM is only a negative. They don't get any positives in the pit stops like the GT4 Pro-Ams do over the silvers. So it's actually been an amazing day for some of these drivers. And I think sometimes maybe it looks like I've been critical of Smalley saying how quick Clutton was. This is his first year in GT3. He's come from Porsches, the engine's in the wrong place. He's had to relearn how to drive a car and relearn a GT3 car on the limit. So it's been difficult for him, and he's done a really good job. And they're going to, I think, win the race today. Balfe was really steady, wasn't he? And he's done a good job likewise as we cut back to GT4. Seb Morris didn't score him much there, only 3/10 second over the line. Is this going to be a swap of position? This is for the final podium position overall in GT4, but Pro-Am lead in GT4. Look at the power of that Lotus. Got such a mega run. Seb needs to brake as late as him. Hold him out. You're going to ease him out, Seb. Go on, just take a bit of lock off. Give him a little nudge. And Much is clear. What a move. Gouldy is on the move. Fastest in qualifying yesterday in his session, so we know he's quick, we know the car's quick. What's Seb got? Dives down to the inside. More of a feint to try and distract rather than anything else. Has opened the corner better. Bit of a slide for Much. Go on, is he going to rub him? They've been so clean today, these boys, aren't they? They're very, very considerate.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget this car did have that contact earlier on with the other Lotus that had the spin. Wonder whether that's maybe not the tracking out or the steering. It was on the right rear corner, I think, really, where the worst of that contact was. But some irony now that the other Lotus has just overtaken them for 3rd position. It's the other side of the car, I suppose, that might be showing some damage. Doesn't look too bad, but it doesn't take a lot sometimes, does it, to sort of quite drastically affect the handling of the car.
Yeah, especially with like the tracking at the rear, you're only talking about 1 or 2 mil, which I tell the ladies is a lot, but really it's a small movement, and you want those rear tyres pointing in to create stability. They've been tweaked out. The thing feels like a shopping trolley, and suddenly the car's undrivable, as we do see Clutton still behind Mardenborough. This is the most awkward sort of battle I've ever seen in my life, but fair play to Jan. He's cracked on, and the pace has been amazing for the limited running he's had. I think he has been probably my driver of the day, I would go with.
Yeah, because he's got quicker as well, I think, as the race and indeed the weekend has gone on. Obviously, the position has improved as the day's gone on through strategy and a bit of good fortune, but his individual performance has been really, really strong, and he demonstrated some fantastic racecraft with that move at Club Corner down towards the braking zone at Club. And of course, don't forget, this is not only for 4th place, but also for a victory in Pro-Am. It's not quite the victory that either of these drivers or teams would have been hoping to be fighting for come the end of the day, but it is for a class victory. And for that reason, if nothing else, I think Marcus Clutton is still going to be pretty well incentivised to try and make a move if he can. Perhaps not into the braking zone at Village, where it all went wrong a number of laps ago. That's the part of the circuit that we're heading towards now. And actually, he dropped back there slightly as they went through the sort of second half of the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. Does close in under braking. The 77 cars look very lively under braking all race long. I think very effective, but perhaps on a bit of a knife edge, which on more than one occasion has nearly caught him out.
Yeah, they're really slipping and sliding. It's got to that greasy stage. It's quite odd that you think the track's only drying because it has stopped raining finally, but it isn't quicker in this greasy stage because you actually get a bit of friction off the water. So when there's a bit of spray, you actually get a bit more bite. When this greasy stage, it just rolls around on it, and it's this just low ambient temperature that's stopping the track from drying, and it is really hard work as a driver. You're constantly on eggshells trying to find the grip, looking for it, trying to roll more speed in, but a little bit too much and you can't turn the car in and you lose time on exit, and it's changing constantly. So you think you've got a good sort of idea of where to brake, where to turn, what speed to carry, then suddenly the track changes a bit and you've got to reinvent the wheel again. So this is super hard work for the drivers to keep on top of their performance and their pace.
Ricky Collard, by the way, taking over a second a lap out of these two. He's 7 seconds back now. That would be the 3rd placed Pro-Am car, 5th place overall. But unfortunately for him, we're into the final couple of laps, I think, as Clutton hurls the number 77 car over the curbs down at Beckett's corner. Definitely not settling for anything here is Marcus. He wants to try and have another go at getting past the number 23 car if he can. Onto the Hangar Straight they head. And is he within striking range as they head towards Stowe Corner? I don't think he is, but maybe just close enough to force a mistake out of Jan Mardenborough. That's what he's hoping. Jinks to the inside line from a long, long, long way back. Tries to get the overlap. Sort of spooks Mardenborough. Jan didn't dare turn in, especially given their history a few laps ago. But in the end, the wide line at Stowe still proving to be the quicker. And actually, you could see the amount of spray that was being kicked up by the 23 car out there. It's a lot wetter on the outside line. And to Joe's point, that actually is the bit of racetrack you really want to be on.
Yeah, it keeps the tyres a little cooler as well. Yeah, I thought Clutton might stay behind, but I think this is actually a fair battle now on pace, and you can see how much Clutton's hustling it, sliding the car around, just working out, is this going to be our penultimate lap, just working out where Smalley is on track. I think it is going to be actually comfortably. I think you actually crossed the line probably just under 2 minutes remaining, so they've only got one more lap after this one to sort out what position and order they should finish in. But yeah, Ricky Collard's pace is a real standout one there, isn't it? Smalley as well, he's improved a little bit more and more. Just look at some of those names that we thought were going to be up there. Maxi Gotts with Kevin Say, P12, Vantor, obviously problem with the fueling, like Marciello, everyone really outside of what we're used to seeing. Just getting car 29 and 47 going to be investigated after the race at turn 11, so interested to see where that one goes.
Yeah, it's been a busy day, hasn't it, for car number 29. It's really been involved in it. It's had a couple of penalties already and maybe a third one on its way. Here, though, comes your GT4 leader, Jack Brown, sharing the car with Zach Meakin. And through a bit of good fortune, they inherited a big lead, but they likely would have had an advantage over Mikey Porter anyway in this final stint, just as well, because Mikey is on the previous lap was 7 seconds quicker than them.
I think they're backing off to let Smalley and this McLaren overtake them on this lap, so they don't have to do an extra lap. Like I said, Optimum based up north Yorkshire, counting the pennies. Artura GT4, about £10 a kilometre in running costs, 5.8 kilometres, nearly 60 quid. You could get maybe the team dinner with that one. So I think that is I hope that is the reason. So the Optimum car is just on the exit of this corner to our right. And if he just lets Smalley go, he doesn't have to worry about doing a whole nother lap.
Well, what a fantastic performance this has been, though, from the number 59 McLaren that, as I said, started 4th on the grid. Weirdly, none of us really mentioned it as a potential race winner. We were far too distracted by the 2Cs car, the Century BMW, the Barwell Lamborghinis, but through it all, it is car 59 that has emerged as the race winner, it would seem. They're within half a lap now of claiming the checkered flag, and Adam Smalley is the man who will have the honour of bringing the car home to claim victory in this prestigious race. Sean Balfe, in fairness, in his stints, did the job as well, didn't get involved in any silliness, didn't make any mistakes, no penalties, no pit stop dramas. Then they got lucky with that full course yellow towards the end of the race, and that ultimately is what has put them in race winning position. Down the Wellington Straight they go for the final time. Sam Neary gave it his best shot, but really once that battle sort of fizzled out and Clutton served the penalty, Smalley has been comfortably quick enough to pull away from Sam Neary, and so it's going to be a silver AM, but more importantly an overall race victory. There, look, is the GT4 race leading car. We could get a really nice photo finish here with both the GT3 and GT4 winners crossing the line pretty much simultaneously. Adam Smalley will put a lap on Jack Brown. He will come out of Woodcote Corner, he'll see the checkered flag, and he and Sean Balfe will win the Silverstone 500 for 2024. Another phenomenal edition of this great race, and in the end the winning margin is over 5 seconds. Sam and Richard Neary will be very happy though still, I think, with a podium finish, whilst it looks as though we're going to have 2 McLarens on the podium, with the number 67 example due through any moment. Here they come, Simon Orange and Tom Roach on the overall podium, and as Joe said, the top 3 cars all silver AMs, which is quite a remarkable turn of events. Mardenborough comes home 4th, gets the better of Marcus Clutton then for the Pro-Am victory in GT3. Jack Brown has already claimed the overall and Silver Cup victory in GT4. But right now, all of the celebrations are going to be held down at Garage 59 after a wonderful performance.
Really good. If it's a yellow-fronted McLaren, it wins its class then, basically. So
yeah,
really, really good job. And yeah, sometimes you try and call the strategies on this race, and the amount of manpower and hours and stress that would have been put in to the strategies to really be blown wide by all the safety cars and full course yellows at sensitive times. Sean Balfe there. Mechanics there pretty strong. Told Sean he's a super fit athlete, but the cycling he does, his legs like Chris Hoy, the guy's so strong, the brake pressure he gets from that. Mega job by Garage 59 there. That could have, should have been a 1-2 as well, shouldn't it? That's probably what they'll be thinking when they wake up tomorrow morning. But yeah, Sam Neary, mega job. And then I think the orange motorsport car of Tom Roach and Simon Orange really under the radar, completing our podiums, a mega day for them.
Absolutely so. So a good day to be in a McLaren, isn't it? 3 of the 4 classes won by McLarens, actually, GT3 and GT4 overall. But then also, obviously, within Silver AM in GT3, Silver Cup in GT4, Pro Am in GT3. The only non-McLaren win, I think, is going to be for the car that just crossed the line, and that was the GT4 Lotus, which came home 3rd place in the hands of Gordy Butch, but wins in GT4 Pro Am by 3.3 seconds in the end over the charging Seb Morris, who almost got back into podium contention there right at the end. But apart from that, it was McLaren's victorious, despite not always looking like the fastest car, certainly in qualifying, overshadowed, I think, by the Lamborghinis and the Mercedes, but McLaren to the fore by the end of the race.
I think the strategy played to the McLaren because they couldn't pit early because their fuel usage is the worst in GT3. So everyone that stopped early looked like the heroes. They couldn't. So actually they fell upon the perfect strategy is how I'd look at it. Similar with the Lotus, they went really long, didn't they, at the start, because they couldn't stop early. So sometimes you need luck, sometimes you need skill. A mixture of the two, perfect combination, that's how you win. Smalley pointing where, you can't actually see where he's going probably, but the marshals will stop him underneath the podium and the team will celebrate with him. But yeah, mega job by that. Look at how dirty that car is, and you just can't believe how small bits of corner going just drags all this detritus on. And it just gets harder and harder to see, but I think they need to probably look at fitting a windscreen washer to that car going forwards.
Yeah, not a bad idea, although limited visibility or not, he's done the job and he gets out of the car. Adam Smalley will momentarily run over to celebrate with the team, and Garage 59 victorious in the Silverstone 500 in 2024. Adam Smalley and Sean Balfe with a fantastic drive, the pair of them, and can't wait to go and celebrate with the team. There we go, there's the moment, the camera lights flash, and Adam Smalley is a winner of British GT's biggest race. And I'm sure Sean Balfe's not far away either to join in those celebrations. Shout out to the Nearys as well. They needed a good result, really, I think. It's been a while, really, since we've seen them on the podium for one reason or another. And yes, okay, Sam will probably be a bit disappointed that he couldn't go after Adam Smalley at the end there, but nice to have them back on the podium.
Yeah, exactly that. And you think they had a drive-through and a spin.
Yes.
They've done even more. If only they didn't. I think they would have been in the mix. The Merc didn't look like it quite had the pace to bear, to be fair, today. So, yeah, I think that's a really good result for them.
Well, lots to unpack after what was a fabulous edition of the Silverstone 500. Let's catch up with our winners with Bryn Lucas.
Well, we've got this unusual situation now where Sean Balfe is trying to find his way through the barrier here to say well done to Adam. But Adam, for yourself, here comes Sean now. Just congratulate your teammate there. Let's have the embrace.
Big one.
That was a race that had it all, I think, for us all watching on, both of you here. I mean, that had everything. It ebbed and flowed the whole way. Safety cars, virtual safety cars, the whole lot. For yourself, start with you, Sean. Let Adam catch his breath there. You watching on. It came to you guys so beautifully.
It's all a little bit of a blur. I mean, the Silverstone 500 has a tendency to just be, no strategy works. You have to react in the moment, and there was times where maybe we were thinking, have we got this right? You question yourself, but we were hanging in there, and certainly, you know, as the race progressed, I think the car came good, the setup worked. We did sort of plan for the car to be better as the race went on. But with all that, you need a good teammate and a good car and a good, you know, yeah, it just worked today.
It certainly did just work today. And just looking over your shoulder here, you see the big, shiny, green Mercedes, the number 8. That thing was breathing down your neck a fair bit, Adam. You really had to stay composed right to the end, and then you managed to start stretching the lead again.
Yeah, honestly, I'm still speechless, and I don't think my tears have quite dried yet. Massive thank you to Sean. He did an absolutely stunning job, and everyone at Garage 59. You know, it's my second ever GT weekend, winning the Silverstone 500. You know, a lifelong sort of goal accomplished. But a massive thank you to everyone, you know, Duckham's USA, Car Finance 24/7, and all my sponsors. I still can't believe it.
Don't retire just yet. See you at Donington, but go and get your trophies. Well done, gents. Well done.
Sean, thank you.
Good stuff there from our Silverstone 500 winners. Richard Neary wanders over to congratulate them as well. And it is a McLaren on the top step of the podium here at Silverstone, which it didn't look like it was going to be, really. There were 3 McLarens fighting for the victory in the closing stages, but it was this one that steered clear of all of the drama and came home a race winner. Fantastic performance from Garage 59, and of course, like I mentioned earlier on, a bit of retribution maybe for that race that Sean will feel he lost a number of years ago here at Silverstone, where he came so close. The final pit stop, the issue with the door, they were in a race-winning position and weren't quite able to do it. Nice for Sean to be able this time around to put those wrongs right. So Garage 59 able to celebrate them, and Bryn, I believe, is now able to catch up with another victorious McLaren team, this time in GT4, and it was the number 90 Optimum Motorsports squad who came out on top, Bryn.
Well, it's not supposed to happen that way. Silvers aren't supposed to be able to win the Silverstone 500 because of the extra 12 seconds per pit stop, but both of you, you've done it.
Yeah, it's been a mega race. Me and Jack both drove our hearts out. It's been a very good weekend for us.
It has, and that's been the key to it, really, hasn't it, Jack? I mean, consistency throughout the entire weekend, through quali and into the race, when the race was not consistent.
Yeah, no, the race wasn't consistent. You know, I think I did a mega job in my first stint. I think that helped us out a lot. You know, the team did great with the tyres. They were on point for most of the race. Yeah, everything just fell into place. It was really good.
I look back to your season last season, and you started off brilliantly with a different teammate, obviously. Yeah. Started off brilliantly, and you look at Donington as the next round, and you performed brilliantly at Donington last year as well. So, Zach, I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversations going on now, but so far, 2024 looks like it could be, I don't want to commentators curse it, but it could be your year.
Yeah, we said that last year, but we'll have to wait and see.
What are you going to bring to Donington?
As much as I possibly can be, as quick as I can be, and the better me.
And some pit stop compensation penalty time as well. Look, go and get the trophy. Well done, gents. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bryn. So yes, it was Optimum Motorsport victorious in GT4, and they were again really up there the whole time, but didn't seem to lead a lot of the race, really, Joe. It was sort of the same for the Aston Martin they were battling with. They were always kind of a pit stop ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, Porter and Day looked so quick at times, didn't they? And again, although it stayed wet the whole time, the levels of wetness really changed. I have to say, I think if Mardwell was my driver of the day in GT3, I think Jack Brown in that 90 car was my driver of the day. As soon as he got in, lit up the tyring screens, and the car always went up. Gordy Much super fast, did well to get around Seb Morris at the end there to claim the final podium position overall, but also to win Pro-Am. And I think, yeah, the safety cars have just helped the Silvers today with that extra pit stop penalty they normally get.
So the win in the Silverstone 500 goes the way of Garage 59. It was Adam Smalley and Sean Balfe victorious by in the end just over 5 seconds from the Nearies in second position. Simon Orange and Tom Roach for Orange Racing by JMH were third, and then the first of the Pro-Am cars, Johan Mardenborough, despite that late spin, ending up at least with a class victory alongside Chris Buncombe. Tilbrook and Clutton were 5th and 2nd in class after the penalty, ahead of the surviving Marlborough Motorsport Lamborghini with the Collards. Then it was Blackthorn, Optimum's number 84 car, Ram Racing and the number 6 2Cs Motorsport car that started on the third row of the grid that completes the top 10 ahead of Paddock. The second 2Cs machine, the one that started on pole, only 12th by the flag. The reigning champions, returning Darren Lung, only 13th ahead of their Century teammates Carl Cavers and Lewis Plato. Then it was the Audi of JNS Racing, Beechdean AMR in 16th, Century Motorsports. Number 14 car was 17th ahead of Greystone GT, Blackthorn and Optimum's number 90 car, of course, completing the top 20 overall, but more importantly, Jack Brown and Zach Meakin victorious in GT4. They were victorious by the best part of a lap after that well-timed pit stop and late safety car. For SRO Motorsports, Jamie Day and Mikey Porter were second in class, with Ian Duggan and Gordie Butch getting a podium for the Mahiki Racing Lotus and a class victory in Pro-Am. Team Parker Racing was second in that class. More good points scored for Seb Morris and Charles Dawson, the GT4 overall championship leaders coming into this weekend. Well, just like that, the dust, or should I say really the spray, settles over the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit with the British GT Championship's third round concluded, and the Silverstone 500 podium awaits now for those who survived all of the rain, all of the incidents, the safety cars, the full course yellows, the penalties, the pit stop strategy to come out on top. We'll have a number of different podiums, but it is the overall top three that really will steal the headlines. We've got the Team Orange by JMH Racing pairing there of Simon Orange and Tom Roach on the right, the Nearies, Richard and Sam on the left. But here are your Silverstone 500 winners, and Sean Balfe and Adam Smalley take their rightful place on the top step of the Silverstone podium, and they thoroughly deserve that. I feel like myself and Joe have said quite a few times how they got lucky and there was a bit of good fortune involved. That is definitely true, but don't take anything away from their performance. They did not make a single mistake in that race, which really can't be said for many of the other teams out there, even those who are perhaps joining them on the podium. So very, very deserving victory in this race for them, and some valuable championship points scored as well. They had a solid, if unspectacular, Alton Park with a 4th and a 5th place finish, but this race victory worth more points actually than a win at Alton Park, because it's one of the longer races. Remember, the 60-minute races, you score 25 points for a race victory, 37.5 though for winning in the 3-hour enduro. So more points, that will catapult them up the order, especially because of course championship leaders Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell didn't score. So make no mistake about it, Garage 59 are championship contenders this year, despite, if you like, being a silver combo. So the champagne shower begins up on the Silverstone podium, and they'll drench the cars down below a little bit more. They got plenty wet enough, really, over the course of the 3 hours. It never did fully dry out, which in a way is a little disappointing. Would have been nice to see that transition from wet to slick perhaps come into full effect, but we never quite got there, did we? Always sort of just teasing us with that possibility. That was the RAC trophy being held aloft, and these are the championship standings. Well, I said that would do them the world of good in the points. It really does. It puts them into the championship lead. So Sean Balfe and Adam Smalley leading the points by 9.5 now over Rob Collard and Ricky Collard, who again continued a consistent season in that race with a top 6. Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell dropped down to 3rd, having not scored today. Ian Logie and Phil Keane will be disappointed as well, 4th only for them, whilst the Nearies are another of the big winners, jumping up into the top 5 in GT3 points. So GT4 podium underway, and in fact almost concluded. We've already got our top 3 teams. Mahiki Racing up there, 3rd step of the podium. Great to have the Lotus back on the podium in British GT. And very, very pleased with that indeed. 2nd place in the end for SRO Motorsports, Mikey Porter and Jamie Day. But the victory in GT4 belongs to McLaren, it belongs to Optimum Motorsport, and it belongs to Jack Brown and Zach Meakin. They started from pole and they won the race. That makes it sound an awful lot more simple than it actually was for that pairing. Like I said to Joe, they very rarely were in the lead because they made a few of their pit stops early on. And interestingly, conversely really to GT3, where pitting early wasn't a good move. In GT4, it seemed to work out very well. The timing of their final pit stop is what won them the race, and they will be delighted to be sharing in the champagne shower, although it looks as though Zach Meakin keen to get out of there. Jack Brown joining in the festivities, and he will get a good soaking, I'm sure, from his fellow podium finishers. It's a bit messy up on the podium. Careful of the trophies, boys. They'll be worth something, those. And really priceless, I suppose, the winner's trophy in such a big race. A lot is made of the GT3 winners because they get to hold the RAC trophy. They are the winners of the Silverstone 500. But in GT4, they almost forget about the GT3 cars and the GT3 race sometimes. They're more interested, definitely, in winning in their class. And that's exactly what Optimum Motorsport have managed to do. So celebrations on the podium will continue then. We're getting the Academy Mustang team out now. And they had a troubled race, really, didn't they, in general, but they were able at least to get themselves a class podium, this in silver. We've also got Forsetti Motorsport back up there again. They were second overall, they were second in the Silver Cup, and Optimum Motorsport double winners because they won overall, but they also won in the silver category. So both classes we had an all-silver overall podium, which is remarkable, really. In a race where, particularly in GT4, those Silver Cup teams are supposed to be at such a massive disadvantage, the extra 12 seconds that they have to serve in the pit lane every time. But not the case here today, it seems. They were able to sort of pick their way through all of that, and despite the extra time, I think because it was such an unsettled, unpredictable race, actually, it didn't really affect them too badly. So for the second time, for Forsetti and Optimum, they spray the champagne. Perhaps that's why they got a head start on Academy, because they were up there for the first time. Now they pop the corks, and the crowd, a big crowd gathered down below, will enjoy the final celebrations up on the Silverstone podium. Well, it has been a fantastic third round of the British GT Championship. It has been a race that we will remember for a long time. We might have to sit down and watch it all again tonight just to try and figure out exactly what happened during that race, because there was so much going on, so much ultimately that was out of the team's hands. But in the end, it was a good day to be in a McLaren, with Optimum Motorsport victorious in GT4. It was the victory for Garage 59, though, overall, and it means that Sean Balfe and Adam Smalley are your 2024 Silverstone 500 winners.